Everyone woke, trapped in the belly of a giant fish, with nothing but a world system and a few supply boxes. Hundreds of thousands of survivors already dying. I was an ordinary code monkey, no muscle, no plan, first in line to die. But I woke with one thing no one else got. I alone could hear my evolved Leviathan, and that let me secretly help it digest for triple everyone's supply boxes, snowballing into the hidden big shot of the trade channel, while other survivors got dragged off by the anchorhead worm. The shared prison became my private head start. Take a second to like and subscribe before we get into it. Every one of you keeps this channel alive. To get here, I had to start as nothing. Let me show you that morning. Seawater pours into the darkness, and I come up out of it choking, arms slapping at a surface I cannot see, lungs heaving on water that tastes of salt and rot. I drag in several ragged breaths, coughing hard, and ask the black around me what is going on, whether the house is flooded. Half my body is submerged, and everything is pitch black, and that is wrong because my apartment is in the city, and even at night my room never goes this dark. Before I can make sense of any of it, the water at my waist starts draining away fast, and in moments it is gone, leaving only a damp floor under me. I move, and the ground gives under my feet like rubber, soft and yielding in a way no floor should be. Just as I am about to feel around, a voice rises in my mind, not spoken but arriving fully formed, welcoming me to the survivor world inside the giant fish, and telling me I will coexist with the fish and explore an unknown world. Then it tells me my initial supplies are being distributed. The next second, something thuds down by my feet, and in the dark I crouch and grope until my fingers close on a wooden box, and I open it. The system names what I have received: 3 loaves of bread, 3 bottles of mineral water, and 1 hand-cranked headlamp, and I am stunned for a beat before I grab the headlamp and crank it to life. A dim yellow light spills out, weak, reaching maybe 2 or 3 meters, but it is enough to show me where I am. Blood-red fleshy walls curve around me on every side. The system was not being poetic. I am sitting inside the stomach of a giant fish. That should terrify me, and for a moment it does, but the welcome already told me the fish and I are symbiotic, which means its stomach is not going to digest me, and a man who has just woken up inside a sea monster will take whatever reassurance he can get. The voice in my mind tells me my initial supplies are distributed and wishes all survivors a successful survival, and then it falls silent. I use the headlamp to map the space. It is small, maybe 5 meters by 5 by 3, and at the back there's a pool of yellow liquid about 3 meters across that stinks like something gone sour. I figure that is where the fish actually digests its food. A translucent blue screen unfolds in front of me, split into 4 channels: a world exchange channel and a trade channel that obviously handle talking and trading, a biological illustrations log that records creatures, and a body attributes panel. The illustrations are nearly empty, with only a single entry. When I open it, the system tells me about the evolved Leviathan, 1 day old, in its birth period 30 meters long and 180 tons in weight, an algae filter feeder, and the entry signs off by calling it a 180-ton little baby. I read that twice, 30 meters and 180 tons, and it was only born yesterday. I do not want to imagine what it looks like full grown. This is the creature I am bound to, the only living thing this world has shown me so far. I open my own body attributes next, and the system lays me out in numbers, telling me a normal person sits at 10 across the board, that my intelligence is 10, and my constitution 9, my strength only 7, my speed 11. That tracks. I was a code monkey parked in front of a screen all day, so my strength sitting under normal is no surprise. But I always made myself run every single day, so my speed creeps a little above average and my constitution lands close to normal. The system, generous to a fault, evaluates me as a relatively healthy person. The headlamp dies and the dark swallows me again, but it is hand cranked, so I sit on the supply box and wind it while I open the World Exchange channel. The feed is already an avalanche, billions of newly transmigrated humans dumping panic into one place, someone wailing that he got eaten by a fish right after eating fish and calling it karma. Someone begging a hypothetical cheat system big boss to carry him. One man mourning that he transmigrated the first time he ever won the lottery, the prize a grand total of 5-1, while everyone else laughs at him. A few level heads cut through the noise to say nobody knows what to do yet, and it is better not to act rashly. The messages scroll too fast to follow, but the moment I wish they would slow, the channel freezes so I can scroll at my own pace, which tells me the interface reads my intent. I shake my head at most of it, though the cautious ones have a point. The whole space lurches. The walls tremble, I lose my footing and go down backward, but the soft floor takes the fall and I am not hurt. The shaking runs about 10 seconds, then settles into a faint livable tremor, and I figure the evolved Leviathan has started to swim. Water rushes somewhere near what the system labels the osphageal diaphragm, and I hug my supply box and press flat against the stomach wall a heartbeat before the membrane opens and a flood pours in. Even braced, the current nearly takes me off my feet. The water climbs to my waist, then drains, and this time I have the headlamp to watch it all funnel out through the digestion pool. When it clears, a wooden box exactly like my first one is sitting there, and I scramble over and open it. The system tells me I have 1 loaf of bread and 1 bottle of mineral water. So this is how supplies come. I open the exchange channel and find a flood of people reporting the same thing, all of us only seconds apart, and I wonder if my whole existence here is just waiting for this fish to cough up a box each day. Water surges again. I have learned my lesson and squat low to take the impact, then stand only as the level rises so I do not get submerged. This time the drain leaves no box behind, only a great mass of algae. It keeps coming, surge after surge, more seawater and more algae, until the green stuff fills 2/3 of my little chamber. Then everything goes still, the tremor stops, and the fish seems to have settled. A childish voice murmurs in my head that it is full and time to digest. That stops me cold. I sweep the headlamp across the empty third of the space and find nothing. No source, no second occupant, and I ask the dark where a child's voice could possibly have come from. Alone in a black room inside a monster, hearing a kid talk out of nowhere, I will admit my heart climbs into my throat, and the back of my mind whispers something unclean. I tell that part of my mind to be quiet. This is plainly a survivor world, not a haunted house, and after I sit with it, the only sane explanation surfaces. I wonder if the evolved Leviathan just spoke. To test it, I opened the World Exchange channel and scanned for anyone reporting a voice, but the feed is all bickering about whether seaweed is edible, and nobody mentions a child. So either I imagined it, which I did not, or I am the only one who can hear it. My eyes light up at that, because it would make me special, maybe even the protagonist of whatever this is. And for one giddy moment I feel like the king of the new world. Then I cool off because the ability looks useless. I try to speak to the Leviathan and get nothing back. No acknowledgement, no obedience. I can hear it. I cannot command it. A radio that only receives is not exactly a golden finger. While I am chewing on that, the stomach wall begins to ripple in slow rhythmic waves, peristalsis pushing the heaped seaweed inch by inch toward the digestion pool. It is agonizingly slow. I crank the lamp through a full charge and the pile has barely shifted, and at this rate it will take 7 or 8 hours to feed the pool. Too slow, I think, and then my whole face changes, because a slow process is a process I can speed up. The Leviathan stopped moving because it has to digest, and if I do the moving for it, what happens then? I do not wait to find out. I scoop up armfuls of seaweed and carry them the few steps to the digestion pool and dump them in, where they vanish into the yellow liquid, and I go back and forth, again and again, until in about an hour I have cleared every strand from the stomach wall. Then I notice I am gasping, and no matter how I slow my breathing, the air will not satisfy me, and the truth lands all at once. The oxygen in here has to come from somewhere, and if the space does not make its own, then all that running around just burned through what little there was. I may have just tried to kill myself. Clever, I think. Choking on my own brilliance. The fear of suffocation crowds in as the air thins. I slump down and go as still as I can, minimizing every movement, but my breathing only races faster and my head spins with the start of hypoxia, and I curse myself for an idiot as the dark presses on me and I feel death getting close. Then, right as I am sure I am going under, the space shudders violently, the Leviathan wakes, and seawater floods in carrying fresh air with it. I surge up out of the water, gulping it down, leaning on the stomach wall, dizzy and shaking until by the time the water drains I have mostly recovered. A fine line that, between living and dying. The lamp gutters out, I wind it again, and the new light shows a fresh, unopened supply box waiting nearby. I had lost track of my first 2 boxes when the water hit, and now I gather them and the new one together, 3 in total, and open the new box. The system tells me I have 10 units of wood, 10 of stone, and 10 of soil. All raw material, and I let myself feel exactly 2 seconds of disappointment, because I do not know how to use any of it, and what I need is food and water. With nothing else to do, I open the World Exchange channel and read how other survivors are faring, and a pattern surfaces. Their Leviathans only ever produced 1 supply box, because the fish went straight into its slow digest and none of them know the digestion has even started, since none of them can hear it speak, so none of them thought to help it along. Turns out this ability of mine is worth something after all. Everyone else got 1 box from their fish. I have already gotten 2, my Leviathan is still active, and a 3rd box may well be coming, which means my development speed could run at triple theirs, and I am not telling a soul. Helping the fish digest for extra boxes is my one private edge, and in a world where conflict with other survivors is only a matter of time, staying far ahead is the only thing that guarantees I stay alive. I can choose not to harm anyone. I cannot afford to be unable to defend myself. Sure enough, water surges at the eosphageal diaphragm again. I lock my boxes down and wait, not knowing if this brings food or a box. And when it drains, there is no seaweed, which means no meal, which means a box. I find it fast and tear it open, and the system tells me I have obtained an algae oxygen tank blueprint. I freeze, then nearly laugh with relief. I had been agonizing over whether to risk helping the fish digest again after almost suffocating, and the universe just handed me the answer in the shape of an oxygen-making machine. I use the blueprint and it dissolves into blue light and folds into my interface, opening a blueprint section that holds exactly 1 entry. The algae oxygen tank needs 10 stone, seawater, and algae, and I have or can easily get all 3, the stone already sitting in my material box, the rest arriving with the fish's next meal. The childish voice sighs that it is so tired and going to sleep, and I hear it crystal clear this time, every doubt gone. I can hear the evolved Leviathan. The tremor stops, the fish settles into rest, and I let myself rest with it. The voice wakes me, saying it is hungry and time to find food, and I come up out of sleep at once. I cannot tell day from night in here, so I have decided to live on the fish's clock, sleeping when it rests and waking when it moves, keeping my rhythm locked to its. The space shudders as it begins to swim. I only ate 1 loaf of bread yesterday and my stomach is growling, so I force down another loaf and half a bottle of water, which leaves me 2 loaves and 3 bottles, a thin margin that makes me uneasy. If the boxes keep coming up empty of food, I am in real trouble. I say a small prayer to nobody that the next ones hold something to eat. The water surges in. I have done this enough times now to brace properly, shielding my boxes with my body, and the lamp shows me seaweed riding the flood. The moment I see it, I open the oxygen tank blueprint and click craft. Blue light flares. The stones lift out of the box and arrange themselves in the air into a stone tank about 1 meter tall and half a meter wide. Then seawater fills it and a few strands of algae root themselves in the crushed stone at the bottom and sway gently in the water. The whole thing takes seconds, and I stare at it doubtfully, because everything I know about algae says it needs sunlight to make oxygen, and there is not a single ray of light in here. Then I shine the lamp into the tank and the doubt dies, because tiny bubbles are already beating along the algae's leaves. Oxygen actually being made. I lean over the tank and put my nose right above the rising bubbles, and breathe in deep, savoring the clean scent of it. Even though the honest truth is I cannot feel a thing, because the space is still full of fresh air from the last surge and the tank's output is too small to notice yet. It is pure psychology. I do not care. The water recedes and leaves a heap of seaweed, and this time I do not wait for the fish to finish eating before I start hauling. I begin the instant the water clears. The Leviathan eats 2/3 of the space in algae over the course of a day, spread across several feedings, and each feeding floods the chamber with new oxygen, so as long as I move fast, I will never hit the deficit that nearly killed me. The new strategy carries its own risk, because the fish swallows in waves, and the seawater keeps coming, and if a surge ever sweeps me into the digestion pool, that is the end of me. So, I work fast and keep one ear on the eosphageal diaphragm, and the second I hear water, I get clear of the pool. I run the seaweed back and forth more than 10 times, grateful for all that daily running, until the whole feeding is in the pool, and then I sprawl over the oxygen tank gasping. The air holds steady this time. The machine works. The fish feeds 5 times in all, the gaps between them short, and by the end I am wrung out from the constant running, genuinely tired in the body with maybe 1/5 of the seaweed still unmoved when the Leviathan slips into its digest. But I am not worried, because yesterday I only started moving after it had already gone quiet, and today I started the moment it began to eat, so 1/5 left over is a massive improvement, and once I catch my breath the rest will go quickly. The oxygen is plentiful and the new approach is working, so there is no need to rush. I rest until I am steady, then reach into the seaweed pile for the last of it, and that is when it goes wrong. Something in the pile rakes my arm, and a sharp sting follows. I jerk my hand back, and the lamp shows a crimson gash on my forearm nearly 5 centimeters long, blood welling up and running down to drip off my little finger. I clutch the wound and back away fast, demanding to know what that was, and the seaweed shudders, and a creature springs out of it. A cold thread of fear runs through me, and I retreat further, because something is hiding in there, and it just drew blood. This is an unknown world, and a 30-meter fish born only days ago tells me nothing here is small or simple, so whatever lives in this ocean is not going to be friendly. I pull the lamp off my head and crank it steadily, so I am not caught blind, while in the dark a hard shell clicks against the flesh wall, the thing bouncing in place, rather than charging me. The lamp only throws 2 or 3 meters, so I cannot see it yet, and after waiting I decide to creep closer. Not out of bravado, but because my arm is still bleeding and needs binding, and I do not dare turn my attention from an unknown threat to tend it. I hold my breath and inch forward until the light finally falls on the creature. It looks like a shrimp, a huge one, about the length of a grown man's forearm, entirely red, with a sharp knife-like spike jutting from its head, and that spike is what opened my arm. The fear drains out of me, because for all its size the thing is not aggressive, just bouncing helplessly in place. In its place comes anger. I was minding my own business, gathering seaweed, and this overgrown shrimp carved a wound into me. I have no real medicine. The odds of infection are high, and an infection in here could kill me. I grab a supply box and hurl it at the shrimp, but the soft floor and the shrimp's hard shell swallow the impact, and after a few useless throws I just kick it away so it cannot stick me again, and then I stop wasting energy on it. I tear a strip from my underwear and bind the wound enough to slow the bleeding. Then I go back to the seaweed, but now I kick each pile first, shoes on, so that if another of these things is hiding, I find it before it finds me. 10 minutes later, the last of the seaweed is in the pool, and I have not met a second shrimp. The real work is done, and now I only wait for the Leviathan to digest. But before it moves again, I deal with the shrimp that cut me, because I was about to kick it into the digestion pool when I realized I want it. The shell is the size of my forearm, and if I peel it off intact, it will armor my arm against the next aggressive thing I meet, and the spike on its head would make a decent knife. I plan it out and act on it, flipping an empty box over the shrimp to pin it, then tearing another strip of cloth and tying it around the shrimp's body, and with that my preparations to kill it are complete. The thing keeps bouncing, oblivious that it is about to die. I grip the loose end of the strip and spin, and centrifugal force whips the shrimp around at the end of it, and when the spin is fast enough, I fling it hard against the stone oxygen tank. The shell cracks against the stone with a sharp report, and my heart leaps, but the stubborn thing is not dead, just badly fractured and close to it. So I swing it into the tank twice more, and the third blow finishes it. The next problem stumps me, because I have nothing to cut the shell with. Then I look at the spike on its head and decide to use its own weapon against its own armor. I pin the shrimp's body under one foot and its spike under the other, and stomp down hard, snapping off the 7 or 8 centimeter spike clean. Then I start cutting, beginning at the soft underbelly of the tail since the back shell is too hard to start on. It is slow, ugly work. The spike is no real knife, and it takes a full half-hour to peel the shell off the tail. When it is done, I let out a long breath and sit, holding a roughly cut piece of tail shell that does not look like much, but will serve, and I wrap it around my forearm, where it fits and covers the whole thing, cracked and tattered from the way the shrimp died, but still some protection. That leaves the head and the tail meat, and I swallow, looking at the translucent flesh. If only I had fire. I have never eaten raw meat, let alone raw meat from an unknown world, and I am not about to start. But I cannot make fire in here anyway, because there is not enough oxygen to feed a flame without suffocating me along with it. So the meat stays raw whether I like it or not. The Leviathan finishes digesting and stirs, and I tuck the head and meat into an empty box so the next surge does not carry them off. I check my arm, and blood is already soaked through the cloth strip. A torn scrap of underwear is not going to be enough. So I open the World Trade Channel and start hunting for anything that stops bleeding, scrolling past offer after offer. 10 wood for 1 loaf of bread from a man with no food left. 10 stone for 1 bottle of water from someone whose 3 initial bottles got washed into his digestion pool. Almost everyone trading material for food, which tells me most people's first box was raw material like mine. Finally, I find one medical listing, a medical hemostatic bandage going for 3 loaves of bread, first come first served. 3 loaves is robbery, but my arm is bleeding and it is the only bandage on the board, so I have to deal. The problem is I only have 2 loaves, not enough, so I open a private message to the seller to haggle. I tell him 3 loaves for a bandage is too steep and offer 1. He answers fast that it will not do, that this is life-saving stuff, and tells me to check the board myself for any other medical item. Then, fishing, he asks whether I am hurt. I tell him no, that it is hard to get hurt inside a fish's stomach, that I simply have a strong sense of crisis and like to stock up early when I see medical supplies pass by. He buys it a little too well, agreeing that I make a good point and saying that in that case he will keep the bandage for a rainy day himself, and thanking me for the reminder. That is exactly wrong, and I go anxious in an instant, because my arm genuinely needs treating before the bleeding alone does me in. I tell him quickly not to back out, offer 2 loaves, and he chuckles through the text that I am actually injured, aren't I? The man read me, and honestly it makes sense. It is only the second day, everyone is trading for food, and I am the lone person trading for medicine, which gives the whole game away. So I lay it out plainly, 2 loaves of bread and 1 bottle of mineral water. All the food I have, take it or leave it. It is the truth, and it leaves me only 2 bottles of water, and if today's 3 boxes hold no food, I will be surviving on water alone. He tells me not to think so badly of people, that he will not raise the price, and then offers 1 loaf and 1 bottle of water, less than I just offered. I wait, not quite believing it, half wondering whether I have stumbled onto a genuinely decent person or just badly misjudged the room. I had taken it as given that in an unknown world starved for food, everyone turns selfish, because selfishness is how you survive. But his listing is actually changed to 1 loaf and 1 bottle, so I confirm the trade without hesitating. The bread and water in my box glow blue, and a roll of medical hemostatic bandage takes their place. I untie the soaked cloth strip, clean the wound with half a bottle of water, and grit through the sting before wrapping it properly with the bandage, and at last the bleeding stops. A private message comes through, the seller hoping the bandage serves me well, and I thank him, because a man who refused to gouge an injured stranger has earned it. He waves it off as a fair trade, then casually asks how I got hurt. Smart. This one, he did me a favor and now he is collecting on the information behind it. What I told him earlier was not even a lie. The inside of a Leviathan is all soft flesh. It really is hard to get injured in here, so the cause of my wound is itself valuable intelligence. I decide to give it to him, but edited, leaving out that I had been moving seaweed to speed the fish's digestion. I tell him the supply box got washed away while the Leviathan was eating, that I went digging in the seaweed to find it, and that a shrimp the size of a grown man's forearm was hiding in the pile and cut my calf with its barb. He marvels that the creatures here must all be huge, and I tell him they probably are and that he should be careful, that the big shrimp is not aggressive, but getting cut by surprise in a seaweed pile is genuinely dangerous. He thanks me for the warning, suggests we keep in touch and help each other going forward, and I agree. Right then, water sounds at the oesophageal diaphragm, and I move quickly, dragging the oxygen tank over beside the diaphragm, where the surge hits least, and stacking all 4 of my supply boxes on top of it, where the water just barely fails to reach them, so I will not have to body block them every time anymore. This surge brings a new box, and I open it to find 10 stone, 10 soil, and 10 hay, and I complain to the empty room that it is all material again when what I want is food, because I am down to 1 loaf and a hungry day ahead. The next surge brings the second box, and the system tells me I have obtained a small planting box blueprint, and that one lights me up, because a planting box means growing my own food, which means never starving in here again. I use the blueprint and it folds into my interface. The construction requirements 10 wood and 10 soil, which I have, so I click build. Nothing happens. I check the materials, they are sufficient. I click build again, still nothing. I move the materials out of the box and arrange them by hand into the shape on the blueprint, and it still will not build, and I am getting genuinely annoyed, because what good is a planting box blueprint I am not allowed to build? In the end, I give up, and my lovely dream of self-sufficient farming collapses. I open the trade channel instead. This is already today's second box, and if the last one holds no food, I will have to trade material for bread. Then a listing catches my eye. Watermelon seeds for 1 loaf of bread, and I think immediately of the planting box, because if I ever do get it working, I will need seeds, and 1 seed for 1 loaf is a fair price. But I do not trade because I am down to a single loaf, and if I spend it I have nothing to eat, and I burn a lot of energy hauling seaweed every day. 1 loaf a day is not enough for anyone, and I have been hungry for 2 days straight now, and there is simply too little food and nothing to be done about it. That gnawing emptiness is exactly why I wanted the planting box so badly. Hours later, the last box rides in on the surge, and I carry it up to the oxygen tank and put my hand on the lid and pray for food, and the system, merciful at last, tells me I have 1 apple and 1 banana. Food, finally, if not the most filling. I have only been here a day and my craving for fruit is not strong. I would rather have bread, but I realize that just because I do not want fruit does not mean others do not. So I list both on the trade channel. 2 fruits for 2 loaves. The trade clears in a while. 2 fruits become 2 loaves, and plenty of people clearly have food to spare. Now I hold 3 loaves and a bottle and a half of water, barely enough to reach the day after tomorrow. The Leviathan's voice tells me it is tired and going to sleep, and I get ready to sleep too, except I am soaked through. The floor is wet, and my bandaged arm cannot get wet either. So I look at the boxes stacked on the oxygen tank, and a few minutes later I have 7 of them laid out in pairs on the ground, and I strip off my wet clothes and stretch out on the driest of them. Comfortable, almost. The space shudders, the Leviathan begins to move, and I wake from a dream that was nothing but delicious food, licking my lips at the memory of it. I wonder if any box might hold something to heat food, thinking of yesterday's shrimp meat that I still cannot cook, and still cannot stomach raw. I eat a loaf and drink the half bottle left from cleaning my wound, just enough to dull the hunger, then check my arm. The wound does not become infected, whether from the bandage or my decent constitution I cannot say, but it is a small mercy. I rewrap it, stack the scattered boxes back onto the oxygen tank, and settle in to wait for the fish to eat, opening the World Exchange channel while I do. The feed has a man begging, down to nothing but a single watermelon seed, offering it for a loaf of bread, while the others mock him, pointing out that nobody can plant anything yet. So a watermelon seed is worthless, and a loaf for it is a fantasy. Another voice tells him gently to stop shouting, that he has been at it since yesterday, that each person gets 1 box a day, and whether it holds food is pure luck, and that the trade board alone shows almost everyone is short. The beggar pleads that he has not eaten in a day, and will trade for anything edible, that his next box is 5 or 6 hours off, and he has no strength left. That is the man who traded a watermelon seed for bread yesterday, I realize, and I private message him, and he answers fast, asking if I want the seed. I tell him yes, but not for bread. He says that is fine, anything edible, and asks what I have. Raw shrimp meat, I tell him, and he is surprised, asking where I found shrimp, so I explain. He works out that a shrimp the size of a forearm is 3 or 4 pounds of meat, and I agree, telling him I do not eat raw meat and it will spoil in a few days, so I would rather trade it for his seed. I do add one honest warning, that in an unknown world this shrimp meat might be poisonous, and ask if he still wants it. He hesitates a long while, then says let us trade, that he has nothing else and will gamble on the shrimp. And if it goes wrong, then it goes wrong. He sends the watermelon seed over by private message. I confirm it, and I send the shrimp meat back. Trading shrimp meat for a single seed would look like a terrible deal to anyone watching me trade with Gang Hado, since seeds cannot be planted yet. But I already have a planting box, even if it will not build. So the seed is a puzzle piece I will eventually need. And I do not eat raw shrimp and do not know if it is poison. So trading something useless to me for something I will want is worth it. The Leviathan starts eating and I start hauling, same as yesterday. Except today I have armored up, shrimp shells lashed to both forearms and the hollowed out shrimp heads wrapped around my palms. Before lifting any seaweed, I sweep through the pile with a shell-protected hand to be sure nothing is hiding, and the armor earns its keep at once, because there are 3 big shrimp in today's pile. I find one in advance, and the other two strike at me and glance off the shells without drawing blood. After the seaweed is moved, I process the 3 shrimp, but not the brutal way I killed yesterday's, which wrecked the shell. Today, I have the head spikes as tools, so I pin each shrimp under an empty box and drive a spike into the joint where head meets tail, the most vulnerable seam. Cut the thin connecting shell, then grip the gap and pull hard, separating head from tail and leaving the shell whole. All 3 take about half an hour, and with yesterday's practice, these shells come out completely intact. Far better than my first ugly attempt. I store the meat and shells in a box and wait for the Leviathan to swallow the day's supplies. The fish finishes digesting and stirs, and the first box rides in. The system tells me I have 1 tin of canned yellow peaches, and I am pleased because that is high sugar energy, both fruit to eat and sweet syrup to drink, and in a world this stingy with food, it is perfect to hoard as emergency rations. While I wait on the second box, Gang Heido messages me asking if I still have that spiked krill meat. Spiked krill, I think, taken aback, then realize he means the big shrimp, and I ask how he knows it is called that. It is in the illustrated guide, he says, found by accident. I open my own biological illustrations and sure enough, there is a second page now. The system tells me about the spiked krill, 30 to 40 centimeters long, 5 or 6 kilograms, an algae eater, its head spikes exceptionally sharp, its meat delicious and elastic and edible, its shell good for making armor. So that is why they hide in the seaweed. They eat the same algae the Leviathan does, and when it swallows it scoops up the odd unlucky krill along with the meal. Then a colder thought surfaces, that nobody else has run into these. After a moment, I think I understand. Every time I speed the Leviathan's digestion, its daily active time runs far past every other Leviathan's, so it swims farther, into waters where the spiked krill live. I am ahead of everyone, but that does not make me happy so much as nervous, because the farther my fish wanders from its birthplace, the more creatures it will meet, and if it ever swallows something 3 or 4 meters long, I could die. Gang Heido asks if I am still there. Just reading the guide, I tell him. He says spiked krill meat is a good item, that eating it adds a point of strength, so he wants to trade for another piece, offering a blueprint he just pulled from a box. I sit there stunned, because the krill meat I have refused to eat can raise an attribute, and not just any one, the all-important strength. For a second, I look at the 3 pieces I am holding, and stop planning to trade at all, because eating all 3 would raise my strength 3 points, up to a normal person's 10, and if there are more krill in the days ahead, my strength could climb without limit, and make me unstoppable. Then I throw that idea out, because if strength really stacked forever, I would be invincible before leaving the novice village, which is absurd, so the gain has to be capped. To find out, I decide to trade 1 piece to Gang Heido and see. I ask what blueprint he has, and he says it is an armor blueprint called a spiked helmet, apparently made from spiked krill shell. What a coincidence, a perfect match, and I trade without hesitating, asking him to eat the krill meat and tell me afterward whether his strength rises again. He agrees, and then asks my name since he forgot to before, and after I tell him we end the conversation and I use the helmet blueprint. The spiked helmet needs 3 complete spiked krill shells, which I have, and 5 pieces of fabric, which I do not, so I decide to wait on the last 2 boxes and trade for fabric, only if neither delivers. Then I try the krill meat myself. Since it raises strength, I no longer care that it is raw, so I pick up a piece and tear into it in big bites, and it is genuinely not bad, firm and tender, no fishy smell, even faintly sweet, though the raw texture still puts me off a little. By the time I finish the piece, I am almost full, the first time I have eaten my fill in 3 days. The system confirms it, telling me I have consumed spiked krill meat and gained 1 point of strength, and I open my panel to see strength now at 8, intelligence 10, speed 11, constitution 9, the system still calling me a relatively healthy person. My strength really did rise by 1. I flex my arms and feel only a slight new firmness, nothing dramatic, since it is just a single point. 1 piece fills me, so I save the last for tomorrow. Hours later, the second box arrives, 10 stone, 10 wood, and 10 fabric, and there is my fabric. I open the spiked helmet blueprint and craft, and 3 krill shells and 5 fabric dissolve into blue light and resolve into a helmet. Its exterior plated in carapace with 3 spikes standing upright on top. A soft fabric lining inside so it sits comfortably against my skull without scratching. It fits perfectly. I set it carefully on the stacked boxes in the corner, out of the water's reach, planning to wear it tomorrow while I move seaweed. Gang Heido messages that he ate his krill meat and gained no strength this time, so it seems the meat only adds strength on the first bite, and is useless after. That confirms my cap. Then he gets sheepish, hemming through the text, saying the blueprint he traded me was actually fairly rare, and could I add another piece of krill meat, since he feels a little shortchanged. He had been willing to trade the blueprint when he thought the meat would give him a second strength point, which would have made it fair, but now that he knows a second piece does nothing, he feels he lost the deal. The trouble is he initiated it himself, so asking to raise the price now is a touch thick-skinned. And the real reason behind it is that today's box gave him only a blueprint, and he still has no food stored. So he is anxious. I do not make him sweat over it. I tell him I only had 2 pieces today, that I traded one and ate one, and that we will sort it tomorrow, that if I have a piece I will give him a piece. An armor blueprint genuinely is worth more than 1 piece of krill meat, so his request is fair. But I cannot be certain he is telling the truth either, that a second piece really gave him nothing, because he could be lying to wring more out of me. So I will keep my remaining piece until tomorrow, eat it myself to confirm I gain no strength, and only then trade in the next krill I catch. Water surges at the eosophageal diaphragm, the day's last box, and the system tells me I have 1 heating pack. A heating pack which means I could finally cook the krill meat tomorrow, and the thought lifts my mood, especially since I opened a can of yellow peaches today and the empty tin would make a perfect cooking pot. The whole plan assembles itself in my head the instant I see the pack, and then I shut it right back down, because the heating pack works only once, and the only thing I have to cook right now is krill meat, which is too small a use for a one-shot item. And the canned peaches are meant to be hoarded as a lifeline for when food runs out, not blown on a single meal of boiled shrimp. My old survival game instincts kick in hard, the hoarder in me demanding that everything good be saved for the moment it matters most. I put the heating pack and the peaches together in a box, both too precious to risk, and set them up high where no water can touch them. On the 4th day the Leviathan moves and I wake, and the first thing I do is eat the last piece of krill meat for breakfast, and confirm Gang Hyoto was honest. It gives no strength the second time. I am mildly let down since I had hoped to reach a normal person's 10, but there it is. I put on my new spiked helmet, take my place in the corner by the stacked boxes, and wait to haul seaweed. Then the Leviathan's voice comes through, irritated, complaining that something keeps stealing its food. Spiked krill, I guess, since they eat the same algae, so there must be a lot of krill in today's seaweed, enough to bother the fish, which means I need to be extra careful moving it. The last 2 days the krill rode and mixed with the seaweed, and the fish never said a word, so the numbers were small. Today they must be large. Without warning, the whole stomach space pitches violently, tilting until the digestion pool side rears up, and the chamber stands nearly vertical. I am thrown across it into the flesh wall, dizzy but unhurt thanks to the softness, while the oxygen tank dumps all its water from the tilt, and my 10 accumulated boxes scatter everywhere. I lunge for 1 box in particular, the one holding the canned peaches and the heating pack, because those 2 cannot be lost, and I clutch it to my chest in a haze of confusion and dread, my mind jumping straight to the worst possibility, that the Leviathan is under attack. There is nothing I can do. This world is still a black box to me. After days inside, I have no idea what the outside even looks like, and the unknown breeds fear. The fish is 30 meters, an ocean king size on Earth, but this is not Earth and it was only just born, and there is no guarantee something bigger is not out there. A thunderclap detonation rips through the Leviathan's body and slams into the chamber, so enormous the sound waves shake my organs, and my skull throbs like it took a blow, though mercifully it comes and goes in an instant. Then the voice rings out, smug, declaring that it will smack every food-stealing thing away with 1 swipe of its tail, and the relief floods me, because it was only swatting shrimp, not fighting another giant fish. That commotion nearly finished me anyway, I think, sitting on the floor with a wry smile as the space rights itself. Once my head clears, I haul the toppled oxygen tank upright, finding only a little water left in it. No real problem since the fish will feed soon and refill it. I carry the scattered boxes back 1 by 1 and restack them neatly on the tank, the most precious ones set at the very top. Then the familiar surge sounds of the diaphragm, the Leviathan feeding, and as the water pours in, I open the blueprint and click repair on the oxygen tank, the seawater filling the stone trough and the repair finishing in seconds. When the water recedes, I begin moving seaweed, working carefully, raking each pile with my shell-armored arm, and lifting it only after I am sure no krill lurk inside. Digging through the seaweed, I touch something hard and familiar, a krill shell, except this one does not flick its tail when I touch it. It just lies there. The lamp shows a spiked krill plainly dead, its head spike snapped, its shell shattered, its meat exposed. I should be able to gather a lot of dead shrimp today, I tell myself, smiling, because that tail swing nearly shipped me to death and its force is easy to imagine. So among the krill swarm it hit, plenty must have been killed or stunned, and since the fish is feeding here again, the seaweed will be full of corpses. Spiked krill cannot raise strength the second time, but I can trade them away for rare items, so I move seaweed and pick up dead krill at the same time, and after the first feeding's haul, I have collected 13 dead krill and 2 half-dead ones. 15 from 1 feeding, I marvel, picturing 70 or 80 by the time feeding ends. But piled loose like this, they will wash away in the next surge, so I look at the oxygen tank in the corner, and decide to build a second one. My idea is to set 2 oxygen tanks at a V against the stomach wall. The triangular space between them is storeroom for the krill, and since I have the materials and an extra oxygen source never hurts. I open the blueprint and build it. The second feeding starts. I pile the 15 krill in the corner and shield them with my body through the surge. Then build the second tank and the 2 of them lock into the V exactly as planned, enclosing the krill and blocking the water. Everything I gather from here can be stored safely inside. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I catch a dark shadow moving in the water. My chest tightens, and I whip the lamp toward it, heart climbing on its own. because that shadow is not a spiked krill. It is a full 3 or 4 meters long. I am at least standing inside the triangular space between the two oxygen tanks, so I do not have to fear it striking me from beneath the surface. I stare hard at the water in front of me, the beam sweeping the churning surface, and draw the spike from my waist and grip it tight, waiting in silence for the water to recede. But trouble never travels alone, and at the worst possible moment the headlamp battery runs low, the dim yellow light dimming further and starting to flicker. I curse through my teeth, because I do not dare free a hand to crank it now. So I squint into the failing glow and keep watching the water, and the time it takes to drain stretches unbearably. Then the battery dies entirely and the chamber drops into total black. And in the last instant before the light went out, I saw it, a fleshy strip-shaped thing in the water ahead, like a snake and like a tentacle both. Before I can even name it, the surface ahead bursts and something charges out of the water at me. Fear floods my whole body in the dark, my eyes straining uselessly, the unknown magnified to infinity by the blackness. Something cracks against my head, claws by the feel of it, seizing my spiked helmet. And the claws have barbs, squeezing the helmet with enormous strength, grinding like a hard edge dragged across shell. I am scared witless, my whole body numb with terror, the hand on the spike shaking past my control, and I scream at myself inwardly to calm down, because only calm gives my body back to me. Then something wraps my neck, slick and sticky, and the touch crawls up my scalp. A tentacle, I think. In the pitch dark, I have no idea what is on me, and my panicked mind paints a giant grotesque thing of 2 claws and tentacle-covered legs, the fear refusing to let go. The tentacle tightens, my breathing chokes, my face goes hot and congested with trapped blood. I am going to die again, I think, and then I catch on the word again, because this suffocation is horribly familiar, the same near death I tasted my very first day in this world from lack of oxygen. Then, maybe because I am certain I am dying, the fear collapses into rage, adrenaline detonating, my numb body snapping back to life. I swing my right hand violently and drive the spike into the tentacle at my neck, not caring if I nick my own throat doing it, and the thing shrieks. A sharp alien cry I suddenly place is coming from above my head. I do not bother with the detail, I just saw into the tentacle in a frenzy, and though its skin is tough it cannot withstand the spike, and soon I cut it through. The severed length thrashes wildly in my grip, spraying foul-smelling fluid all over me from the stump. After a while the creature goes completely still, though the claws on my helmet keep their grip, only drained of force. The rage drains with the adrenaline and the fear creeps back, and I swallow and stay frozen, not daring to move until every drop of water has receded. It should be dead, I tell myself, though I cannot be sure since the claws are still clamped to my head, and the dark hides everything. After waiting longer, I finally find the nerve to pull off the helmet and crank it by hand, and the light flickers up to show a spray of blood and a severed tentacle hanging limp on the oxygen tank, still dripping from the break. That tentacle must be the main body, I think, sweeping the light over a strip-shaped thing about 3 meters long and thick as a bowl. Then I remember the cry came from above my head, and understanding hits, and I yank off my helmet. 4 chile shaped like anchors are clamped onto it, small barbs at their ends sunk into the carapace, and at the center of the 4 is a round mouth part ringed with scimitar teeth. If that had bitten down on my head, I would be finished, and a cold sweat runs down my back, because it was pure luck the thing never reached my skull. The helmet shell could never have stopped those teeth. I survived only because the 3 spikes on top of the helmet kept the 4 anchor claws from seating fully against my head, holding the toothed mouth far enough off that it could not bite. This helmet saved my life. The biological illustration should have logged it by now, I realize, and I open the interface and find the entry. The system tells me about the anchorhead worm, 2 to 3 meters long, 30 to 40 kilograms, a blood eater, a parasite that lives inside giant creatures, its sharp mouth part able to bite open a grown skull with ease. Its 4 anchorhead chile like the Grim Reaper's scythes, certain death to be caught without a hard helmet. The chile themselves usable for crafting tools. Reading that, the lingering terror deepens. I lived purely on luck, having crafted the spiked helmet ahead of time off a blueprint that just happened to obstruct exactly this attack. Water surges at the diaphragm again, and only then do I remember the Leviathan's feeding is not finished. So I pry the anchorhead worm's head off my helmet, toss it aside, and put the helmet back on. I do not leave the triangular space between the 2 oxygen tanks, because there could be more anchorhead worms hidden in the incoming water, and inside feels safer. I wait until the fish finishes feeding, find no more of them, and only then cautiously step out of the krill store. I go back to hauling seaweed and gathering krill, charging the headlamp extra often now so I am never caught blind again, because I have no desire to meet another unknown thing in the dark. After about half an hour, all the seaweed is in the pool, and I have met no more anchorhead worms. The day's total comes to 58 spiked krill, 8 of them still alive with intact carapaces good for making more helmets, the other 52 damaged in the shell to use, which I will trade whole on the board rather than bother peeling. My breathing stays smooth and easy through all of it, so the second oxygen tank is plainly doing its job. I sit on a box to rest, then open Gang Hado's avatar and send him 3 spiked krill outright. The helmet was decisive in surviving the anchorhead worm, and since I have krill to spare now, 2 extra for him is a way of saying thanks. He fires back asking if I sent it wrong, why I traded over 3, and I tell him it is no mistake. I am giving him 3, and he thanks me, then notes I must have had a good harvest today. Good, I tell him, but I also nearly lost my life, and when he asks what happened I tell him about the anchorhead worm. He is horrified that such a dangerous creature exists, and frightened for himself, because if I ran into one he might too, and he has no spiked helmet to protect him. He asks, carefully, whether he can trade 2 spiked krill for a spiked helmet, then immediately adds that he knows 2 krill is not nearly enough, promising that if he opens any seeds in the future, he will hand them straight to me, or any materials I need. I tell him I will just give him 1. The blueprint he traded me happened to save my life, and he is the person I know best in this whole world, so giving him a helmet is a favor worth doing, and a friend in an unfamiliar place may matter later. He frets that it would be unfair, and I tell him it is fine, it costs little material, and he thanks me fervently, calling me his real brother. I end the conversation and look at the anchorhead worm's corpse, wondering if its meat could raise strength too, but I shake the thought off because the guide never said the meat was edible, and if it is poison I am done. After a while the first box arrives, 10 units of sand alongside 1 iron ore and 1 copper ore, and I am mildly surprised to be pulling metal now. For the coming stretch I plan to trade spiked krill to other survivors, but I have to wait 3 or 4 hours for them to get their first boxes of the day so I can swap krill for valuable items, or resources. A rough tally tells me it is only the 4th day, everyone gets 1 box a day, so each person has 5 boxes total, and not much combined wealth. To truly maximize profit, I should wait 10 days, or half a month, which would yield far more. But spiked krill cannot keep that long. I have no refrigerator, and the supply boxes only hold things. They do not preserve them. Worse, by my own reasoning, some survivors will start meeting spiked krill themselves any day now, because my fish swims 3 or 4 times farther than theirs. And I first met krill on the 2nd day, so by today, someone else should have hit them too. I opened the World Exchange channel to check, and there it is, a man insisting he saw a 20 to 30 centimeter shrimp, the others mocking him for hallucinating from hunger, until he snaps back that the shrimp has 7 or 8 centimeter spikes on its head, sharp enough to slice his pants and nearly open his leg, that it is bouncing around not far from him right now. The talk turns to how to kill it, so I close the channel. Sure enough, someone has found the spiked krill, and urgency rises in me, because once everyone has them, what I am holding loses its value. 3 or 4 hours later, the survivors get their first boxes of the day, and I split my 50 spiked krill into 5 kinds of trade and post them. The first kind takes blueprints, 1 blueprint per krill, 10 in all. The second takes food, 1 can plus 1 loaf plus 1 bottle of water per krill, 10 in all. The third takes medical supplies, 1 per krill, 10. The fourth takes metal ores, 10 ores per krill, 10. The fifth takes basic materials, 50 per krill, 10. Then I announce on the World Exchange channel that I am selling spiked krill meat visible on the trade channel, that eating it raises 1 point of strength, limited quantity, first come first served. The message hits the feed like water poured into boiling oil. One man jeers that I have played too many games and rotted my brain to think meat adds strength points. And another fires back that maybe he is the one who played games until he is stupid, since there is a character panel right there in the system interface and the whole point of a panel is to add points. Someone recognizes the krill as the 20 to 30 centimeter shrimp he saw. Others start weighing whether to buy, debating which trade is most cost effective, the meat pricey but rich, and good for a strength point. Then 2 messages cut through and chill the whole thing, one demanding to know whether anyone can actually prove the strength claim, the other asking the question that lands hardest of all, that if the meat truly raises strength, why would I ever sell it instead of eating it all myself to grow stronger? The moment those 2 messages appear, the heat in the World Exchange channel drops by more than half. I do not let either of those 2 messages rattle me. In fact, a smile is already creeping onto my face, because the moment that doubter posted his 2 cold lines in the World Exchange channel, he turned around and spent 200 basic materials in the trade channel to buy 4 spiked krill meat in one go. The man stirred up doubt on purpose, just to buy himself time to corner the supply before anyone else moved. 4 pieces at once, more than any one person needs, which tells me he plans to resell. Sneaky, I think, almost admiring it. What I cannot work out at first is where he got 200 basic materials. Everyone else has only 5 boxes, and aside from the first day's food box, even if all 4 of his remaining boxes were stuffed with basic materials, that comes to 120 at most. For a heartbeat, I wonder whether he found a way to speed his own Leviathan's digestion the way I have. I throw the idea out fast, because if he had, he would have been swimming into spiked krill waters days ago and would not need to trade materials for the meat at all. So the only answer left is that he pooled materials with people he already knew, bought 4 pieces, ate 1 each, and is flipping the rest. Resourceful, not a threat, just a hustler. A private message lands, and it is the doubter himself, apologizing in case his comment hurt my trading. Not much, I tell him, and I mean it, because by now all 10 pieces I had listed for basic materials have cleared. He says that is good, then asks if he can put a question to me. I tell him to ask. I am not about to hold his earlier jab against him, since a man buying 4 pieces at once only encourages the fence sitters to follow him in, and that is good for my board. Basic materials are worthless garbage until you open a blueprint to spend them on, so trading 50 pieces of useless junk for a 20 to 30 centimeter spiked krill packed with 3 or 4 pounds of meat is no loss to anyone, even if the strength point were a lie. His question is whether the meat only raises strength on the first bite. I tell him yes, the second piece gives nothing. There is no point lying since he has clearly already worked it out and is only confirming. The reason I never announced this in the World Channel is simple greed, because I want the lucky ones, the people sitting on a stack of blueprints, to believe that the more krill they eat, the more strength they gain, so they will keep trading me their blueprints. Say the cap out loud and not one of them parts with a blueprint again. He thanks me warmly, tells me his name is Jong Yong Myung, and asks for mine. I tell him the honorific is too much and that I am just Joe Moon, and he promises that if he ever opens a blueprint, he will bring it to me first. After he signs off, I check my board again, and 43 of my 50 listed pieces have moved. The World Exchange channel now thick with people confirming the strength point is real, which is exactly why the meat sold so fast. The 7 that remain are the ones priced for blueprints, and nobody bites, because blueprints are rare and anyone who opens one keeps it. 3 hours crawl by. The evolved Leviathan swallows its second box, and still not a single blueprint trade. I tell the empty room that if nobody trades by the 3rd box of the day, I will just dump the rest for basic materials, and I open the 2nd box. The system tells me I have 3 bottles of mineral water, which is fine even though I am not short on water, and I sort through the materials I have already hauled in. Only 3 blueprints came through the trading, a wooden foundation, an iron dagger, and a spiked leg armor. A leg armor, I think, pleased, because it sounds like a set and I wonder if I can collect the whole thing. I use all 3 at once and check what they need to build. The wooden foundation wants 20 wood. The iron dagger wants 1 iron ingot and 1 wood, and I curse, because where in this fleshy black box am I supposed to find an iron ingot? The spiked leg armor wants 8 spiked krill shells and 10 cloth scraps, and I count what I have, only 5 shells, since I burned 3 making Gang Hado's helmet, so I will manage the leg armor tomorrow. I look over the food I traded for next. 10 cans, 10 loaves, 10 bottles, enough that hunger is off my mind for a good while. The cans are all canned fruit, yellow peaches, coconut, oranges, no meat among them, but I tuck them away carefully anyway, because canned fruit is sugar, and sugar is energy. The medical haul is 9 hemostatic bandages and a box of anti-inflammatory medicine, every one of it life-saving, so it all goes up high where no surge can soak it. The metal comes to 100 units, 50 iron ore and 50 copper ore, and the basic materials to 500, which I leave unsorted for now. With time to kill, I decide to build a wooden foundation just to see what it does, since I have materials to spare and can afford to be a little extravagant. I open the blueprint and click build, and the instant it forms my whole face changes. I had pictured a flat panel laid on the floor, but instead it stands a meter off the ground on 4 1-meter wooden piles, exactly high enough that the surging seawater cannot reach it. No more soaking in salt water every single day. The realization hits me like a gift, because for 5 days now I have been drenched several times daily, my skin always wet and sticky and crawling, a misery I could never quite put into words. Now I can ride out every feeding in every box from up on the platform, and only drop down to work once the water drains. I shove the foundation hard to test it, half afraid a surge will sweep it away, but the 4 piles seem fused into the stomach wall itself, immovable. I do not understand the principle and I do not care. I build 6 of them in a row, each a square meter, a 2x3 platform, and I haul every supply box up onto it. No more body blocking my boxes against the flood. A thought stops me cold. The small planting box never would build before, and now I wonder if the reason was simply that it had no foundation. My eyes light up, because it feels likely, and I start one right there on the platform. It works. The small planting box clicks into being on the wooden platform, and I could dance. I can finally feed myself in here. I take the watermelon seed I bought off that desperate man, the one I traded my raw krill meat for, and I press it into the soil of the planting box, telling myself I have no idea how long a watermelon takes to ripen in a place like this, but at least it is in the ground. Then I have nothing to do but stretch out on the dry platform and wait for the 3rd box, and stretching out on dry wood after 5 wet days is its own small heaven. 3 hours later, the 3rd box rides the surge in, and I wait for the water to drain before I drop down and open it. The system tells me I have obtained an Evolved Leviathan Accelerated Growth Food Guide, 1 fragment of 10. From the name I can guess the gist, that it records foods that make the Leviathan grow faster, but it is only a fragment, useless for now. So I store it away. I check the trade channel one more time, still no blueprints for krill, so I switch my last 7 pieces over to basic materials, and in minutes they all clear. 17 spiked krill traded today for 850 units of material in all, and after the foundation ate 120 wood and the planting box took 10 wood and 10 soil, my wood is down to 90 while my stone and soil sit comfortably over 200 each. Wood burns fast, I note, so I will be trading for more of it soon. The Leviathan goes still. Time to sleep. I only ate one loaf today, and with food no longer scarce, I decide to crack a can and live a little. I pull the ring, peel back the lid, and the sweet, greasy smell of yellow peaches floods up into my face. I lean in and breathe it deep, then tip the can back and let the syrup pour into my mouth, and the long-lost sweetness sweeps across my tongue, and I actually sigh aloud that it is good to be alive, which is not a thing I ever imagined a can of fruit pulling out of me. With no chopsticks, I wipe my fingers on my shirt and fish out half a peach and slide it into my mouth, the plump fruit filling my whole mouth, the flavor swelling as I chew, sweet threaded with a thin sourness, delicious all the way down. I finish the peach and drain the last of the syrup, then lick my lips at the empty tin, a little unsatisfied but unwilling to open a second. I put the can away, lie down on the platform, and drop straight into the deepest sleep I have had since I got here, and I dream of watermelons ripening, of biting into them in great mouthfuls. The tremor in the stomach wall wakes me. A new day. Sleeping dry on the platform walled off from the damp ground was the best rest I have managed in 5 days. The first thing I do is hurry to the planting box to check the watermelon seed, and the result flattens me, because after a whole night the seed has done nothing at all. I wonder if the watermelon in here grows at the same crawl as a watermelon on Earth, which would be a disaster since this is a survival world where food is already scarce, and any crop that's slow would starve a man dead long before harvest. Then a worse thought lands. There is no sunlight in here. Everything I do runs on the headlamp, and plants need light to grow, and if the seed will not sprout for lack of sun, then my whole grand farming dream collapses, because there is no way on Earth to get sunshine into the belly of a fish. I sink down onto the platform, deflated, a demotivated lump. For a while, the Leviathan begins its first feeding of the day, and the memory of the anchorhead worm jolts me upright. Farming dream or not, I do not want to die. I pull on my spiked helmet, crank the headlamp full, and retreat to the innermost edge of the platform, keeping a good 2 meters between me and the rising water so nothing can hook me with an anchor claw and drag me under. I sweep the beam over the surface again and again and find no large shadow moving below, and just as I start to think this feeding is clean, 2 points of light bloom in the water, round, fist-sized, paired like eyes, fixed dead on me from beneath the surface. A cold sweat breaks over me and I drop into a crouch, my back jammed against the stomach wall, putting myself in the blind spot of whatever is staring up at me. I curse under my breath, demanding to know what this is now, and I reach up to make sure the helmet is seated right, which steadies my nerves a fraction. I do not move. I will wait until the water drains, because in this world a creature in the water and a creature out of it are entirely different problems. And with the salt water gone, I will be able to see how big the thing with the fist-sized eyes truly is, and whether I can handle it. The wait stretches on, my forehead running with sweat, my body locked in that half-crouch, ready to spring the instant the thing strikes. The water finally drains away completely. I gather my nerve and creep to the platform's edge and shine the light down, and the monstrous thing I had built up in my mind is nowhere to be found. The glowing eyes turn out to be 2 glowing spheres, white-lit, fainter even than my headlamp, throwing maybe a meter of weak light. With no aggression in them at all, I jump down and walk to within 2 or 3 meters of the pair, asking myself if these are some kind of light bulb. I creep closer and prod one with the tip of my head spike. The orb rolls a few times, its glow fading, and I see now the needle-like mouth part on its underside and the 4 little tentacles it uses to grip. I back up fast in case it has a sting, but it shows no interest in me at all, just rights itself, latches its tentacles to the stomach wall, and lights back up to drink blood. I open the biological illustrations, and the system tells me about the sunlight orb bug, 10 centimeters long, 1 kilogram, a blood eater, a mild little glowing parasite that is not aggressive, and might be good for light. Cuter than the anchorhead worm at least, I think, looking at the pair of them, which are only 6 or 7 centimeters and so not yet grown. Then it hits me. Sunlight orb bug. Light. The watermelon seed. I am excited in a flash and I strip off my shirt, wrap it around my hand and scoop one of the orbs up. Off the floor, cut off from the wall, unable to feed, it dims again, its 4 short tentacles wriggling and its needle mouth probing the air for blood. After a moment it gives up, pulls the needle and the tentacles back into itself, and curls into a tight ball. Quite cute, I admit. I carry it up to the platform, over to the planting box, which sits right against the stomach wall, and I set the orb on the wall beside it. Sensing the flesh, it spreads its 4 tentacles, anchors, drives its needle in, and as it drinks it blazes to life, lighting the whole planting box. I murmur a prayer that this works, then fetch the second orb and set it on the wall beside the first, and with 2 of them the light over the box is bright enough. The Leviathan finishes and slides into digestion, and by then I have moved all the eaten seaweed into the digestion pool. Today was peaceful, no anchorhead worm, nothing hostile, only 5 spiked krill in the pile, which I kill and shell straight away. and I trade off the 5 leftover meats from yesterday for 250 units of basic material. While hauling, I turn up a third sunlight orb bug, so I have 3 now, and I set all 3 to lighting the watermelon seed, praying it sprouts. While I wait for the fish to digest, I open the World Exchange channel to see how everyone else is doing, and just as I expected, several hundred survivors hit spiked krill of their own today. The ones who traded me a pile of resources yesterday for krill they could now catch themselves are furious, some marching into the world channel to demand I refund what they paid. I refuse, of course, and I post a clean reason for the whole channel, that I had no idea anyone else would find krill, that when I encountered it none of you had, so selling it then was perfectly fair and there is no ground to ask for refunds. A few of them keep howling for their money back, but I stop answering, because the point of posting was never to satisfy those clowns. It was to give every other survivor a reasonable account so nobody starts thinking of me as a cheat and refuses to deal with me later. Soon enough, the channel loses interest in the refund crowd, because everyone who has actually met a spiked krill has discovered that killing one is brutal work. The shell tough, the head spike vicious, easy to slice yourself open on, nearly impossible to put down without a weapon. So they come asking me, the man who sold 50 yesterday, how I killed them. I do not hide it. I lay out my first kill and explain that the head spike doubles as the tool for peeling the shell, which is no real secret, just something anyone could reason out. And I tell them freely to earn a little goodwill. A friend in a strange place may matter later. Then someone in the channel proposes an idea, and reading it, I frown. The man has noticed that the Leviathan's stomach peristalsis is glacially slow while the digestion pool itself burns through seaweed fast, and the long delay is the peristalsis dragging the food to the pool. So his conjecture is that if a person hauled the seaweed into the pool themselves, skipping the slow peristalsis, they could speed the Leviathan's digestion, win it more active time, and maybe earn extra supply boxes. The channel lights up at once, people calling it brilliant, several preparing to test it on the spot, until another voice cuts in and stops them cold, warning of a fatal flaw, the oxygen. Many of them, he points out, have felt the air go thin and breathing go hard in the stretch between digestion finishing and the next box arriving, the discomfort only lifting when the fish swallows water. That, he says, proves the air in here only sustains a body at rest. Nowhere near enough for the work of moving seaweed, so nobody should try the trick unless they solve the oxygen problem first, or they will suffocate. A cold knot forms in my chest. My entire lead over everyone else is exactly this, hauling seaweed to speed the digestion and rake in extra boxes, and now a stranger has stumbled onto it, and a second stranger has flagged the very danger that almost killed me on day 1. It will not be long before someone pieces together my whole method, and the moment they do, my head start evaporates. I am about to be caught. I sit there turning it over, finding no way to hold my lead, when the day's first box rides in on the surge. The system tells me I have obtained a steel armor Leviathan extermination ticket, one of them, and I pick it up a golden card about the size of a 101 note, seemingly cast in gold. As I lift it, the notification unfolds in my mind, telling me that using the ticket sends me into the body of a fully grown steel armor Leviathan to clear every parasite from its stomach wall space, that once the task is done, I can return, and that everything I gather inside comes back with me. A game dungeon, basically. I do not use it. The notice was plain that I would have to wipe out a swarm of parasites, and right now, barely able to handle one anchorhead worm, I would be slaughtered. My own Leviathan is 4 days old and already crawling with things like the anchorhead worm, so the parasite count inside a grown steel armor Leviathan makes my scalp prickle just to imagine. I put the ticket away and keep reading the channel. Someone there says the oxygen problem must have a fix, that anyone who opens an oxygen blueprint can run the seaweed trick safely, and the instant I read it, my eyes go straight to the algae oxygen generator standing in the corner. Now I am torn 2 ways at once, wanting to sell the generator at a steep price, and not wanting the others moving seaweed any faster than they already are. I think it through, and land on a plan. I will sell the algae oxygen generator, but only for blueprints, because even if I hold it back, sooner or later someone opens their own oxygen blueprint, and mine loses all its value. And because once people have a goal and a hope, they will claw their way toward it by any means, and somebody will eventually copy my seaweed method anyway. The method is not hard to think of. The only thing protecting me is inertia. Everyone's still half assuming there is 1 box a day, nobody yet shaken out of that habit, but with profit dangling in front of them, the sharp ones will break the habit fast and solve the suffocation themselves. Selling the generator serves me there too, because it makes them stop thinking, since a man holding an algae oxygen generator no longer frets over air. But to make most of them stop, most of them have to be able to afford one, which means I cannot price the first unit out of reach, which sinks my blueprint plan. So I split it. The first unit goes cheap, and any repeat purchase costs a blueprint. The Oxygen 1 generator makes us thin, not enough on its own to support heavy movement, so anyone hauling seaweed fast will still risk suffocation and will want a second unit to close the gap. And with 3 boxes a day as the reward, trading a blueprint for that second generator is plainly worth it. I posted the World Exchange channel that my luck was good. that yesterday I happened to open an algae oxygen tank blueprint I thought was useless, and now find priceless. The channel erupts, half of it begging me to sell the blueprint and name my price, the other half jeering at those people that only a fool sells a blueprint, and telling me to just craft generators and sell those. Exactly as I planned. I am in no hurry, so I run a little hunger marketing first, telling them all not to worry, that I will not sell today, that I need 2 days to test the oxygen output before I put any up the day after tomorrow. Saying that guarantees the impatient ones private message me to jump the line, and to them I can quietly set the blueprint condition. Sure enough, the private messages flood in, and to the eager ones I name the blueprint price flat out. The crowd of tens of thousands collapses fast to 30-odd, and of those 30-odd, 8 are willing to trade a blueprint. 8 blueprints, I laugh, even though none are in my hands yet, because the Leviathan has finished feeding for the day, and without seaweed I cannot craft a single generator, so all of it has to wait until tomorrow. The second box arrives. The system tells me I have obtained sweet potato seeds, one of them, and I am delighted, already riding high on 8 incoming blueprints, and now handed a second crop. I build a fresh planting box, set it inside the glow of the sunlight orb bugs, sow the sweet potato, and water it with half a bottle of mineral water, and now I can only hope those 3 bugs really can stand in for the sun. The third box brings 1 loaf and 1 bottle, and I eat and drink right then, since I am hungry and well stocked. While I am eating, a private message comes in. The sender introduces herself as Jin Hun, the one who proposed the seaweed idea in the World Exchange channel, and asks to trade for an algae oxygen generator. Reading it, my good mood drains in an instant, because this is the very person who ended my lead, and she has the nerve to come trade with me. I laugh out of pure anger, but I keep it off the page and simply decline, telling her no trades today, because Jin Hun is clearly sharp, and I do not want her reading me. She offers a blueprint anyway, playing her strongest card, and I tell her even a blueprint will not do, that I have spent all my materials and cannot make any more. She presses, asking how many I made, and I tell her only 2, both needed for myself. She offers to supply the materials, and I tell her the key. 1 is seaweed, knowing full well every Leviathan has finished digesting, and not a strand of seaweed exists anywhere right now. Then she makes the argument that lands. She points out she was the one who proposed the seaweed method that helped me too, that her blueprint is a weapon and genuinely valuable, that I will not lose on the deal, and that being ahead of everyone in an unknown world is not the blessing it looks like, because the further out front you are, the closer danger gets, and one more person able to warn me and prepare alongside me is worth more than the lead. Reading it, I frown, because she is right. I was the first to meet a fatal thing in here, and on day 4 without the spiked helmet, I would already be dead. So I agree, and I trade her 1 algae oxygen generator for the blueprint. She thanks me and asks my name. I tell her Jumun, and she signs off saying it was a pleasure doing business, Mr. Ju. I give a wry smile because I am still 3 times the distance ahead of her, so real cooperation is probably a fantasy. When I open the blueprint, I freeze, because it is a fishbone blade blueprint, exactly as valuable as she said, needing a 1-meter fish spine I can plausibly get, worth more in these early days than any iron weapon that demands an iron ingot. The Leviathan settles to rest, and before I sleep I check the planting box one more time. It has sprouted. A bright green watermelon seedling stands in the soil, and I stare at it amazed. The sunlight orb bugs really can replace the sun, so from now on, I will collect every one I find. Then a worry creeps in, because these bugs are parasites feeding on a Leviathan's blood, and too many of them could harm the very creature my whole survival depends on. The Leviathan's healthy growth is the foundation of everything for me, and I will not trade that away for crops. So I set a cap, 10 sunlight orb bugs kept for farming, the rest killed. Farming matters, but it does not come before the fish. A new day, the 6th. I wake and go straight to the planting box, and the watermelon seedling that broke ground yesterday afternoon has shot up past 10 centimeters overnight. The sweet potato up to 5 or 6, and I am overjoyed, because it confirms what I had hoped, that crops here grow on a cycle of only a few days. I am already fantasizing about ripe watermelons and sweet potatoes a few days out, already tasting self-sufficiency. Then I check my stone, since today I need to craft 8 algae oxygen generators for the 8 blueprints, and I have well over 200 stone against the 10 each generator costs. More than enough. When the Leviathan begins to feed, I pull on the spiked helmet, then craft a spiked leg armor out of 8 krill shells and 10 cloth scraps and strap it on. Ever since the anchorhead worm, the feeding hours carry a low dread for me, the dark water like an abyss with monsters hiding in it. Always the sense that something is about to lunge out and take me. I do as I did yesterday, half crouched at the platform's deepest corner, the beam combing the black surface, and once I am sure nothing is stirring down there, I open the crafting interface and start mass-producing generators. There is no per batch limit, so I make 20 in one stretch, filling a fifth of the stomach wall space. 8 are for today's blueprints. The other 12 are for selling to other survivors tomorrow. Made ahead now because I am wary of drinking in too much seawater at once and cutting into the Leviathan's food supply. From here on, I will cap sales at 20 generators a day, a drop in the bucket against 100 million survivors. but there is no helping it because I cannot pour the Leviathan's food into satisfying strangers. In the end, I am doing all of this for myself, and I will not bleed my own interests dry to carry the rest of the world. The instant the Leviathan finishes eating, 8 private messages arrive. The 8 survivors who pledged blueprints yesterday. I crafted the 20 generators early for exactly this, so I trade without a flicker of hesitation, and in moments I hold 8 new blueprints and look them over. They are a spiked belt, spiked boots, spiked wrist guards, spiked groin guard, a poop scoop, a wooden shield, a wooden bed, and a compost bin. 4 of the 8 belong to the spiked armor set, which puts a smile on my face. I use all 8 at once and check what each one needs to build. The spiked belt wants 3 krill shells and 5 cloth pieces. The spiked boots 4 shells and 10 cloth. The spiked wrist guards 4 shells and 10 cloth. The spiked groin guards 6 shells and 10 cloth. I frown at the wrist guards because 4 shells is steep when I already wear a krill shell lashed to each forearm doing the same job for almost nothing. Still, what I rigged myself is crude, just shells tied on with cloth strips. Good enough to turn a glancing scratch but liable to fall apart under a real hit, so the proper wrist guards have their place. The other 4 are a poop scoop wanting 5 wood, which makes me laugh, since I have built no toilet and have nothing to scoop. A wooden shield wanting 5 wood, which I am glad of, because defensive gear makes me far more willing to gamble on that extermination ticket someday. A wooden bed wanting 10 wood, which I have no strong feelings about, since sleeping on a bed or on the platform is the same thing. And a compost bin wanting 10 wood, which catches my interest, because a compost bin might make fertilizer, and fertilizer is everything to my farming. I'd build the compost bin straight away, and 10 wood becomes a sealed wooden barrel a meter tall, and a meter across with its own lid. I look at it excited, picturing fertilized crops, then run face first into a wall, because I do not actually know how to make fertilizer. I know it takes feces or dead leaves and stems, and I have neither, and after racking my brain and getting nowhere, I give it up for now and go haul seaweed. Today's hauling is smooth. No attackers, no new creatures. 8 spiked krill for my trouble. A decent take. Counting up, I now hold 6 spiked armor blueprints, of which I have already crafted the helmet and the leg armor, and the remaining 4 pieces would cost 17 krill shells in total. Today's 8 shells plus the 2 left from yesterday make 10, still 7 short. I burn the 10 on the spiked groin guard and the spiked boots. The boots are nothing remarkable, long spiked boots with real weight to them. The groin guard, though, is less a guard than a kind of skirt of armor, wrapping the base of the thighs front and back, covering the vital ground completely. An important piece. I had only ever worn the helmet and leg armor and never felt the weight of the set, but with the groin guard and boots added, my body suddenly drags. Trouble, I realize. 4 pieces already feel heavy, and the spiked belt and spiked wrist guard still to come will only add more. I can still move in this, but it costs real effort, and I have not even collected the full set, with the all-important chest piece blueprint nowhere in my hands yet. I run the numbers. 1 krill shell weighs about 2 kilograms, and all the armor I have blueprints for needs 28 shells, 56 kilograms, which I work out to 112 pounds. And that startles me, because the figure does not even include the chest piece, which would push the whole set toward 150 pounds. I weigh only about 130. The armor outweighs me. There is no way I could wear the complete set and still move. So there is a strength requirement to it, I think. Opening my body attributes and looking at my pathetic strength of 8, and the hope of ever using that extermination ticket suddenly feels very far off. I figure I would need strength of at least 15, maybe 20, to wear the whole set and move freely, and I am sitting at 8, a gap of 7 points I have no idea how to close. Waiting for new creatures that raise strength when eaten is a faint hope, since I have been here 6 days and met only one such creature, the spiked krill, and even if I found another, it would never hand me 7 points at once. This frustrates me badly, because the others already know about the extra boxes from hauling seaweed and my lead is gone. And while my Leviathan will always swim farther, a survivor's growth comes down mostly to box luck, and I am not about to bet on being the luckiest man among 100 million. Then it clicks, and I open the attribute panel fast. A normal person's base is 10 across the board, and my strength has not even reached normal, which means I can raise it by training. Not in a day or two, since that takes long, steady work, but at least it is a goal, more reliable than praying for the right creature. The panel lists 4 values: intelligence, strength, constitution, and speed, which tells me eating creatures here can boost any of the 4, and no run of luck will ever feed me strength-only meals every time. So I start doing push-ups while I wait for the box, setting myself a goal of 100 today, beginning with 20, since I know my body cannot manage much. After only 5, my elbows make a strange grinding sound, as if bearing more than they should. And in the end, with everything I have, I scrape out 10 ugly half-formed push-ups. How did my body get this weak? I think not quite believing it, because in school 40 or 50 in a set was nothing, and now 10 nearly kills me. I tell myself to take it slow, that strength cannot be rushed, and only persistence builds it. So I do 10, rest, and start again. The seawater begins to churn, and I stop and stand on the platform to wait for the box. The eosphageal diaphragm opens and the water floods in and rises, and then something unseen knifes through it fast, throwing up a trail of splashes that scatter into spreading ripples. I retreat instinctively to the platform's inner edge and lower my body, the beam chasing the disturbance for a shape. This is supposed to be the box phase, not the feeding phase, so how is there a creature in the water? And my face goes grim, because if things can ride in during the box surge too, that is bad news. Within the 3 meters my light reaches, I catch it streaking under the surface at a blistering speed. Gone in a blink, the water churning, the thing slamming back and forth as if frantic. 5 or 6 centimeter waves rising, the slap of its tail against the water reaching my ears. As the water drains, the creature grows more frantic, thrashing, fighting to escape the shrinking space. The water recedes fully, and from the dark beyond my beam comes the unmistakable flopping of a fish stranded on the ground. I stand, willing to look now, because the thing never once moved toward me, only darted in panic, and from the flopping it is plainly something that cannot survive out of water. I drop off the platform and follow the sound, shining the light over, and a glare blinds me on the spot. Another creature that makes its own light. I think first, then doubt it, because it gave off nothing in the water and nothing in the dark my beam could not reach. Where is the light coming from, I wonder, raising a hand to shade my eyes and squinting, and I make out a meter-long band of brightness bouncing on the ground like a beached fish. I cannot square it, light when I shine on it but dark when I do not, so I twist the headlamp away to stop aiming straight at it, and in the spill of residual light I finally see it clearly. A fish, about a meter long, shaped like a shuttle, blinding under the beam only because its skin is so smooth it reflects the light whole. Once I know it is just a fish, I drop my guard entirely, since a fish out of water is no threat, but I do not move to grab it, because at a meter long and freshly beached it is full of fight, its tail cracking the floor with real force. I think of every anime where someone gets slapped across the face by a fishtail and decide to wait it out until the thing tires, then I turn away to find a box. The first box holds only 10 wood, 10 stone, and 10 sand, which I carry up to the platform, set in the materials store, and then go back to push-ups. About an hour on, the big fish finally runs out of strength and stops, and I jump down and go to it. Its mouth works open and shut, but out of water there is no oxygen for it, and it is slowly dying. I lift it easily, only 20 or 30 pounds, its skin smooth as a mirror. No, simply a mirror, reflecting my own face back at me clear as glass. The creatures here are something else, I think, looking at my reflection, and I open the biological illustrations. The system tells me about the mirror skin barracuda, a meter long, 10 to 15 kilograms, a plankton eater skin smooth as a mirror, shuttle-shaped, fantastically fast in the water like an arrow off a bow, able to leave a bruise at best and burst your organs at worst if it strikes you. Its flesh firm and chewy, its skin good for making a diving suit. I am glad all over again that I built the platform early and stayed out of the water, because if this mirror skin barracuda had clipped me underwater it would have been ugly, and a hit to the groin would have ended me outright. Edible meat means it probably raises an attribute, and that makes me anxious, because strength is what I need most and I am desperate for this fish to give it. So I set the mirror skin barracuda on the platform, make a show of bowing to it, and mutter for strength, strength, give me strength, then throw my arms up at the dark like some hilltop cultist before getting to work. The fish is already dead from too long out of the water, so I do not have to kill it, only skin it, and I hesitate, because the flawless mirror surface is intimidating and I have never gutted a fish in my life. I weighed 2 methods, slitting the belly like an ordinary fish, or wringing a cut behind the head and peeling the whole skin off intact, and I take the belly cut simply because I lack the skill and tools for the cleaner way. I have watched it done even if I have never done it, and the second method is beyond me right now. The mirror skin barracuda skin is tough, about on par with the anchorhead worm's body, though nothing like the krill shell, and my helmet can still cut it. I work slow and careful, since the skin makes a diving suit, and I will stockpile the materials whether or not I understand them yet. Slitting the whole belly takes half an hour, and then comes the peeling, which to my surprise goes far easier than I feared, the entire hide coming free in about 10 minutes with only some effort. I spread it out pleased, a perfect mirror returning my reflection, and I tuck it into a box. Then the meat. I cut off a piece with the helmet, and it is strange, translucent like krill meat but clearer still, almost crystal, throwing a silver shimmer under the light. I hesitate, then put it in my mouth, and chewing it I find no off taste but none of the krill's sweetness either, just bland, the flesh too firm like gnawing flavorless pork rind, frankly not good. But I want the attribute, so I force down piece after piece, and after a third of the fish the system finally chimes, which is a relief because I am nearly full. The barracuda is a meter long but slender, only 10 centimeters wide, so a third of it does not fill me, and the tasteless raw meat does not help. The system tells me I have consumed mirror skin barracuda for constitution +1 and speed +1, and I am stunned, then delighted, because it gave me 2 attributes at once. Not the strength I wanted, but 2 points is 2 points. I open the panel, intelligence 10, strength still 8, constitution now 10, speed 12, the system calling me a healthy and fast person. Healthy, it says, even though my strength has not reached normal, and I smile, figuring the healthy verdict rides on constitution alone, not the whole spread. I look at the remaining 2/3 of the fish, wondering if barracuda meat adds attributes once or many times, hoping for many, since even non-strength gains would do me good, but I have no way to keep eating right now, and will have to wait until night to find out. I store the rest and go back to exercising, and the push-ups come a touch easier this round, my form better even if the strain is the same, probably the extra point of constitution showing. About an hour later I finish the day's 100, and it is time for the Leviathan to swallow the second box. Now that I know creatures can ride in during the box phase, I am not careless anymore. The barracuda was harmless toward me, but the next thing might not be, so I strap on all 4 pieces of spiked armor, the weight no concern while I am only holding the platform on defense, dreading an ambush from the dark water. Only once the water drains and I can see what came in will I judge the threat and decide whether to shed the armor. As it happens, the box surge brings nothing, and after it recedes I strip off 3 pieces, keep the helmet, drop down, and open the second box. The system tells me I have obtained an Evolved Leviathan Accelerated Growth Food Guide fragment, 2 of 10 now. This guide again, I think, and it must matter to the Leviathan. I had ignored it before, riding high on my lead, but with that lead slipping, the guide that speeds the fish's growth looks suddenly important. So I decide to start hunting fragments on the World Exchange channel. Just as I am about to post the call for fragments, Gang Hado sends a string of private messages. He thanks me for the 3 spiked krill and the helmet from the day before, says he learned from me and traded those 3 krill for 6 loaves, 6 bottles, and some basic materials, so his food worries are gone for now. Then he says he just opened a box and got a recipe, and he sends it over, asking me to take it. The moment I read it, my eyes light up and I accept it once, because it is a fertilizer recipe. Perfectly timed. The low-level fertilizer recipe is made in a compost bin and needs 5 hay and 5 units of evolved Leviathan feces. And reading the second ingredient, my smile freezes, because I have the bin and the hay, but where am I supposed to find Leviathan feces, since the creature excretes outside its stomach? Then it comes to me that maybe the feces are in the digestion pool, and I remember the poop scoop blueprint, and the frozen smile thaws back into place. So that is what a poop scoop is for. I build it with 5 wood, and the blue light leaves a 3-meter wooden handle tipped with a 30-centimeter bucket, plainly meant for this. I drop 5 hay into the compost bin, then carry the scoop to the edge of the digestion pool and sink it into the pool of digestive fluid. The handle goes 2 meters down before it meets resistance, the feces I am guessing, so I grip with both hands and haul up a scoop full of green sludge, threaded with plant fiber. Leviathan feces, I figure, and I drag the loaded scoop to the bin, the 3-meter handle and full bucket heavy enough that pouring it in costs me real effort. The recipe wants 5 units, so counting 1 scoop as 1 unit I go back twice more, and with 3 scoops poured the materials are complete. Standing over the bin of feces and hay, the stench hits me full in the face, far worse up close than it was at the scoop's far end, and I grab the lid and slam it shut, wondering how long fertilizer takes to finish. Since this world hands out no timers for anything, no crop cycle, no fertilizer clock, no note on what attributes a given meat adds, leaving me to test everything blind. I tell Gang Hyoto the fertilizer recipe is genuinely useful to me and I cannot take it for nothing, and I send him an algae oxygen generator. I do not like owing favors, and if the recipe had been junk I would have accepted it as goodwill, but a fertilizer recipe is a godsend to my farming, so a generator for it is fair. He balks that a generator is too valuable, because he knows full well what it is worth, that with 1 he could haul seaweed, speed his Leviathan's digestion, and earn extra boxes. And he had only meant to shamelessly angle for 1 when I put them up for sale tomorrow, never expecting me to hand him 1 outright. I tell him it is fine, the recipe matters as much to me, a fair trade. He goes quiet, then says he does not know what to say, that back when he had no food, I was the only one willing to trade with him and saved his life, that afterward, I gave him extra krill and equipment outright, and that from now on he is following me, will hand me every blueprint he opens, and only asks to latch onto my leg. I do not take the whole offer, telling him that is not necessary, that if he is willing he can simply trade me his blueprints and recipes first. As the saying goes, you can know a face but not a heart, all the more in a world where we will never even meet, and though Gang Hado reads as a plain honest sort across all our talks, I keep a thread of caution. Still, if he truly means to give me his blueprints, I will not do him wrong. Before we close I remind him that if he hauls seaweed tomorrow, he should move a while and rest a while, because 1 generator's oxygen may not hold up under continuous work, and he agrees at once without prying further. On the whole, my read on Gang Hado is good, and his survival serves me too. I am about to post the fragment call again, when another private message lands. It is John Yon Myung, asking to trade an algae oxygen generator in advance, swearing he will not let me lose out, willing to put up a valuable blueprint. He talks as though I am the one getting the bargain, I think, smiling faintly, because while from my side I plainly am, from theirs. Under Jinho's seaweed conjecture, the generator is now worth no less than a blueprint, since blueprints come in all kinds, some useful and some not, like a wooden bed blueprint that does me no good. And against the brutal gap between supply and demand for generators right now, a wooden bed blueprint does not come close. I tell him I am sorry, but I only made 2 for lack of materials and need them both myself, so I cannot trade. He answers that he does not know which materials I am short on and will provide them if he has them. Other materials are fine, I tell him, but one of them is seaweed, and the Leviathan has already entered digestion with no seaweed left, so I genuinely cannot make more. Then he says, since I have 2, could I trade him 1 because his blueprint is very rare? This is the line I was waiting for, since I said 2 on purpose to let him know I have 1 to spare. That will not do, I tell him. I need it myself, playing hard to get. He presses, pointing out the Leviathan has finished feeding and there is no seaweed to haul anyway, so 1 generator is plenty for oxygen, and again insists his blueprint is rare. His harping on how special it is makes me curious, so I ask what kind it is, and tell him to show me the information. He stalls. Then forget it, I tell him, since if he will not even show the blueprint while calling it rare, he should keep the rare thing for himself. From his reaction I can guess the blueprint is nothing useful, but I do not much care whether it is useful, because as long as it is not a duplicate I will take it, the poop scoop being a fine example of junk turned handy. The reason I keep haggling is that Jung Young Myung is plainly the one getting the better end while dressing it up as me taking advantage. A tactic to inflate his blueprint and cozy up to me the old "see I let you win first so now we are friends, and you can let me win too" move, blowing the worthless up into the valuable, the small into the big, staking a little to win a lot, getting something for nothing. He caves, saying no, he will show me that it really is useful, and he sends the information, and I open it and almost lose it because this blueprint is not just useless, it is practically trash. A seaweed planting box, I read, speechless, wondering whether seaweed needs planting at all when the Leviathan eats tons of it a day. You are right, I tell him. The blueprint really is special. You should keep it. He sighs and admits the value does not match a generator, but says he has no other blueprint, only this one, and begs me to help him out, offering to throw in more if I feel cheated, though he has nothing but basic materials left. With the information already shown, he drops the boasting, since anyone can see the thing is worthless and more bragging would kill the deal outright. But your blueprint really is worthless, I tell him. He pleads again, reminding me he promised last time to trade with me first if he opened a blueprint, and look, he kept his word, and he will come to me first next time too. I let the sigh hang a beat, then tell him fine, since we know each other in this strange world, I will do him the favor, no extra materials needed. Just trade the blueprint. He thanks me effusively, calling me generous, swearing again to trade with me next time. I complete the trade and take the seaweed planting box blueprint, use it, drop it into the interface, and glance at the build cost, 20 stone and seawater, much like the algae oxygen generator plus an extra 10 stone. Useless for now, so I do not bother crafting it and go back to collecting fragments, posting that I am buying Evolved Leviathan Accelerated Growth Food Guide fragments at a negotiable price. The message stirs the survivors up, since I am selling generators tomorrow and every word I post is being watched, and they fall to debating what the fragment even is, most of them never having opened one, guessing from the name that it helps the Leviathan grow. I had thought a call across 100 million survivors would gather all 10 fragments fast, but after a few hours I have collected exactly one. Only one out of 100 million, I marvel, since I opened 2 myself and assumed they were common. Maybe my Leviathan's longer travels raised the odds of pulling one from a box, I think, which is the only explanation that fits. With nothing else to do, I wait for the day's 3rd box, and while waiting I go to check the compost bin, only to find the lid stuck fast, immovable no matter how I pull. After trying everything I realize that the fertilizer must be ready and the lid opens on its own when it is done, and my mood lifts, because I had been uneasy not knowing what finished fertilizer should look like, and now the worry is gone. The 3rd box arrives soon after, no creatures in the water this time, and I open it safely. The system tells me I have 3 iron ore. Ore again, I sigh, with no idea when these ores will ever be good for anything. About time, I think, and with the 3 boxes in hand, the Leviathan is sliding toward rest. So I take out the remaining 2/3 of the mirror skin barracuda meat and cut it into pieces to eat. Since the meat is tasteless, I do not bother savoring it. Just chew a few times and swallow, tearing through another 1/3 fast, and no attribute prompt comes. So like the spiked krill, it only gives attributes once, I think. Not surprised, only sorry to have wasted it. Looking at the last 1/3 of the barracuda meat, I decide to trade it off on the World Exchange channel for a blueprint, and I post that I have mirror skin barracuda meat that adds 1 constitution and 1 speed to be traded for a spiked breastplate blueprint. I do not know exactly how many pieces the spiked armor set has, but there is certainly a breastplate somewhere, and a fish that grants 2 attributes is rare enough that even someone meaning to keep the blueprint will have to weigh it against 2 points, since in the end leaning on outside gear is never as good as strengthening yourself. The moment I post the mirror skin barracuda offer, the World Exchange channel does exactly what it always does. Half of them gawking at the name as if they have never heard of such a fish. The rest deciding on the spot that I must be the protagonist of some novel with a cheat system bolted to my soul. They beg to cling to my leg. They swear I have been selling things nobody else has ever seen, and not one of them actually talks about the trade itself. I do not know whether to laugh or be annoyed, so I cut the whole circus off and tell them flatly to stop daydreaming about cheat systems, that this is not a novel, and that I have something practical to share instead. I tell them I'd built an algae oxygen generator today, tried hauling seaweed with it, and confirmed that it really does speed the Leviathan's digestion and win an extra supply box. This is the warm-up, of course, because tomorrow I start selling generators and I want the hunger built up before I open the stall. As expected, the announcement lands on the channel like a lightning strike, a wall of messages crashing in all at once. Some of them are stunned the seaweed method actually works. Some swear a person planted that rumor on purpose to get them all killed. And one paranoid soul spins the whole thing into a conspiracy, reasoning that most survivors are already short on food. That hauling seaweed burns strength, that the extra box is a lie meant to starve them faster, and that I must be in league with the woman who first proposed the method. The others shout him down, telling him he hears wind and calls it rain, that nobody here has any reason to scheme against a stranger they will never meet, and the argument eats itself in circles. I rub my forehead. It was good news, clean and simple, and they have twisted it into a murder plot. I am too tired to babysit them, so I leave the message standing, let the Leviathan slide into its rest, and lie down to sleep. The instant my back hits the wooden platform, a private message arrives, someone wanting to trade for the mirror skin barracuda meat. Finally, the spiked breastplate blueprint is in my hands, and I laugh out loud a few times in the dark. This is the keystone of the whole set, the piece that shields the entire upper body, every vital organ I have, and going without it has left me feeling exposed and cold the whole time. No real sense of safety. Counting up the day, I have done well, 12 blueprints and a fertilizer recipe all told. I stretch out flat on the platform, open the blueprint interface, and scroll through everything I have gathered these last few days, and the fishbone blade blueprint stops me cold. That is right. I shoot upright off the platform, go to the stacked supply boxes and pull out the silver fishbone I saved, the spine of the mirror skin barracuda. It is exactly 1 meter long, perfect for the blade. After all these days, I am finally about to have a real weapon, and I am grinning as I open the interface and tap craft. Blue light wraps the silver bone, and 10 odd seconds later it fades to reveal a blade of solid silver. The tailbone its handle, the spine its edge, the skull its tip, the point flared a little wider and the edge drawn a little narrower, a shape made for slashing. I swing it twice through the dark and it sits beautifully in my hand. Call me the Silver Light Swordsman, I announce to nobody, and my buried Chunibu soul erupts, striking pose after ridiculous pose, muttering flashing nonsense at the empty stomach. Thank God there is no one else in here, because I would die of shame. When I have finished embarrassing myself, I put the blade away and go check the seedlings. After a day's growth, both the watermelon and the sweet potato have started to vine, climbing fast, and I tell them they are coming along nicely. Then I try the compost bin lid, and it still will not budge, so I tell myself I will check again tomorrow. The day was a good one. Fertilizer is not urgent. The stomach wall shudders, and I wake into the 7th day. Today is a big day, and the World Exchange channel is already crawling with survivors debating what an algae oxygen generator should cost. One insists 50 basic materials sounds fair, and another tells him to wake up and stop dreaming. Someone warns it will be steep, maybe even blueprints, and the channel scoffs that nobody has blueprints to spare. One sharp soul does the math out loud, pointing out that the system counter in the corner reads 100 million survivors, and that even making one generator every second without eating or sleeping, I would need almost 3 years to supply them all. Another declares that if the price is 50 materials, he will weep and call me his foster father. If 200, he will call me generous. And if it is blueprints, sorry, he has an 8 in the morning class. I read it all, smile faintly, and close the channel. I am not worried they will curse me, because I never plan to gouge them. They are going to call me Big Shot before this is done. The Leviathan is only just stirring, with time yet before the feeding stage, so I check the melon and sweet potato vines, both of which have stretched noticeably longer overnight. Then I go to the compost bin and try the lid again, and this time it lifts off with no resistance at all. The instant it comes free, lumps of dark green sludge come flying out of the bin, and I flinch back fast as a notice unfolds in my mind, telling me I have obtained low-level fertilizer, 10 units, each able to shorten a crop's growth time by 10%, usable only once per crop. Joy floods through me at the sight of those cowpat lumps scattered across the platform, and I scoop them up by hand and tuck them into an empty supply box. 10% is not much, but it is far better than nothing, and good stuff is good stuff. After the 8 lumps go into the box and the box goes into storage, I carry the last 2 over to the small planting boxes. A single portion is about fist-sized, dark green, mud-textured, foul-smelling even now, though the composting has dulled the worst of the stench. I have no idea how to apply it, so I just press a lump down into the soil, and the moment it touches the dirt, it dissolves into dark green liquid like a snowball dropped into fire, soaking straight down into the earth. That counts as fertilizing then, and a convenient kind at that. I drop the second lump into the other box, then water both with a full bottle of mineral water each. The watermelon went in on the 4th day, the sweet potato on the 5th. Both started on half a bottle, and now on the 7th the vines have run long enough that half is not nearly enough. I look at the 2 empty plastic bottles in my hands, then at the 7 bottles of mineral water still left, and a worry stirs. Drinking water is not my problem anymore, since I could always trade generators for it. But if I keep pouring drinking water onto crops, my farm will never grow, because mineral water comes only from supply boxes and luck, never from large-scale trade. Fresh water is life, and everyone hoards their own before parting with a drop, so it simply will not flow through the market. Then I tell myself I am thinking too far ahead, because I have no room to build a 3rd planting box anyway. My platform is 6 square meters. The 2 planting boxes eat 2, the compost bin 1, the supply box is their share, and what remains is barely enough to sleep on. Even if I wanted to farm more, there is nowhere to put it, and widening the platform is out, because the stomach wall space is cramped to begin with, and a bigger platform would crowd the Leviathan's feeding. Grow up fast, my 180-ton baby, I mutter, then open the biological illustrations and turn to the first page to see whether the fish has grown. The panel tells me it is 7 days old, in its birth period, 35 meters long now, 200 tons an algae eater feeding by filter, and the system cheerfully sums it up as a 200-ton little baby. 5 meters in 6 days, almost exactly a meter a day, a growth rate that breaks every rule of common sense. Speed matters too, but the accelerated growth food guide fragments that would push it faster are painfully rare, and I hold only 3 with no way to gather more soon. Once the generators have sold for a few days and more people are pulling 3 boxes daily, the fragments should start surfacing, I tell myself, and right on cue the seawater begins to surge inside the eosphageal diaphragm. Feeding time. I strap on all 4 pieces of spiked armor, take up the 1-meter fishbone blade, and brace for whatever the dark water brings. The seawater rushes into the stomach wall space, and I crouch near the planting box in the glow of the sunlight orb bugs, and my headlamp chest and stomach drawn in, the blade held flat across my unarmored upper body. I wait, and seeing nothing move below the surface, I let myself relax a fraction, and open the blueprint interface to start a generator, only to find I have just 10 units of stone left. I had 210, and yesterday's 20 generators ate 200 of it. No matter. I pull 10 spiked krill meats from a supply box and take them to the trade channel for stone. The meat has lost value now that so many survivors meet spiked krill themselves, but 3 or 4 pounds of meat is still food, so 20 stone apiece is no trouble, and soon I have 200 stone in hand. With my 10 that makes enough for 21 generators in one stretch, and with the 9 left from yesterday I have 30 ready. They already fill a third of the stomach wall space, so I will have to sell them before the second feeding. Once the water drains and I am certain nothing hostile rode in, I open the channel and tell them the wait is over, that I am now selling algae oxygen generators, 20 units a day. The channel erupts at the number, demanding to know why only 20, calling it far too few, accusing me of choking the supply to drive the price up, accusing me of selling thin so nobody can catch me. I let them rage, then explain plainly that the generator runs on algae, that the seaweed the Leviathan eats is one of the materials, and that mass-producing them would devour the seaweed and stunt the very creature all of us depend on to survive. Then I asked them, if it were your own fish, would you be willing? That question shuts most of them up cold, and the few who keep howling for more I simply ignore, because the generator is mine, the initiative is mine, and if they push me into bleeding my own interests, I will just stop selling, and then not one of them gets a single unit. I promise them only that the price will be fair, and the channel quiets into anxious hope. Since I cannot raise the quantity, the best they can do is pray the price stays low, and I let them stew a moment before I answer. I tell them not to worry, that I am prepared to trade 1 blueprint per unit. The instant I say blueprint, the channel detonates, every one of them lining up to greet 18 generations of my ancestors, and I let it run for exactly the right number of seconds before I change my tune. I tell them that blueprints really are too scarce, too dependent on luck, that trading in blueprints is unfair, and that I have decided to take basic materials instead. They flip from cursing to cheering in a heartbeat, clamoring to know the price, and I sigh theatrically that life is hard for everyone and the quantity is already so small that to give them all a chance, the first generator will cost only 100 basic materials. What a great man, somebody howls, and the rest stampede in to buy, first come first served. I hold up a hand and lay out the conditions, that of the 100 materials, 40 must be wood, 30 stone, and the last 30 anything at all, with whole spiked krill shells accepted at 10 materials a shell. I need wood and stone badly right now, and I need shells worse, because the spiked breastplate alone takes 10, and the armor will surely wear and break, and the handful of krill the seaweed brings me each day will never keep pace. Buying shells straight off the other survivors is simply the fastest way to stock them. When can we trade? Somebody presses, and I tell them right now, listed openly on the trade channel for fairness, and that since it is the first day I will eat a little of my own profit and add 10 more units, 30 in all, the rest down to whoever is fastest. I list all 30 at once, and they exist on the World Trade Channel for a single second before, in the very next, every one of them vanishes. 30 generators gone in the blink of an eye, blue light flaring across my vision as a flood of basic materials drops in front of me. Good heavens. That was fast, I think, my finger still resting on the system's blue screen. My trading hand not even lowered, and the whole transaction already finished. The channel splits into the gloating and the gutted, the lucky ones crowing that mortals should tremble, the slow ones cursing speeds they call inhuman, swearing their hand was on the trade the instant it appeared, and it still slipped away. I watch the show a while, grinning, and get ready to count my haul. Then someone asks how many materials the second unit costs, and I tell them the second cannot be bought with materials at all, only with a blueprint, and only by private message. The difference is too big, they wail. It is not fair. And a chorus rises begging me to be a good man all the way down and keep the second unit at 100 materials too, that surely I still profit at that price. I read it with a sly little smile already forming. Fine, fine, I tell them. I will be good all the way. The second unit will also cost 100 materials. Just message me to trade. They cheer me as a saint, swearing they will cling to my thigh and that not even Jesus could pry them loose. And then I drop the second message. I sell only 20 generators a day, I remind them. So every repeat purchase eats into that 20 and shoves the people who still have none even further back. So those without one will simply have to bear it. That message lights the fuse, and 99% of the survivors who got nothing go straight up in flames. Now the ones who already have a generator turn on the rest, arguing that trading the second unit for a blueprint is perfectly reasonable, that one blueprint is honestly too cheap given the generator earns extra supply boxes, that the second should cost 2 blueprints to be fair, that the leeches morally squeezing me are worse than beasts. The haves and the have-nots fall to cursing each other across the channel, and I sit back and watch, the corner of my mouth crooking into the smug grin of a war god, letting the two sides tear into each other. Because so few people actually got the first generator, the brawl is hopelessly lopsided, and in the end, the price for the second unit holds at 1 blueprint after all. I accept it with a great show of reluctance, even declining 3 separate times, only to be stopped 3 times in a row by survivors too eager to let me back out, until at last I let myself be talked into it, exactly as planned. With the generator business settled, I sort the materials that came flooding back. 1,200 wood, 900 stone, 60 spiked krill shells, and 100 each of sand, soil, and dry grass. Holy cow, there is barely anywhere to put it all. I load the haul into empty supply boxes, 100 materials a box, and even with 19 boxes saved over 6 days, 3 a day plus the original, it is not enough to hold everything. Since stone will not wash away, I simply stop boxing it and pile it in the corner instead. The stone is only resting in the corner for now, because it eats too much room, and once today's 3 boxes are in, I will deal with it. But the thought of selling 20 generators every day from here on, of this same flood of materials arriving day after day, gives me a real headache, because there is nowhere to store it. I tell myself I can stuff the overflow into empty boxes tomorrow, but that is a patch, not a cure, since the boxes have their own bulk, each one roughly the size of a shoebox, and stacked high enough they too will leave me no room. The stomach wall space is just too small. Later, I decide. If it comes to it, I will pour all the excess materials into metal ore on the trade channel, 10 materials and ore. And though ore is useless to me now, it will surely be vital later, so hoarding it is no loss. Between the trading and the sorting, I have no time to haul the seaweed from the first feeding, so I leave it for the second feeding and move it all together. Today I traded 60 krill shells, so I burn 10 shells and 20 cloth pieces and craft the spiked breastplate at last. Holy cow, it is heavy. I heft it in both hands, 40 caddies at least, but heavy or not it goes on because it shields the body. Once it is strapped fully on, I feel my whole frame sag under the weight, exhausted just standing there. 5 pieces of armor on me now. Helmet, breastplate, groin guard, leg armor, boots. 124 caddies of spiked metal all told. I can still barely move, but every step drains the strength out of me faster than the last. So heavy I groan, and I just lie down flat on the platform to conserve what I have, planning to haul myself upright and crouch when the second feeding starts. A few minutes later, the Leviathan begins to feed. I try to sit up from flat on my back and cannot. My upper body too heavy and my untrained stomach muscles unable to bear the load, so I have to brace with both hands and grind my way slowly into a crouch. Besides push-ups, I think, I'd better start scheduling sit-ups too, gripping the blade and bracing as the osphageal diaphragm opens and the seawater pours in. I scan the surface with my headlamp, fully alert, and then the still water heaves and a flesh-colored ribbon-shaped body surfaces under my beam, and my heart lurches. Anchorhead worm. Fear floods up my throat, my blade hand trembling, because this thing nearly killed me once and the memory still makes my skin crawl. But the headlamp is on this time, no sudden blackness swallowing my sight, and this is my second anchorhead worm, with a kill already behind me, so though I am afraid, my body is not frozen the way it was that first night. I stay crouched at the platform's edge, blade held flat before me, silent, waiting for the water to drain. The surface climbs slowly until it is almost level with the platform. Then the eosphageal diaphragm shuts. The feeding done, the water about to recede. I wipe the sweat off my brow with the back of my hand, my strength bleeding away fast under the brutal weight of the armor and the long crouch. And the instant my arm comes down, the calm water erupts. 4 anchor-shaped claws come hurtling up over the platform with a savage mouthpart between them, and clamp down hard on my head. I never expected it to strike at that exact moment, and weighed down by the full armor I have no time to rise or react before my skull is locked in those 4 claws. The shock passes fast though, because this is the same attack as last time, aimed at the head, and the 3 spikes atop my helmet catch the mouth part again, and hold it off my skull. I do not hesitate. I surge to my feet, swing the fishbone blade, and drive it deep into the worm's tentacle of a body, the blade biting through half its girth in a single stroke, scarlet blood gushing, the head clamped on my helmet shrieking. Unmoved, I draw back to swing again and sever it clean. Then the water explodes a second time, and my heart drops. The blade falters mid-swing as a bad feeling grips me, and before I can even angle the headlamp to look, something clamps onto my thigh and yanks. I am already locked in a stalemate with the worm on my head, my whole attention up there, and the pull from below takes my balance out from under me completely. I crash down onto the platform, 254 caddies of armor and body together, slamming into the wood with a dull boom. The thing on my leg wants to drag me into the water and cannot, because I am too heavy to shift, but then the worm clamped on my head starts hauling too. One pulling from above and one from below, and stretched flat between them I am dragged off the platform and into the water. I plunge in horizontal, water bursting up around me, waves rolling outward. I had braced and held my breath as I fell so I would not choke, but in the chaos I never got a real lungful, and my heart is slamming as the oxygen in me burns down fast, the first edge of suffocation already creeping in. With my head and my leg both pinned and the water nearly a meter deep, I cannot reach the surface at all. The suffocation tightens, and pinned in that hopeless dark I throw everything I have into one last gamble, groping with my left hand until I find the worm clamped on my head, then sawing at it with the blade in my right. If I can kill the one holding my head fast enough, I will have a chance to surface. I cut at it desperately, and maybe the worm was already too badly wounded, because after only 2 more strokes it releases my head. Overjoyed, the will to live driving me, I throw the blade aside, flail with both arms, and slowly drag my body up to the surface. I gulp the stale air in great heaving breaths, my whole torso swelling and shrinking with the effort. And then before I can take more than a few, the worm still clamped on my leg drags me back under. Caught flat-footed, I swallow several mouthfuls of seawater, my lungs burning and miserable, and I thrash and claw toward the surface only to be hauled down again the moment I cough. I bob up and down, arms beating to stay afloat, and the only mercy is that the worm on my thigh lacks the strength to drag me, continuously, dragging me a stretch underwater then pausing to gather itself, each pause buying me a breath. It is an anchorhead worm too, I realize, and the realization steadies me, because as long as the other one does not return, I can outlast this one until the water drains and the counterattack is mine. The truth is, with this spiked armor on, the anchorhead worm cannot hurt me at all. Not because the armor is hard, but because the spikes covering it completely foul the worm's grip. The only thing killing me is the water and the lack of air. The level begins to fall, and I find the rhythm of the worm's pulls, holding my breath just before each drag and surfacing to breathe the instant it tires. As the water sinks lower, the worm's pulling weakens, until without the water to buoy it, it can no longer drag me at all. And after the long underwater struggle, it has nothing left, though its anchor claws stay locked stubbornly on my thigh. I shine the headlamp down and see the spikes on my leg armor are blocking its mouthpart from ever reaching my skin, and that puts my mind fully at ease. The moment safety registers, a crushing exhaustion drops over me, every muscle and bone screaming, and my body slumps to the ground with no strength to rise. Thrashing in heavy armor through deep water for that long, only adrenaline kept me moving at all. And now that the drowning threat is gone, my eyelids are lead and sleep is dragging me down hard. I rip off my helmet and slap myself across the face as hard as I can. The blow stings fiercely and the burn snaps a little clarity back into me. So I jam the helmet back on and swing the headlamp around, hunting the worm I wounded. And the moment the beam finds it, I am wide awake because the injured anchorhead worm is lying on the floor drinking the Leviathan's blood. Holy crap. I do not know where the strength comes from, but I scramble up, find the fishbone blade I dropped while drowning, and hack the worm on my leg apart in a few quick cuts, then close on the blood-drinking one and chop it dead too. A sunlight orb bug is small enough that a little blood is fine, I tell the severed head, leveling the blade at it, but a thing your size sucking blood is not something I will allow. I carefully pry the anchor claws loose from the stomach wall, and the little barbs leave only shallow scratches, nothing serious, which eases me. Then I see blood welling up from the wall, and it is not the worm's. With the worm's whole head removed, a round wound the size of a tennis ball has opened in the stomach wall where its circular mouthpart bit in. I kick the worm's head away in fury, then stare at the steady bleeding, anxious, because the Leviathan matters more to me than anything and nothing can be allowed to go wrong with it. I have no tool to stop the bleeding, and a medical bandage could never wrap around a stomach wall. The sunlight orb bug. The idea hits all at once, and I strip off the breastplate, climb onto the platform, and grab one of the bugs. I press it over the blood hole and pray, and its 4 little tentacles spread and grip the wall around the wound, sealing the hole shut completely. It worked, I breathe, delighted, because small as the wound is to a creature this vast, I live inside its stomach and I have the means to close it, so of course I will. With the crisis past, the exhaustion crashes back over me. but I cannot rest yet, because the feeding phase is not over. With my last reserves, I drag the breastplate back onto the platform and strap it on, because whatever else, the body must stay armored. Heavy as the set is, the proof is in the last hour. Then I came through 2 anchorhead worms unharmed and killed them both, and the worth of the spiked armor speaks for itself. I make a decision too. From now on, during the feeding, I will stop watching the water. The near drowning taught me something obvious. Why was I watching the surface at all? It serves no purpose. I can simply hide and wait through the whole stretch while the water floods in and recedes, and only once it is drained will I check whether anything came in. That way, with no water to drown in, even if a creature does attack me, it cannot drag me under to thrash for my life. And as for where to hide, the answer is the algae oxygen generator, that block of stone, the same one that shielded me from the worm's underwater strike before. I only have to move it onto the platform and stand it at the edge like a wall, and it will block any attack rising out of the water. I wonder, while I am at it, whether there is a house blueprint anywhere, because a house I could simply shut myself inside the instant the seawater surges would be safer still. Turning the idea over, I use the system interface to lift the generator up from below the platform and set it at the platform's edge, exactly as I pictured. Because Jin-hoon traded for a generator in advance, I have only the one left now, and one would have been enough to haul seaweed through the feeding, except that I am wrung out and have no strength left to haul anything, and the feeding phase is not finished, with hostile creatures liable to come in at any moment. So I will wait until the feeding is fully over before I start. I cannot sleep, I yawn over and over, groggy to the bone, pinching my thigh hard with no real effect. In the end, I decide a can of fruit might put a little energy back into me, and I crack open a can of oranges, small segments swimming in juice, and finding the segments awkward to fish out, I just drink the juice. The sweet-sour rush wakes me a little, so I sip it slow, nursing the can to keep the sleepiness off rather than draining it at once. Soon the Leviathan feeds again, the seawater surging in, and I hide behind the generator and build a second one. The two of them stand side by side at the platform's edge now, crushing my sleeping room badly. I had only 2 square meters to sleep on out of the 6, and with 2 generators planted there I am down to 1, genuinely cramped. But I no longer care what is in the water. I crouch behind the stone and finish my oranges, and stay hidden until the entire feeding is done, and nothing comes for me. The can finished and my energy back up. I poke my head out from behind the generator and sweep the beam around, finding no large creatures. And through the whole feeding I heard no sounds of anything moving either, so nothing rode in on the later surges. Still, to be safe, I armor up, drop off the platform, and walk the seaweed piles back and forth several times, and only once I am sure nothing hostile is hiding in them do I strip the heavy armor off and start hauling. 2 hours later, the seaweed is finally all moved, longer than usual today, because being dragged into the water by 2 worms drained me badly, and I never got to rest properly, my body running on empty the whole time. Finally I can rest, I think, sprawling on the half-meter strip of platform I have left, 2 meters long, utterly spent. About 3 hours of rest lie ahead, but I dare not sleep, since I have no alarm and no way to wake myself, and the box phase is no longer safe, so if a dangerous creature came while I slept, I would never even know how I died. To keep myself awake, I open the World Exchange channel, and the first thing I see is a wall of people cursing me. "Refund," they scream, demanding their materials back, asking if I have any shame. Reading through, I piece it together. The complaints are all the same, that they traded for a generator, hauled seaweed, and nearly suffocated to death anyway. That the algae oxygen generator is useless. That I am a liar who promised they would never want for air. That none of these so-called big shots are honest. That I deliberately harmed them, and that I must return their 100 materials and pay compensation on top. What is wrong with them, I think, genuinely baffled at being cursed for nothing. They are spoiled rotten. I post that anyone who wants to return a generator can private message me and I will refund the 100 materials in full. I am not the least bit rattled, because the generator is priceless right now, and if a few fools want to hand theirs back, I will gladly take it. And I do not believe everyone out there is stupid. 10 people ask to return them, and I refund all 10 without a word of complaint, then quietly add those 10 to a blacklist barred from buying generators ever again. Then I relist 10 generators on the trade channel at 100 materials each, first come first served, and announce it on the channel. Only 10 people returned them, the channel jeers. Are the other 20 too dumb to know they were cheated? And someone scoffs that I have the nerve to relist after being exposed, as if anyone would still fall for it. The next second proves them wrong, because the instant the 10 generators appear on the trade channel they are gone. All 10 snatched up. There really are fools still buying, the returners marvel. Telling each other it proves the saying that there are so many scammers because there are even more fools, that they took the hit for everyone and people are still walking into it. I watch them clamor for refunds and make no move to stop them, treating the whole thing like a clown show. What astonishes me is that not one person points out the obvious, that without the generator they would have suffocated to death already instead of standing here screaming for their money back. And through the trade records I notice something sharper, that one of the loudest refund demanders just bought a generator off the trade channel, a name not on my 10-person blacklist, which means he never owned one before. He whipped up the refund crowd on purpose, urged them to hand theirs back, and then in the confusion he manufactured, quietly bought one for himself. My goodness, I think this world is full of deceit. I watch the channel and wait for the first box of the day. Nearly 3 hours pass, and my body has mostly recovered, and once the water drains with no creatures riding the box in, I drop down and open it. Bread and mineral water, food and water, and I put them away without enthusiasm and climb back up to wait for the second box. While I wait, a private message comes in, and it is Jin Hun. She tells me she wants to trade for some things, and I cut straight to it, telling her the second generator must be traded with a blueprint. But my first was also a blueprint, she points out, and I tell her she cannot frame it that way, that she chose to trade a blueprint to get her generator early, that I never asked for it. Generous as ever, I add that I am no cunning merchant, so I will not even count her first one as a first, and she is free to buy one for 100 materials on the trade channel like anyone else. Mr. Ju, she replies, you truly are a great philanthropist, and the sarcasm is thick enough to chew. She is mocking me, but I do not care, because the initiative is mine, take it or leave it. Then she drops the act and says the real reason she messaged me is that she came across something good she thinks I might need, and an item description follows. I open it. Golden silk fruit, it reads. The seed of golden silk seaweed, strength +5 on consumption. I suck in a breath. 5 points of strength is exactly what I am desperate for. I ask where she found it, tell her it looks valuable, and offer a generator for it, and she answers that since I am not interested, she will find another buyer. Oh, come on, I tell her, if you are not happy, say so. Just tell me what you want, dropping the pretense, because she is plainly no fool, and there is no point playing coy. She names her price, and it is breathtaking. 20 algae oxygen generators, a full set of spiked krill shell armor, and her own fishbone blade blueprint back. Take your golden silk fruit and kindly see yourself out. I shoot back, laughing in pure disbelief. Are you here for wholesale? 20 generators, a full set of armor, and her blueprint returned on top. The sheer nerve of it, a lion opening its mouth as wide as it will go. Then 18 generators, she counters the armor, plus my blueprint back, and I refuse to keep haggling at that altitude. Miss Jin, I tell her, we are both smart people. My past trades have been fair, which is surely why you came to me at all. I will not let you lose out. 10 generators, the armor too, and I will even craft you a fishbone blade, but the blueprint is impossible. If you want a blueprint, you know what a generator is worth, so trade for one yourself. That is my sincerity, and if it is not enough, find someone else. She circles back, saying she sees my sincerity, but her blueprint is still valuable and she wants something more in its place, and I cut her off cold. Miss Jin thinks she is clever, so she treats others like fools. The fishbone blade blueprint is not yours. It is mine. You traded it away willingly, and now you regret it and want a markup. That will not do. She backpedals, insisting she is not raising the price, only that my terms feel a little thin, and she hopes I can add a little. Then what else do you want, I ask, because the golden silk fruit truly does matter to me, and as long as she is not gouging, I can give a little more. What other blueprints do you have? She asks. Could you list them so I can see if anything suits me? Trading blueprints is impossible, I repeat, and she says she does not want the blueprints, only to see what they can build. I frown, because I read it for what it is. She wants to map my assets. Blueprints build things, and knowing every blueprint a person holds is enough to estimate how far they have developed. And holding the algae oxygen tank blueprint, I am without question the fastest developing survivor alive right now. I tell her flatly that the types of my blueprints are off the table, but that I will add 2 particularly important things instead. What things, she asks, her little scheme caught and abandoned, curiosity taking its place. A wooden platform, I tell her. 1 meter high, 1 square meter, and I will give you 2, and from now on you will never soak in seawater again and can sleep up on it instead of on the damp ground. Her reply comes back bright, because these are exactly the good things she did not know she needed. Inside the Leviathan there is no real danger now, or rather it is very safe, with nothing to fear but the odd spiked krill while hauling seaweed. With danger gone and food roughly solved, the last thing left to chase is comfort, and soaking half your body in seawater every day then sleeping on wet ground is the opposite of comfort, and the platform is the key to all of it. Mr. Ju is very sincere. She sends, a pleasure trading, and I ask how she wants to do it. Listed on the trade channel, she says, and I push for a private trade instead, since I plainly do not have 10 spare generators on hand at the moment. What I mean, I tell her, is that I hope she will trade the golden silk fruit to me in advance, and I will make up the rest of the goods after. Mr. Ju is joking, she replies, and I tell her I am not, that I know she fears I will go back on my word, but my trades these past days should show her I am trustworthy. This fruit matters to me, and the sooner I have it the better, so I will trade her a full set of spiked armor and 2 platforms first, and supply the rest as fast as I can. Can the fishbone blade not be crafted now either? She asks, and I tell her the blade needs a 1 meter fish spine, and she knows how rare that is. She weighs the early trade and finally agrees, telling me she has been watching me a while, and that shrewd merchant or not, my trades run fair. Add 2 more generators, she says, and I will agree to hand over the fruit early. Done, I tell her. 12 units total. Then I craft the breastplate, leg armor, boots, groin guard, bracers, helmet, and belt all at once. 38 krill shells gone. 7 pieces of spiked equipment in 2 platforms, and I send the trade and take the golden silk fruit from her hands. I hope you keep your promise, she sends, and I tell her not to worry, that a person needs credibility to profit alongside others. And I understand that well. The trade done, I look at the golden silk fruit in my palm with open joy. The thing that delights me is not the 5 points of strength, it is the line in the description naming it the seed of golden silk seaweed. The instant I read that I could barely contain myself. And the only reason I dragged the haggling with the sharp-eyed Jin Hoon out so long was to keep her from noticing anything strange. It turns out every blueprint that comes out of a material box is useful. I think it is only ever a matter of the right time, and I open the interface, turn to the seaweed planting box blueprint, and my smile spreads wide. Build. I tap. No hesitation. The box costs 20 stone, and I have a mountain of it in the corner. Then the system does nothing, and I check the blueprint again. Right. It needs seawater too, so I will have to wait for the second material box to build it. I tuck the golden silk fruit away carefully. Jin Hoon never said how she got it, but the description names it the seed of golden silk seaweed, which means she encountered golden silk seaweed somewhere. She had only the one generator before, hauling slowly, and from the timing of her message, it was a while after she finished her hauling, so the seaweed did not come from a box. It was a special variety she happened to run into. When it comes to luck, I think, I am simply an unlucky man. With nothing else to do, I lie back and wait for the second box. In 2 or 3 hours on the eosphageal diaphragm opens and the water pours in, the second box arriving with creatures in the water this time. I hide behind the generator and craft the seaweed planting box. And after the water drains, I hear the familiar wet flopping. Shine the light over, and there it is. A band of mirror-bright skin slapping the floor. Mirror skin barracuda. Knowing that is all it was, I relax and drop off the platform to inspect the box I just built. The seaweed planting box turns out to be a copy of the generator, only twice the size, a stone trough a meter on every side, brimful of seawater with a heap of small pebbles at the bottom. I am confused at first, since the recipe called for no soil, until I see the pebbles and understand they are the planting bed. I dig a little pit in them, set the golden silk fruit gently down, and cover it back over with pebbles. I wonder how long golden silk seaweed takes to mature, and fruit, I think. And given a fruit that grants 5 points of strength, the growth period should be long. Longer than the watermelon or the sweet potato at least. Thinking of those, I think of the low-level fertilizer I just made, but I do not know whether it works on golden silk seaweed, so I decide to wait until the fruit sprouts. The fruit planted, I find today's second box and open it. The system tells me I have obtained an equipment slot, 1 unit, and the word stops me a beat, before a prompt appears on the character panel. I open it and find a blue box beside the attributes. An equipment slot able to store 1 piece of equipment or 1 weapon. I tap it, the function unfolds in my mind, and I slot the breastplate in. Blue light flashing as the armor vanishes into the box. And then with a single thought, the breastplate appears on my body. Good stuff. I have known about equipment slots for over 10 years as a gamer, but I never expected one to work here, in the flesh, and it catches me off guard in the best way. 1 slot holds only 1 piece, and only equipment, no food, water, or materials, weapons and armor alone. It can clearly be collected more than once though, and with 7 pieces of spiked armor plus the fishbone blade I have 8 pieces of gear, so a single slot is barely useful. I will need many. I play with the slot a while, then process the mirror skin barracuda, cutting the meat into 3 portions and listing them on the trade channel for equipment slots. Low odds of any taker but worth a try. The bone I craft into a fishbone blade, then trade my used blade to Jin Hoon and keep the fresh one for myself. You sold mirror skin barracuda meat before. Jin Hoon messages the moment the blade trade clears. The kind that adds a point of constitution and a point of speed, yes. Yes, I tell her. Do you want it? She does, and asks the price, and I tell her, 2 generators. Mr. Ju never lets anyone catch a break, does he, she sends. And I fire back that she has hardly come out behind. That golden silk fruit gives 5 strength and she wanted a pile of my goods for it. While mirror skin barracuda meat gives 2 points and I ask only 2 generators. So where exactly did I take advantage? Can strength really be measured the same as the other stats, she counters, then drops it, saying never mind the 2 generators, just give her 1 portion of the meat. Gleefully I pull a portion off the trade channel and send it over, because every mouthful I keep out of the stranger's hands is a mouthful the Leviathan's food is spared. 2 boxes worth of rest has nearly restored me, and I still have not done today's 100 push-ups, and I am not about to abandon the plan I set yesterday, so I spend the rest of the stretch grinding them out. With the 100 done, it is nearly time for the 3rd box, and I glance at the anchor headworm corpses heaped in the corner. They are inedible and they eat up space, so I take the fishbone blade, chop them into small segments, and throw them into the digestion pool to be processed. The 3rd box arrives soon after, the water calm, nothing riding in, and once it drains, I open it. The system tells me I have obtained a storage cabinet blueprint, and after a stunned beat the joy crashes over me. Heaven is helping me, I think. I was just losing sleep over where to put all the materials I traded for, and now a storage cabinet drops straight into my lap. I use the blueprint and check the cost. 20 wood, hardly anything, and I tap craft. 20 units of wood lift out of the supply box, turn to blue light, and form a wooden cabinet, 2 meters tall and 1 wide in the air. By the description, it holds 100 slots inside, each slot stacking 100 materials, 10,000 basic materials, in one cabinet. And though I have only 3,000 odd materials, not even half its capacity, the real gift is that it eats just 1 square meter of floor and swallows everything. I set the cabinet down and start loading the 900 stone from the corner into it, then transfer everything stored across the supply boxes after that. Half an hour later, all 22 boxes are emptied into the cabinet. The boxes themselves now useless, so I list 10 on the trade channel and dump the other 12 into the digestion pool as trash. I do not list all 22 at once because that would announce I have been pulling 3 boxes a day since the very first day, and blow my secret wide open. I could claim I traded for them, but once the seed of suspicion is planted, it draws extra eyes, and that is never good. Human nature is greedy, and though no survivor can reach another now, what about later? People do not fear scarcity, they fear unfairness, and the day conflicts arise, I will be the first target every mob looks for. I price the 10 boxes low, 10 materials each, because everyone already has boxes, and most people cannot even fill their own storage, so few have any reason to buy more. The only people who will want them are those drowning in basic materials they cannot store, which is the other reason I am selling, to find out who is developing fast, since a person who needs more boxes must have something they sell long-term to rake in all those materials. Before long, someone buys, and buys all 10 at once. The avatar is unfamiliar, no one I have dealt with, so I browse the trade channel to see what he is selling. Filtered freshwater, 10 materials a unit. My eyes widen because freshwater is a business that will never run dry, and a small jealous pang stirs in me that I never got a water filtering method, until I read the full description and the jealousy evaporates. Filtered freshwater obtained through simple filtration of urine, safe to drink in small amounts. So it is filtered urine. Simply filtered at that, and I had pictured filtered seawater. Then again, where would anyone find the materials to filter seawater or urine properly right now? I had meant to ask whether he would sell the method, and I dropped the idea on the spot. Looking at his buy orders, he is purchasing urine in bulk. Something hidden in all this dawns on me, which is that most survivors in this world are having a genuinely brutal time of it. That filtered urine water trades for the very basic materials people cannot fit into their boxes, which shows just how many of them are short on water. Then I tell myself it is none of my concern, that I am hardly living easy myself, attacked by 2 anchorhead worms today and nearly drowned, scraping along, just not worrying about food and drink. Then a thought lands. This water should not be drunk in quantity, but I can water the watermelon and sweet potatoes with it and save my bottled water. So I spend 100 materials on 10 bottles of filtered fresh water at once. The melon and sweet potato leaves have filled their whole boxes now, and the bigger they grow, the thirstier they get, and this filtered water solves it exactly. I pour a bottle into each box and leave the other 8 beside them, rather than storing them, mainly because they sit in ordinary mineral water bottles, and I am afraid that one day, on some absent-minded impulse, I will crack one open and drink it as mineral water, and that would be truly unpleasant. The 8th day, the Leviathan begins to move, and the shudder of the stomach wall wakes me, and the moment I sit up I ache all over. I rise slowly and stretch out the soreness, because thrashing through the water in over 100 caddies of spiked armor yesterday had every muscle in my body working overtime, and it would be stranger if I were not sore. Dangerous as it was, I think with a wry smile flailing in the water under heavy armor counts as a workout too. Soreness worked loose. I go straight to the seaweed planting box, leaning over the seawater-filled trough with real anticipation, hoping to see the golden silk fruit sprout. There is nothing. I am a little let down, but not surprised, because a fruit that grants 5 points of strength must take longer than ordinary plants to grow. With no progress there, I go check the watermelon and sweet potatoes I look at every single day, and after a night the vines have completely filled their small boxes. And in all that green there is a touch of yellow. It is blooming. I drop into a crouch, push the leaves aside with my hand, and there it is, a tiny 5-petaled yellow flower among the watermelon vines. Blooming this fast, I think with a hopeful grin, it cannot be long now before I am eating watermelon. I reach into the sweet potato vines after, but find no flowers there. The sweet potato went in a day after the watermelon, so it should bloom tomorrow, I reason. Unless sweet potatoes simply do not flower at all. As for pollination, the matter of whether these crops even need it to fruit, I dismiss it outright, because a watermelon's natural growth of several months has been compressed into a handful of days here, so the pollination must have been folded into that too. Crops checked. I eat a piece of bread and half a bottle of water for breakfast. I am on 2 meals a day now, morning and afternoon, skipping noon, since I haul seaweed in the morning and the afternoon brings little to do, so I burn little energy and need no midday meal. I have no shortage of materials or food, and even if my stores ran out I could trade on the channel, so 3 meals would be no trouble. The real reason I skip one is partly thrift, but mostly that I have eaten bread for 7 or 8 days straight and I am sick to death of it, and 3 meals of bread a day in a row is more than I can stomach. When will the food get better, I mutter, longing now for something salty. Because after so many days, both my body's need for salt and my tongue's craving for it keep dragging up memories of the good meals I used to eat. My mouth waters at the thought. Humans really are insatiable, I think, remembering the days I was starving and asked for nothing but a full belly. And now that my belly is full, I have already moved on to wanting it full of good things. The surge of seawater in the eosphageal diaphragm cuts the daydream short. Feeding time. I duck behind the generator, pull the helmet on one-handed, then summon the leg armor straight out of the equipment slot. And with the thought it appears on my legs, the whole business of strapping it on skipped. The groin guard and boots go on the same way, while the breastplate, the heaviest piece, I leave stored in the slot to save my strength, ready to flash onto my body with a single thought. The instant danger comes. I grip the fishbone blade and listen to the water, and hearing nothing, I open the interface and start crafting 20 generators. As I craft, I open the World Exchange channel and find a crowd already messaging, clamoring for me to list the generators. What is wrong with you all? The few who returned theirs yesterday cut in. Did we not all agree the generators are useless? Are you really racing to be fooled? A bunch of idiots. Their warnings are ignored completely, drowned under the flood of people begging for generators, and I list 20 the moment the batch is done, because they eat too much space and crowd the feeding. No other choice. They are snatched up instantly, the same haul of materials as yesterday flowing back, and I pour all of it straight into the storage cabinet. I trade for spiked krill shells again today, since I burned nearly all of them on Jin-hoon's armor, and I lay in more for the future. Materials stored, I craft 2 more generators and send them to Jin-hoon, and she answers at once. Why only 2? She sends, you are not planning to dole the 10 out to me over 5 days, are you? She had assumed I would give her 5 a day across 2 days, and 2 units means 5 days. And how much can change in 5 days in this world? Because if someone else gets an oxygen-producing device by then, a generator is suddenly worth far less than it is now. I cannot spend too much of the Leviathan's food, I tell her. You need seaweed, she sends. I will give it to you directly, so make all 8 remaining units. Fine, I tell her. Give me a moment to work out how much. I wait for the water to drain, then extend the mirror skin barracuda hide in my headlamp out past the edge of the generator and check the floor outside in the mirror's reflection. I thought of this yesterday while skinning the fish, because sticking my head out to look every time is far too dangerous if something highly aggressive is waiting, and using the mirror bright hide to throw back the scene outside is a far better way to survey it. It feels like making a fuss over nothing, but as the saying goes, in an unknown world, careful is always right. No large creatures outside, so I stand and look at the seaweed sitting in the generator. The blueprint never named how much seaweed a generator takes, since there is always seaweed to spare, and I count what is in this 10 pieces laid in 2 neat rows of 5. 10 pieces of seaweed, but how is that counted, I wonder? Is it 10 portions? Okay, Jin-hoon sends. I have worked it out. You need 500 portions. Jin-hoon fires back the instant I name the figure, demanding to know if I take her for an idiot, since she has an algae oxygen generator of her own, and no arithmetic in any world lands her at 500 portions. I lay the flattery on thick, telling her she is far too clever for me to ever insult that way, that the 500 is only meant to cover the other materials a generator eats. She is not having it. She points out that our deal was for 10 finished algae oxygen generators, not for me to make 10 generators on her dime, and she asks straight out whether I am deliberately muddying the terms. Caught, I concede the slip with a sheepish okay, then float 400 portions instead, generously waiving the 100 I was trying to smuggle in. 200 portions of seaweed, she answers, and would I kindly send over the remaining 8 generators, thank you. Sharp as a fish hook, that one. A few minutes later, I sit looking at the 200 portions of seaweed she traded across, and an idea surfaces. I could pull 4 supply boxes a day by trading basic materials straight for seaweed and skipping the Leviathan's feeding stage entirely. No feeding stage means no aggressive creatures riding the seawater into the stomach wall space, which means none of the dangers either. I turn the plan over, weighing whether it would actually hold, and then a spiked krill bouncing in the seaweed pile catches the corner of my eye. So I hop off the wooden platform, deal with it fast, split the shell from the meat, and tuck both into the storage cabinet. By the time I straighten back up, I have already talked myself out of the whole scheme. The feeding stage is dangerous, yes, but it is also where everything good comes from. The spiked krill that adds a touch of strength, the sunlight or bugs that give me light, even the golden silk fruit Jin-hoon stumbled onto. All of it arrives on the feeding tides. Danger is also tempering, the only thing letting me adapt to a world I do not understand, and a man who dodges every threat now will simply freeze and die the first time he meets one he cannot dodge. So I keep the feeding stage. What I will do instead is trade for some seaweed and give the Leviathan an extra meal. 2 a day like me, 1 in the morning and 1 at night. Grow up strong on a full belly, I tell it. Decision made. I post on the World Exchange channel that I am buying seaweed. 100 portions of seaweed for 10 portions of basic materials. 1,000 portions of materials a day. First come, first served. I clear better than 2,000 portions of basic materials daily now, and spending 1,000 of them on seaweed relieves the storage crush while it feeds my baby. The channel cannot make sense of it at first, half of them stunned that a big shot would trade real materials for worthless weeds, a few insisting it must be gratitude and generosity, until one cooler head does the math and points out that I clear over 2,000 materials a day, that a supply box holds only 100, and that I simply have nowhere left to put them. The rest catch up fast, one of them lamenting that I am drowning in materials, while he still prays his daily box holds bread and water instead of a metal ore he cannot even swap for a slice. Another grumbles that bread and bottled water used to cost 10 materials and have climbed to 20, calling the sellers beastly profiteers, until a cooler voice corrects him that no one set the price, that basic materials are simply piling up faster than anyone can spend them, while food and water keep getting eaten, so the materials sink in value against a loaf. The whole gap, one of them sighs, comes down to blueprints being too scarce, since one good blueprint makes a man rich overnight and lets him corner the rest and harvest everyone. And I read that line and find it sound right up until I realize the man is describing me. The 1,000 portions are gone before the envy finishes typing itself out. To hold the 10,000 portions of seaweed that flood back, I craft a second storage cabinet and stand it on the square meter I just cleared, and my living space snaps back to where it was. One cabinet holds exactly 10,000 portions of seaweed, so with 2,000 materials coming in daily, a second cabinet was inevitable. Anyway, 3 or 4 days out at the most. With the seaweed stowed and nothing pressing, I start hauling the rest of it across the stomach wall space by hand. Then I stop dead, because there is an obvious shortcut. If I drop the seaweed into a supply box, carry the box to the digestion pool, and pour it out there, surely that beats walking armfuls back and forth. I trade for a spare box off the channel and test it, and the result is workable but not the win I hoped for. The seaweed goes into the box fine, but it will not list onto the channel as blue light the way materials do, so I still have to load and unload it by hand at both ends. Useless, I mutter, tossing the box onto the platform and going back to hauling the old way. In truth, the box does beat raw hauling since it carries 100 portions without getting heavier, while my arms manage maybe 50. The reason I drop it is the 3 extra steps, loading the box, lifting the box, emptying the box, and the time those steps cost is enough to walk a manual load across 3 times over. For now, once the Leviathan grows and the stomach wall space stretches wide and the digestion pool sits far across it, the box will earn its keep. Just not today. Back on the platform, a problem rises in my mind. Today is the 8th day, and I met the anchorhead worm on the 4th. That timing matters more than it looks. I met the worm on day 4, but my development runs roughly 3 times faster than everyone else's, which means the average survivor should meet his first anchorhead worm somewhere around the 12th day. On the 6th day, 8 people bought algae oxygen generators from me, and running double speed, their 8th day lands them at an effective 10th, so the worm comes for them tomorrow or the day after. If those 8 die, it is no real loss to me, because they traded privately, and no one knows their names. The danger is the generators I started selling openly yesterday. Every buyer logged on the public channel for all to see, which means the first people to meet the anchorhead worm will be the exact people who bought my generators. And from where the rest of the survivors sit, with no idea why, the math is simple and damning. They will pin every one of those deaths on me. In a panic like that, with everyone suddenly dying, I could explain the truth 100 times and not one of them would believe me. So I have to get ahead of it. At minimum, keep my generator buyers from all dying at once. The cleanest way is to announce on the World Exchange channel that I met an anchorhead worm myself, attach the creature's entry from the biological illustrations, and let everyone learn that the worm exists. That tells the whole world I was the first to face it, that this sea holds things far worse than the harmless spiked krill. And even if a flood of my buyers die afterward, I will have warned them first, and I can move a fresh batch of spiked helmets on the fear. Better to wait, though, until the Leviathan finishes its meal. The feeding stage is no time to be distracted, not with worms liable to ride in on the water. When the feeding ends without incident, I finish and deliver the last of Jinhoon's 8 generators. Our deal fully closed, and I open the interface to start the warning, only for a private message from Gang Hato to land first. He calls me his savior, his brother Mun, and the moment I see it I know exactly what happened, and my whole plan reshapes itself on the spot. I ask what is wrong, playing it light. He tells me it was the anchorhead worm, the one I warned him about, that it was huge, that when the seawater poured in he never noticed it until it burst up and clamped onto his head, and that he was nearly scared to death. He says the only reason he lived is that he always remembered what I told him, and never once took off his spiked helmet, not even to sleep, so the 3 spikes caught the worm's mouth part and bought in the seconds he needed to stop shaking and kill it. He thanks me over and over, telling me that if I had not sworn the worm could be killed, he might have frozen and died without ever trying. I tell him I am glad he is alive, then warn him the feeding stage is dangerous from now on, and he had better stay sharp. He asks whether there will be more of these worms, and I tell him I met 2 of them yesterday and nearly died, that it only gets worse from here. The 2 stops in cold, the number repeating back at me in disbelief, and I can almost feel him picturing himself in my place and going numb. He asks, carefully, whether I have anything else that can defend against an anchorhead worm. I tell him I do, but he probably cannot afford it. It is not that I want to leave him hanging. The only real answer to several worms at once is a full set of spiked armor, and however soft my heart runs, I am not handing a stranger an entire armor set for free. He asks what it costs, says he will scrape together whatever he can, and I tell him at least 2 blueprints. That is already a conscience price. 7 life-saving pieces with a brutal grip on the worm, and 4 blueprints would be fair, 1 per piece even fairer, and plenty of richer survivors would pay it. Gang Hado goes silent, because 2 blueprints is a fortune to a man living only a notch above hand to mouth, scraping 2 boxes a day off the generator I gave him. Then, I offer him a different road. Do me a favor, I tell him, and I will tally the favor into a reward, then pay it out in defensive gear. He agrees instantly, swearing he will do whatever it is, no hesitation, because after everything between us, he knows my character and trusts I will not send him into anything truly deadly. Good, I tell him. Just post on the World Exchange channel that you met an anchorhead worm, and attach the creature's entry from the illustrations. Now that Gang Hado has met the worm himself, I would far rather he raise the alarm than me. I am about as famous as a survivor can be right now, unmatched, and that much fame is not actually safe. The channel holds more than a few clever people, and luck that always keeps me a step ahead of 100 million strangers will eventually make one of them wonder whether I am cheating, the way the protagonist always cheats in a survival novel. My lead is reasonable enough for now, 1 good blueprint snowballing into resources, nothing that screams a secret. But I never wanted the spotlight. I would always rather hide in the back and run things quietly. Gang Hado meeting the worm on his own is the perfect cover, a way to throw the public eye somewhere else, and a clean test of whether he can be trusted with a real task. He does exactly as I say and posts the anchorhead worm news to the channel, which at that moment is still snarling over whether 2 generators for 1 blueprint is a fair price. I notice Jin Hun has undercut me, listing her generators at 1 blueprint for 2 outright, no scramble for a public 20 required. On paper, her deal looks only 100 materials cheaper than my total for 2, but it is far stronger, because winning 2 of mine means first clawing 1 of 20 generators away from 100 million people, and only then spending a blueprint, while hers simply hands you 2 for the blueprint, no lottery at all. It is the more reasonable price. Honestly, even if quick repeat sales were never my point, since I sell generators to keep the Leviathan fed and my secret buried. Not to rush 3 boxes a day into a stranger's hands, but the instant Gang Hido's warning lands, every argument about pricing dies. Because this is about staying alive. The channel reels at the entry, 1 survivor insisting a 3-meter worm that bites through a skull has to be fake, another snapping back that this is clearly not Earth, and a third begging Gang Heo to explain how on Earth he survived. That is the moment Gang Heo loses the plot entirely. I asked him to describe the attack in vivid detail and to layer in his personal feelings, the idea being to make every survivor taste the worm's terror so the spiked armor I sell next commands a premium. What I get instead is a man who opens with the worm lunging out of the dark water and clamping his head, his mind going blank, his body locking up, and then, just as the channel leans in for the part where he lives, he wanders off into a memory of one hot summer when she and he hid in the shade of a tree to escape the sun. Cicadas screaming, a soft breeze lifting her hair. For over an hour, the channel sits there stunned, too afraid of offending the only man who survived to cut him off, terrified that interrupting his reverie will make him clam up and leave them with nothing. I am every bit as stunned as they are. When he announces he is moving on to the second scene that flashed before his eyes, the survivors finally crack, one of them gently suggesting he save the memories for later, and maybe, possibly, get to the part about not dying. He apologizes, blames the misery of the last few days for sending his mind drifting, and gets to it at last. He survived entirely thanks to a blueprint he had picked up before, the spiked helmet, whose 3 spikes perfectly isolate the worm's mouth part, and keep it off the helmet itself. A near-perfect counter. Relief sweeps the channel, because by his own telling he was frozen stiff and still walked away, which proves the helmet works even when its wearer cannot move a muscle. Someone asks if he is selling the blueprint, another jumps in to mock the asking. The 2 of them start clawing at each other, and the rest ignore the squabble and ask his price. Gang Hado names it flat, exactly as I fed it to him. 1 spiked helmet, 1 blueprint. The channel deflates again, begging him to come down, pointing out that the big shot sells a life-saving generator for a mere 100 materials. And here Gang Hyedo turns, fierce, calling the big shot nothing, just a man who soared on 1 lucky blueprint, then telling them the helmet is their own life and a single blueprint is cheaper than dying. Take it or leave it. He is not forcing anyone. The survivors are floored, because the man who seemed so mild an hour ago has bared his teeth, and they round on him, demanding to know who he thinks he is, when even the big shot price is fair. This is no sudden true face. It is my instruction. A villain in the picture makes the big shot's kindness shine that much brighter. Gang Hado watches the whole channel turn on him and panics, asking me what to do. I tell him not to lose his nerve, that no one can crawl out of the channel and hit him. And I chuckle, because with him playing the bad man so well, it falls to me to play the good one. So I write to the channel as the Big Shot, friendly and reasonable. The Big Shot title is just everyone's joke, I tell them. I never asked to be anyone's Big Shot, but this friend's price does run a little high. Then I offer the seller a free generator, not counted as a repeat purchase, if he will only lower the helmet. And when Gang Hayato loftily declines as too generous, I cheerfully add him to the list of people barred from buying generators at all. He scrambles, refusing to drop the helmet price but throwing in a wooden shield instead. 2 pieces of defense for 1 blueprint, his absolute floor, and warning that if I push him further, he will simply buy his generator off the woman selling 2 for a blueprint. A pack of survivors promptly storms off to harass Jin Hoon, ordering her not to sell to him, and the poor woman is left blindsided by a disaster she had no hand in. I fall quiet, which reads as tacit approval, and the channel keeps howling that the price is still too cruel, because blueprints are far too rare and even a willing buyer has to find one first. The survivors keep crying Big Shot, hoping I will cut the helmet price again, and I give them nothing. I had meant to ride today's worm terror and harvest a wave of blueprints with the spiked helmet, but I was never going to hold that price forever. One man's strength has a ceiling, and blueprints and rare items only come out of supply boxes opened by people, so the more people thriving, the more I can skim off the top with my advantage. The blueprint price on the helmet was always a one-day affair. Tomorrow, I will invent a reason to drop it where most can reach. Gang Hado posts that for the first 10 buyers he will waive the production materials, after which the buyer supplies their own, which in everyone's eyes paints him as stingy, black-hearted profiteer charging for the privilege of bringing your own shell. The channel rages again, all of it aimed at me through him, every voice begging the Big Shot to come crush this monster. I stay silent. They are not only cursing Gang Hado and we both know it, and until I harvest my blueprints the price does not move. Then a single message tears my whole plan in half. Someone tells the channel not to panic, that since this man will not lower his price, they can simply trade with him for a spiked helmet instead. No, someone else has the spiked helmet blueprint. The smile slides off my face though. When I think about it for half a second, it is perfectly ordinary, since duplicate blueprints at a population of 100 million are inevitable. If every blueprint were truly one of a kind, a man like me who lands a valuable one could buy up the world early and reign forever, and the world clearly does not run that easy. The channel actually cheers the newcomer, glad to see a monopoly broken before it forms, and begs him to price the helmet kindly, ideally at the Big Shot's 100 materials. The newcomer is one Joe Dung, and even through text he drips with contempt. He sneers that he has finally seized his chance, that the so-called Big Shot is a fool sitting on a gold mine who actually listened to these idiots and priced a generator at 100 materials. Ridiculous. In the flesh, he is a stocky middle-aged man in gold-rimmed glasses and a suit, owner of one of Earth's top 500 companies, the Soaring Business Group, though after a few days in this world the suit hangs on a scruffy beard and wild hair, the picture of a rich man gone to seed. Right now, helmet in hand, he is grinning ear to ear. He addresses the channel oily and warm. The Big Shot can afford 100 materials because 100 materials is nothing to him. But Joe Dung, why, he is a poor ordinary man living hand to mouth like all of you. And at 100 he could not even cover the cost. Of course, he adds, he would never be a black-hearted capitalist and demand blueprints. His price is 500 basic materials plus 10 units of food or mineral water, and for those short on materials, metal ore or rare items can make up the gap. Against Gang Hado it sounds almost saintly, even if 500 materials and 10 units of food is still a mountain to most. They beg him lower, and he refuses smoothly, then offers his clever little idea instead, that survivors band into small groups and pool materials to buy a single helmet, with whoever meets the worm getting to wear it. When someone protests that simultaneous attacks would still doom all but one, he counters that simultaneous attacks are vanishingly rare, that the Big Shot met the worm today and no one else did, that even in the worst case, a group saves one life where a loner saves none. The survivors find the logic sound and immediately start forming groups, scouring the channel for partners. I frown, because Joe Dung is not simple. His small group idea is genuinely good, wringing the last scraps out of the desperate while handing them a sliver of real benefit. Not only does it wring the last scraps out of the desperate, it also hands them a thread of real safety, which is the cruel cleverness of it. But the moment groups form, the strong will harden into the strong, and the weak sink into the weak, because a group can only band together when everyone's assets run roughly even, and no group lets in a man whose holdings fall well short of the rest. On what grounds would the poorest member ever claim a turn with the shared helmet when he put in the least? The world splits into layers right there, top and middle and bottom, the gap set in stone before anyone notices it hardening. I have no time for any of it, because I have Gang Hado frantically buying up spiked krill shells across the World Trade Channel. I funnel 1,000 basic materials to him and set him buying shells at 20 materials each. The going rate is 10, since a survivor without the armor blueprint can do little with a shell beyond lashing it to an arm as crude cover. But now that everyone knows the worm in the helmet, shell prices are about to fly. I hold more basic materials than anyone alive. The supply of intact shells is thin, and by paying double, I strangle Jo Deung's growth before it starts. Even the cleverest cook starves without rice. Let us see what he forges helmets from once the shells dry up. The situation breaks exactly as I read it. Jo Deung finishes courting the channel and turns to buy shells at the standard 10 and finds he has not too few materials but almost none at all. He has met a single spiked krill in his whole run here, traded for his 2 helmet shells with his last 20 materials, sold his 1 helmet for 500 and meant to snowball that 500 into shells and helmets and become the richest man in this sea. Then he opens the channel and sees Gang Haido hoovering up every shell at 20. Where, he snarls, did that man get so many materials? Jo Deung never guessed Gang Haido could front 1,000 materials, since before today he had never heard the name. He assumed a fellow lucky helmet holder living the same hand-to-mouth, never a man with depth, and he berates himself for missing it, because Gang Haido flipped from polite to vicious, faster than turning a page, the swing wild enough to look like 2 people sharing one skull. Young people, he scoffs, are simply too young, and he is sure he can still win. He posts a warning that the black-hearted capitalist is cornering the shell market, that shells are the helmet's main material, that everyone must refuse to sell to him or there will be no helmets left, and only blueprints will trade. He smiles, posting it certain Gang Hyodo cannot beat him, because Gang Hyodo already earned the channel's hatred, while Jo Deung stands with the people, cheap helmets in hand. The channel erupts at the corner attempt, cursing Gang Hyodo, vowing to starve him of shells, and Jo Deung's grin widens. Then Gang Hyodo flips the table. He apologizes to the channel, all contrition, saying he lost his head because the sudden attention went to his, that he is truly sorry, and to make amends he will follow the big shot's lead and price the helmet at 100 basic materials, plus a small labor fee, materials supplied by the buyer, or 200 outright for those who cannot bring their own. The survivors who were merely cursing him a breath ago are baffled into silence, then delighted, lining up for helmets and forgiving him on the spot. In front of his interface, Jo Deung's smile freezes, because he expected a price drop, sure, but he expected Gang Haido to land beside him, where Jo Deung would keep his public goodwill and his edge. Instead, Gang Haido slammed the price to the floor in a naked move to bury him, and Jo Deung cannot follow to 200 outright because with shells climbing the cost alone may pass 200. He can only match the 100 material labor fee with buyer-supplied materials, which puts him a step behind. Then Gang Haido adds that he also sells wooden shields at 100 materials, a lesser piece but real defense, and that single line snuffs out Jo Deung's last play, because the shield covers the loss the cheap helmet would have bled. But an old hand bends without breaking, and Jo Deung is not finished. He private messages Gang Haido, asks his honorable name, then introduces himself as the man with the other helmet blueprint, come to apologize for the unkind things he said. Gang Haido waves it off, genuinely indifferent, since he was only ever acting on my orders, and the black-hearted capitalist talk landed on me more than him. Then Jo Deung makes his real pitch, oily and warm, that the 2 of them are the only helmet holders alive, that their feud has driven the price into the dirt, and that if they cooperate they can set any price they please and harvest the helpless survivors together. No cooperation. Get lost. Jo Deung sits dumbfounded, the conversation having gone so well a heartbeat ago, and he sends message after message only to get the same 2 words back each time. Get lost, until he is nearly sick with rage. Fine, he thinks, fine. He holds the blueprint. He will simply find an investor and corner the market and sort out the losses later. His whole dream of riding the helmet alone now shattered. His new target, naturally, is to sell generators and become the big shot with the most materials. And so, after winding through Gang Haido and looping all the way around, Jo Deung arrives at my door, the man behind the curtain, asking the big shot to cooperate. I agree, for now. A man who apologizes to Gang Haido, pitches a partnership, gets refused, and immediately circles to me as flexible to the point of being slippery, and if I turn him away he will only find some other backer I cannot watch. Better to keep him under my nose, where I can pick the moment to finish him. Jo Deung opens by asking for 1,000 basic materials, and I refuse outright. In a world where people can never meet, trust runs near zero, and a man who cheats me simply vanishes, so handing him 1,000 materials on faith is out of the question. He knows it, of course. The ask was only a cast of the line in case the big shot was a fool worth gutting. He asks what arrangement I want instead. For every helmet order he fills, I tell him I will send the materials for that one order. He balks, saying shells must be stockpiled early, or the price runs away. Then you stockpile, I tell him, and you do the making. In the end, we settle there. Jo Deung makes the helmets. I stockpile every material, and all the profit flows to me, since the venture will likely lose money down the line and I will eat that loss when it comes. The arrangement suits me perfectly. With the materials in my hands, I can count exactly how many helmets he produces and tally the profit, and under cover of cooperating with him, I can hoard spiked krill shells openly. I take out 2,000 basic materials and buy shells at 20 apiece across the channel, sweeping up 100 portions fast, then settle in to wait for Jo Deung's orders. While I wait, I grind out the day's 100 push-ups and 100 sit-ups. Gang Hato messages that over 100 people have lined up for helmets and asks when to begin. I hesitate, then harden, because if I am going to test his loyalty, I have to stake something real, and now is the moment. I tell him I am trading him the spiked helmet blueprint outright, that from here on he handles the selling himself. The helmet blueprint was his to begin with, traded to me back when neither of us knew its worth, and now that he knows exactly what it is, the test is simple. Will he keep it? If he passes, I will lift his development to match my own. If he fails, then 1 helmet blueprint and 1,000 materials is a cheap price to see a man's true face. Far cheaper than being betrayed later when the stakes are mortal. He refuses, almost frantic, insisting he will just supply me the materials and let me make and hand him the finished helmets, that I absolutely cannot give him the blueprint. I tell him I have no time to sit there crafting helmets, that I have other work, and he can hold the blueprint for now and simply return it before he sleeps. I pull it from my interface and send it across. He frets that it is too precious, asks whether I really trust him not to keep it, whether I am not setting myself up for a terrible loss. Coming to this world, I tell him, you are the man I know best, and I read people well, and I believe you. Take it. He accepts at last, thanking me, calling me good to him, and I never once mentioned that the blueprint was his to start with, because human nature does not survive being told a thing it gave away was secretly precious. That single fact would breed the thought that the blueprint was always his and I cheated him cheap, and the greed would follow. Do not disappoint me, I murmur. The day's first supply box arrives, the water recedes clean, and I drop down and open it to find gold ore, a lump of irregular bright yellow stone that throws back my headlamp in a scatter of golden points like stars. Lovely, and useless to me now, I sigh, and into the storage cabinet it goes. Joe DeYoung messages that he has 50 helmet orders and wants me to send 150 portions of shells. Send me 5,000 materials first, I tell him, or what stops you defaulting once the shells are in your hands? He sputters that he does not have 5,000. However many materials you have, I answer, that many portions of shells you get, and otherwise there is nothing to discuss. He curses me for being so hard to trick, because he did hope to swindle a stake off the big shot, and finds the big shot far too careful. He has 800 materials all told, built from his original 500, by buying 25 shells, forging 8 helmets, and trading them out, and the going shell price is still low enough that he turns a profit, so he is not about to labor for me for free. He says he will wait until he has saved more. Cunning fellow, still angling to swindle materials off me. Dream on. Come to me looking for something for nothing, and do not blame me when I am the one doing the tricking. I shelve Joe Dung and keep exercising, and hours on the second box arrives riding a mirror skin barracuda. I process the fish fast, keep the mirror bright hide, list 2 portions of its meat on the equipment slot to trade, drop 1 into the cabinet and open the box. Instant noodles. My breath catches, then joy crashes over me, because it is a pack of braised beef noodles, and my mouth is already watering. Just today I was aching for something savory, and the world hands me braised beef, which to a man who has eaten bread for 8 days is not noodles. It is a feast. It is hot pot. I pull down 1 portion of the mirror skin barracuda meat, and noticing yesterday's 2 listed portions still have not sold, I add today's and relist all 3 to trade for accelerated growth food guide fragments. With more survivors getting generators every day, the fragments surface more often, and mirror skin barracuda meat is exactly the right bait. I take out the 2 empty tin cans I saved and the heating packs I had hoarded as treasures, the same packs that now trade freely on the channel, so I spend them without a pang. I cut 1 can in half horizontally with a fishbone knife and keep the bottom to cradle a heating pack, then set the second whole can on top of it to serve as the pot. Into the pot goes more than half a bottle of mineral water, the rest poured over the heating pack below, and the pack reacts and warms the water while I tip in the braised beef seasoning and wait for it to boil. I am not idle waiting. I fetch the mirror skin barracuda meat and spiked krill meat from the cabinet and try to shave them thin with the fishbone knife, and fail completely because I have no knife skill and the blade was never made for slicing. So I cut everything into shreds instead, figuring a longer cook covers the difference. Soon a rich smell of braised beef fills the stomach wall space, and I, who once gagged at instant noodles, stand there breathing it in like a starving man. The soup boils into a slick of red oil, and I drop the fish shreds and shrimp shreds in by hand, break off a wedge of noodle cake to follow, vegetables and staple both, simple but the first hot food I have had in 8 days. My eyes lock on the pot, ready to fish it all out the moment it cooks, and then I freeze, because I have no chopsticks. I sat here dreaming of hot pot and forgot I needed something to eat it with, and the food is already nearly overcooked while my brain races. I split a leftover spiked krill spike down the middle with the fishbone knife, thin each half a little, and there it is, a crude flat pair of chopsticks. Clumsy but enough. I pluck the food out fast, cupping my free hand beneath since there is no bowl, and lift a clumsy bite to my mouth, and the salty savory spicy flood hits all at once. The chew of the fish, the bounce of the shrimp, the soft give of the noodle, every texture trading places as I eat. A bit salty, the noodles overcooked, but I could not care, because a hot meal after this long braised beef no less, beats fish and shrimp boiled in plain water by a mile. I keep ladling shreds in and eating, and the meal stretches near an hour, the heating pack quitting partway, so I trade for 2 more off the channel to hold the heat. Eventually, the soup thins to nothing under the water I keep adding, and I am finally full. Halfway through, I remember sweet potato leaves make a fine vegetable, so I pick a handful from the planting box, the growing sweet potatoes be damned, and toss them in. My belly rounds out tight, I let out a satisfied burp, rest a while to digest, then clean the cans and bottles off the platform and lie down to wait for the 3rd box. It brings a mango seed. Another fruit with nowhere to plant it yet, so it goes into storage, though the watermelon ripens in 2 days and I can clear room then, and mango happens to be one of my favorites. The day is nearly done, and on the channel, my 3 portions of mirror skin barracuda meat have all traded for 3 more accelerated growth food guide fragments, bringing me to 6. 4 more and I complete the set and unlock the full accelerated growth food guide, though I still have no idea what food it names or how rare that food will prove. If it is some scarce thing, the guide is near worthless, since the Leviathan swallows tons at a sitting and no rare ingredient could keep that maw fed. Gang Hato messages that he has returned the blueprint and traded 100 helmets today for 10,000 basic materials, all sent to me. I open it, see the spiked helmet blueprint waiting safe, and exhale, relieved, because I truly hoped he would pass, the man who saved my life and the only soul I know in this world. I take back the blueprint, accept half the 10,000 materials, and return the other 5,000 to him, telling him to keep them for shells or for himself. He protests it is too much and he has nowhere to store it. The materials already heaped like a hill, so I craft 6 wooden foundations and 2 storage cabinets and send them over. A wooden foundation is a 1-meter platform that lifts you out of the water and gives you ground to build on, I explain. And each cabinet holds 10,000 materials in barely any space. He insists the gifts are too precious to accept, knowing full well what a wooden foundation means to a man who dreads soaking in monster-haunted water. And I tell him it is simply his reward for the favor, the armor against the anchorhead worm we already agreed on. This being part of it. He thanks me again and again. You are the man I know best here, I tell him, and you have helped me more than once, so this is only what you are owed. I sent him the saved mirror skin barracuda meat too, earning another round of thanks. The truth is I came around hard to Jodung's small group idea. In this world no one develops fast alone, since a single man's reach has limits, and what I need is a small circle of my own, slowly built, carefully vetted, people I can actually trust. It is not a thing to rush. I give the Leviathan its 10,000 portions of seaweed as a late snack, half an hour of hauling into the digestion pool, a trifle against its appetite, but enough, I hope, to nudge its growth a hair faster. The day's work done, I check the crops, and the watermelon flowers have already withered, a small melon the size of a ping-pong ball swelling beneath them, near ripe by tomorrow at this rate. The sweet potatoes have bloomed too, purple trumpets that say their own harvest is not far. Only the golden silk fruit disappoints, still buried unsprouted in the seaweed planting box after almost 2 days. Enough silence to make me question whether I planted it wrong. Sleep first, I decide, and if it is not stirred by morning I will find a fix, and with the Leviathan settled into rest I drift off. The 9th day. I wake and go straight to the seaweed planting box, because I dreamed last night the golden silk fruit had sprouted into little golden seedlings, and the box flatly disappoints me. Not a flicker of change. I sigh and turn to the melon and sweet potatoes, which never fail to lift me, the watermelon swollen to fist size overnight, the sweet potato flowers withered with the roots presumably already thickening in the soil below. I send Gang Heo the helmet blueprint again, check the shell price, now 30 materials after yesterday's buying spree, and set him buying in bulk once more. Also handing him the wooden shield blueprint with orders to start selling shields once shells hit 40. Then I wait for the day to unfold. The Leviathan enters its feeding stage, and I duck behind the algae oxygen generator, and watch the survivor count in the corner of the world system, still 100 million of 100 million, not a single death in all these days. That ends today. The eosphageal diaphragm opens, and seawater pours into the stomach wall space, and I pull my attention off the panel, strap on the spiked armor, and pour everything into my ears, listening. Hearing nothing move, I lay the mirror skin barracuda hide flat as a mirror and check the water through its reflection, and only with that second confirmation do I relax and open the algae oxygen tank blueprint to craft generators. The channel today is not waiting on me to list generators. It is talking about anchorhead worms, every voice praying not to meet one. I ignore the chatter, finish my 20 generators, list them, and post the alert, and they vanish in a blink as always, the same flood of materials pouring back, all of it straight into the cabinet. And the count in the corner changes. People have started dying. The number climbs, a dozen, then hundreds, then tens of thousands, and the channel falls dead silent, the fear of death settling over all of it. Only the first feeding, I think, brows nodding. So how have this many already died? By my own math, the worms should swarm in force on the 12th day, and today, the 9th, only the few dozen who bought generators should be meeting them. Unless today is merely the opening and the true wave still comes on the 12th, in which case a chill runs straight through me, because I do not dare picture that toll. The number keeps climbing, and by the time the feeding stage ends, it has neared 100,000. I came through untouched, but I stare at that figure shaken, because if the 9th day alone takes 100,000, the 12th could take tens of millions. A number so absurd it stops meaning anything. If the death rate truly runs that steep, I wonder what any of us are even surviving for, when only a sliver of people could possibly last to the end. And a world bled that hard does not recover, because the survivors lose the population that opens boxes and surfaces resources, development stalls, and the dead end finds everyone eventually. I am powerless against a death rate like that. I can only hope fewer die than I fear. Gang Hado messages that crowds are begging him to drop the helmet price or waive the fee. Hold the helmet price, I tell him, and for those short on materials, sell wooden shields and cut the shield from 100 to 50 so no one faces the worm barehanded. He does it, keeping the helmet firm while having the shield, and the gesture wins back a sliver of the goodwill he torched. After a moment's thought, I decide to help the survivors once more. I am going to sell wooden foundations, because a wooden foundation lifts a man clear of the water, out of the dark where the anchorhead worm strikes from below. The feeding ends and the channel comes alive again, but the old jokes are gone. Every line now fearful and raw, men cursing the death rate, asking whether a single helmet wearer is even still breathing. Then the ones who own helmets begin to answer, telling the channel that yes, the worm came, that it burst from the water and nearly stopped their hearts, and that the spiked helmet caught it cold and saved them. The proof drives helmet demand higher still, and I wait, watching these disaster survivors, for the right moment to push my wooden foundation. Gang Hado messages again, and I expect another plea to cut the helmet, but it is better than that, and a mischievous grin spreads over me. You are delivering yourself to my door, I think, so do not blame me for skinning you. Joe DeYoung, seeing helmet demand spike, has shamelessly come crawling back to Gang Hado for partnership, hungry to ride the panic and gouge the price to one blueprint a helmet. Gang Hado, playing along on my script, reminds him that he wanted exactly this price before, and the big shot blocked him, and Joe Dung purrs that with deaths mounting and the helmet's worth proven, now is the time to demand the moon, a business opportunity not to be missed. He oozes apology for stopping Gang Hado yesterday, swears the fault was all his, then waves it off as nothing worth dwelling on against a mountain of basic materials, asking why the two of them keep pricing low and enriching strangers. They agree to cooperate at one blueprint per helmet, and Joe DeYoung crows that they will fleece the fools, let them curse, and keep raising the price until the desperate come begging. But Gang Hado lays a trap. He agrees to cooperate, then says this time he will not stand in front and eat the curses. So if Joe Dung wants him in, Joe Dung shows sincerity first by announcing the price hike, and Gang Hado follows. Joe DeYoung lights up at the yes, hesitates at the condition, asks what the difference is between who announces first. All the difference, Gang Hado snaps, recalling how last time Joe DeYoung announced his blueprint price, and then sold low and led the mob to brand Gang Hado a black-hearted capitalist. Joe DeYoung, terrified of losing this windfall to a man he reads as half-mad and unpredictable, swallows it and announces first, raising his helmet to one blueprint. The message is a fuse. The survivors, already crushed and fearful, detonate, hurling the foulest words they own at Joe Dung, who does not care so long as Gang Hado follows, because to him only blueprints buy a real life, and even mountains of materials trade poorly for one. After a few minutes of visible struggle, Gang Hado announces his hike too, and Joe Dung exhales in relief, sending happy cooperation, little brother Jiang, the warmth dripping off it, and Gang Hado sends it back. Now the channel truly explodes. They watch the death toll skyrocket, and now the only thing that saves a life is being priced to the sky by two unscrupulous merchants, which reads as a sentence to die. They swear to kill the pair on sight, call them beasts, deny they are even human, every survivor without a helmet boiling from terror into pure rage. This is the moment. I post. These two are vile, I tell the channel, Joe Dung worst of all. When he cut the helmet price, I took him for a decent man, and later, when the price ran too low, he came to me proposing we partner against the black-hearted capitalists, and I agreed and even fronted him 1,000 basic materials to buy shells. And now he breaks his word, joins the very profiteer to gouge the dying, the snake. Return the 1,000 materials you swindled out of me, Joe Dung. My standing among the survivors is already high, so the instant I stir the pot, they forget Gang Hado entirely and turn their full fury on Joe Dung. Joe DeYoung shoots back, demanding to know when he ever asked me for 1,000 materials, and telling me to stop talking nonsense. I answer that he is going back on his word now, and he snarls that he went back on nothing, that he never asked for 1,000 of anything, and I am the one trying to extort him. Then he says, fine. If you will not get the 1,000 back, then forget it. But given those 1,000 materials, I ought to at least lower the helmet price, since who can afford a helmet that costs a whole blueprint? Then he rounds on the whole channel, calling me a pig that flew on a borrowed blueprint, sneering that these idiots call me Big Shot, and I actually believe it, declaring he will follow the Big Shot's own example, only 100 helmets a day to the highest bidder, and that if they want him to lift the limit, let their precious Big Shot lift his cap on generators first, and they will all see how kind their Big Shot really is, or how much of a hypocrite. This Joe Dung is genuinely difficult. I meant to trick him and got countered instead, but I have my answer ready. Laughable, I tell the channel. The algae oxygen generator cannot be mass-produced, and I explained why long ago, and you would raise your own price endlessly and hang the blame on me. But do not worry, everyone, because while I cannot make more generators, I traded for a blueprint a while back whose product can help you. And I take out the new item and hope flickers across the channel. What is it, Big Shot? They ask. Can it really fend off the worm? It is called the wooden foundation, I tell them, and it builds a wooden platform 1 meter high that lifts you clear of the water, so that even if the effect is modest, you need never again fear the worm striking up from below. A flicker of disappointment because it is no helmet, but then they remember the feeding stage, the worm's terror. Their lower halves sunk in black ice-cold water where the headlamp dies and the dark seems to hide 1,000 monsters, and the unease that still makes them shiver, and the wooden foundation suddenly matters very much. They ask the price, begging it be cheap. I never meant to gouge them. I know your lives are in danger and the foundation can only do so much. I tell them, but it is all I have, so I charge only cost, 30 pieces of wood. The thing takes 20 wood to make, so 30 is nearly cost outright, far below its true worth. Though I am not about to bleed myself dry for charity, so I cap each person at 1 foundation at the cost price. 1 lifts a man clear of the water, which is the point, but truly making use of it takes at least 2, since a single square meter will not even hold a sleeper, and the second one, a buyer will simply have to trade for at full value. A big shot is a big shot. The channel sighs, so much better than those 2 dogs, and they curse Joe Dung afresh for scamming 1,000 materials off me, wishing they could kill him themselves. Their gratitude has already landed where I aimed it, and Joe Dung's teeth itch with rage, because whatever he says now is wasted on people I have already fed. I close the channel, pull out all my wood, and craft 500 wooden foundations, listing them on the World Trade Channel, and recycling the wood that flows back into more. An endless busy loop. And while the survivors scramble for foundations, another bomb drops. Gang Hado has defected, slashing the helmet to 100 materials even though shells have hit 40, selling at a flat loss. His name flips in an instant from black-hearted capitalist to brother gang, beloved overnight, and Joe Dung is left standing alone in the wreckage, swallowing every curse. The arrogant face he wore in front of the survivors guarantees that no one will trade with him now even if he dropped to 100 materials himself. Because the goodwill is gone and goodwill does not come back. With a swindle against the big shot on his record too. His name is finished, and no future partner will ever trust him. All of it was my plan to bury Joe Dang, executed clean. He will not be rising for a long while. I keep hauling seaweed and crafting foundations, slipping Gang Hado materials now and then to cover his helmet losses, and then Jin Hun private messages me. Jin Hyun asks me what kind of game I am running, and I play dumb and ask what she means. She presses that I have the spiked helmet blueprint too, and I tell her I have no idea what she is talking about. She tells me not to be nervous, that she only wants in, the 3 of us developing together. I point out that even she and I together make only 2, so where a third would come from, and she answers that then the 2 of us go first. I tell her we hardly know each other, and I need to think about it, and she says she will await my good news. What a headache. I frown and manage a bitter smile, because when I traded the golden silk fruit to Jin Hoon, I handed over a full set of spiked armor, helmet included, and a woman who got the helmet from me ahead of everyone can read every move I make. If she were not the one who first proposed the seaweed method, I could lean on my standing and simply deny it all. My generator price has bought me enough goodwill that I could win sympathy, sell more generators, and drown out whatever she said. But Jin Hoon carries her own good name among the survivors, so the instant she speaks my reputation curdles into something both beloved and suspect. And in a world where no one can lay a hand on anyone, only a spotless reputation makes the survivors work for me and crush my rivals. It cannot afford a single stain. Careless, I think. I should never have given her the helmet. She would never have known a set held one. I was simply too honest. This really is difficult. I sigh. I set Jin Hun aside for now and go back to hauling seaweed, because there is no time to brood over her when I am this busy. On top of moving the seaweed, I have to keep crafting wooden foundations without pause, since they are cheap enough that at least half the survivors can afford one. And the demand never lets up. Nearly 100,000 people died today, and yet there are still 99,099,000 left to buy. So every foundation I list is snatched the instant it appears, and I have to make and post them in an endless loop just to keep up. For a moment, I wonder why I do not simply have Gang Hado craft foundations too and split the load. Then I think it through and shake the idea off. The wooden foundation is too important. The base that half my other crafting stands on, and a thing that central stays in my own hands, and nobody else's. 2 or 3 hours later, I finally finish the seaweed. No spiked krill in it this time, but I do turn up 5 sunlight orb bugs, which I set down beside the crops before going to check the 1 sunlight orb bug I pressed earlier against the bite wound on the stomach wall. The circular wound the anchorhead worm tore has stopped bleeding and closed up a good deal. But since the seawater still washes the stomach wall space now and then, and might set the healing back, I leave the sunlight orb bug right where it is. I will pull it off once the wound seals completely. With nothing left to do but crank out wooden foundations, I go through my daily exercise, 100 push-ups and 100 sit-ups. The push-ups come easier than yesterday, easy enough that I suspect my strength has actually gone up, so I open my body attributes panel to be sure I am not imagining it. The panel tells me my intelligence holds at 10 and my constitution at 10, that my speed is 12, and that my strength has climbed to 8.5, and it rates me a healthy and very fast person. My strength is 8.5 now, up half a point after only a few days of exercise, which proves my earlier guess that working out really does raise the number. That little half point lights me up, and now I am even hungrier to keep training. 2 hours later, my goals for the day are done, and I decide to push the push-ups to 200 tomorrow to drive the strength up faster. That leaves me waiting on today's supply box, and while I wait, I start picking at the question of why the golden silk fruit will not sprout. Maybe its growth cycle is just long, or maybe something is missing. Maybe it needs sunlight. Until now, I only had 3 sunlight orb bugs, 1 pinning the wound shut and 2 lighting the watermelon and sweet potato, with none to spare for the seaweed planting box. But today I came back with 5 more, so I grabbed 2 of them and set them on the stomach wall right beside the seaweed planting box. I hope this works, I think. Looking at the planting box now lit bright by the sunlight orb bugs. That done, I head for the wooden platform to wait out the supply box, but I stop dead halfway up. Golden silk fruit, golden silk seaweed. The word gold sitting right there in the name. The instant the thought lands, I remember the gold ore I pulled yesterday, so I dig it out of the storage cabinet and drop it straight into the seaweed planting box. I am desperate enough at this point to try anything. No idea whether it will do a thing, but what if I happen to guess right? Worried 1 piece of gold ore might not be enough. I search the World Trade Channel to buy more, and find nobody listing any at all. That figures. Gold ore must be genuinely rare right now, with few people, maybe no one, having turned any up. Still, I post a buy order, 100 units of wood for a single piece of gold ore. Thanks to the foundation trade, I have a near bottomless supply of wood, so 100 units is a drop in the bucket, and my own flood of foundation sales has bent the market so far that 100 units of wood now trades for 200 units of any other basic material. 2 hours later, the rarity proves itself, because after all that time, my order has pulled in only 2 pieces. I tuck both around the golden silk fruit and hope it sprouts the way I am betting it will. Then a worse thought hits me. It has been over 4 hours since digestion finished, and today's supply box still has not come. Normally, the evolved Leviathan swallows the first box of the day about 3 hours after digestion ends, near enough to clockwork, and today it is more than an hour late. I was so wrapped up in buying gold ore that I let the delay slip past me. A real spike of panic goes through me, because supply boxes are the single source of resources for every survivor, and if something has gone wrong with mine, the consequences are past imagining. I run back over everything I did today, hunting for whatever was different, and find nothing. I was a little slow moving the seaweed because I kept stopping to craft foundations, but crafting is just a thought and costs almost no time, so that is not it. Unable to pin the problem on myself, I open the biological illustrations to check the evolved Leviathan, hoping the trouble shows up in its data. The illustration tells me the evolved Leviathan is 9 days old, in its birth period, 38 meters long, 220 tons, an algae eater that filter feeds, and it rates the whole thing as a 220-ton little baby. Nothing wrong there. By the numbers, it is growing perfectly. So if it is not me and it is not the Leviathan, where is the problem coming from? I open the World Exchange channel, hoping against hope that everyone else is in the same hole I am, because that would at least mean the fault is not mine. Instead, the channel is a parade of people crowing over the good things their boxes coughed up. One bragging he pulled a blueprint, others ribbing him because it turned out to be a chopsticks blueprint he plans to trade up for an algae oxygen generator. The whole feed is winners. Everyone else got their supply box. Only I did not. The bottom drops out of me. I stand rooted in place while a helplessness I cannot argue my way out of climbs up through me. Then the eosphageal diaphragm swings open. My heart jumps and I spin toward it, certain the supply box has finally arrived. But when I look down the throat, no seawater comes surging in. My mind goes sideways because none of this fits anything I understand. And then, for the first time in ages, that milky childish voice rings through my head. The evolved Leviathan asking why the little one in its belly will not come out yet, now that it has finally found a treasure cave. That is the evolved Leviathan's voice. I would know it anywhere. My thoughts race, and I get it almost at once. The evolved Leviathan wants me to leave the stomach wall space and go into a treasure cave. And the second I understand that, the panic drains clean out of me. Good. As long as the trouble is not the Leviathan itself, I can deal with anything, because what just happened had truly left me at a loss. Right behind the relief, though, comes tension, because the Leviathan's thought is plain. It wants me to walk out of the stomach wall space. I have been in this world 9 days and never once been asked to leave, and the world out there is nothing but unknowns, which makes stepping into it blind clearly dangerous. After a long hesitation, I decide to go anyway and explore this treasure cave, since a place called a treasure cave has to be hiding something worth the trip. I have Gang Hado craft me a wooden shield first. Then, dressed in the spiked armor and gripping the fishbone knife, I edge into the eosphageal diaphragm. Inside it is pitch black, and I sweep my headlamp around the fleshy walls as I go. The passage runs about 1.5 meters across, low enough that I have to bend double to move through it. To keep the spikes on my armor from cutting the Leviathan's eosphageal diaphragm, I back out, return to the stomach wall space, pack the spiked armor into a supply box, and carry the box back in instead. Bent low, I work forward inch by inch on the slick ground by headlamp, careful with every step, and after 7 or 8 meters I come out the far side. The space ahead opens up wide and just as black, and the headlamp beam vanishes into it as though swallowed. I am not afraid, because I know exactly where I am, inside the evolved Leviathan's mouth. And in this world the safest place that exists is inside the Leviathan's body, so nothing dangerous can be lurking in that dark. The next stretch is different though, because next I have to leave the Leviathan entirely and enter the treasure cave. I crouch, open the supply box, pull on the spiked armor, and slot the heaviest piece, the spiked breastplate, into my equipment slot for the moment. Geared up, I take off the headlamp and hand crank it once, so it will not die on me at the worst possible second. Then I bring the shield up across my chest in my left hand, lock the fishbone knife in my right, and start walking. 5 or 6 meters on, the beam lands on a white wall textured like the bristles of a brush. Up close, the whole wall is made of individual bristles, and when I touch it the texture is not soft like a brush, but tough, more like strips of bamboo. These must be the Leviathan's bristle teeth, the ones it filters food through, though I am only guessing at the shape of teeth I have never seen. To get out I have to clear this wall first, and lucky for me it stands only 2 meters high, low enough to take with a small jump. Worried the full armor is too heavy but unwilling to face the outside unprotected, I compromise, wearing the spiked helmet and the spiked leg armor, and packing the rest back into the supply box, with the breastplate still riding in my equipment slot to throw over my chest the instant anything goes wrong. I heave the supply box up over the wall, jump, catch the top of the bristle teeth, and haul myself up easily. That 1.5 points of strength was not added for nothing. The old me, stuck at 7 strength, would have grunted and scraped to get over that wall, where now I clear it without a thought. The moment I am up, I flick the spiked breastplate onto my body and sweep the headlamp around, finding a rock wall straight ahead. No danger in sight, so I pull on the rest of the spiked armor, stow the breastplate again, and feel along the rock wall, shield up and fishbone knife ready, hunting the cave mouth among the bristle teeth. After a while I find it, an opening barely a meter across. This has to be the way into the treasure cave, and my heart pounds looking at it, because the space inside is so tight I will only be able to crawl, with no room even to turn around if something comes at me. The bigger the waves, the dearer the fish, I tell myself. To live in this world I have to walk straight into danger, the same way I nearly suffocated hauling seaweed my first day and got mauled by an anchorhead worm not long after. In under 10 days I have brushed death several times over, and there has never once been a quiet way to survive here. So I throw the supply box in ahead of me, brace behind the wooden shield, and crawl into the cave. The inside is solid rock, the whole length of it, as though something carved the tunnel straight out of stone. I lie flat with the supply box lashed to my back by a strip of cloth and the wooden shield held out front, ready to take a hit if some aggressive thing comes at me. 10 meters of crawling leaves my forehead soaked. Good thing I do not have claustrophobia. After a rest I push on, and 10 meters later something is wrong. The cave is turning wetter and wetter, water pooling on the floor, and when I tip my head back and aim the headlamp forward the beam catches a shimmering surface, water throwing the light back at me. I crawl in anyway, my body sinking into the pool, and as I go the level climbs until it fills half the tunnel, leaving me submerged to the chest with my head cranked up as far as it will go, the most miserable posture imaginable. Then something drops onto my head. Afraid it is something foul, I reach up fast and come away with a sticky mass, and under the headlamp my hand is coated in translucent slime. I shake it off in disgust, and right then something swims past my left arm underwater. I jerk the arm up like I have been shocked, the motion so sudden it throws a sheet of water into the air, and the splash booms out and echoes on and on through the silent cave. I steady myself and swing the headlamp to the spot where the thing swam, but the standing water is murky and the light too weak to show me anything below the surface, so I turn the beam upward instead, toward where that slime fell, and what I find disgusts me even more. The whole cave ceiling is coated in mucus, dripping now and then, and the trails of it run in long lines deeper into the dark, as though some creature dragged itself through and left them behind. I brace myself, because I have come too far to turn back, and the tunnel is too narrow to even turn around. Pushing the nausea down, I keep moving, and the mucus only thickens as I go, until it coats the underwater floor too. That slows me to a crawl. The high water already forces me to keep my head tilted up, and now the slick mucus underneath steals every bit of grip, so my hands and feet slide out from under me, and I go down into the water again and again. Am I here to find treasure or to suffer? This is pure torment. After enough faceplants into the pool, I stop to rest, and the second I go still and the sound of me sloshing dies, the cave falls silent. Once my breathing and heartbeat settle, I catch a faint sound I could not hear over my own pulse. Something soft, like a creature dragging itself slowly along the rock. I turn my head, sweep the headlamp after it, and find it up on the ceiling, a flat, soft-bodied creature, long and completely transparent so its organs show through. A pair of tiny black eyes on its head, no more than 20 centimeters long. It is not a frightening thing to look at, and shows no sign of coming at me, just crawling along the rock laying down its trail of mucus. I leave it be. I have no intention of poking at unknown creatures and inviting an accident, and I am rested enough to move on. But as I start, ripples spread across the water ahead. My just settled heart clenches, because I have not moved yet, so what is making them? Then the ripples build into small waves, each one higher than the last, until they fill the whole tunnel, and I understand. Something large is rushing me through the water, throwing up those waves as it comes. The wooden shield has to hold. I drop from prone to a crouch, curling into a ball in the cramped space, shield jammed out front, and with a thought the spiked breastplate snaps onto my body. I breathe out long and slow, forcing myself steady, keeping my body ready. Wave after wave slams the shield and bursts into spray, and I duck my head and squint against it. Then the last wave, the one that fills the tunnel wall to wall, arrives, and the instant it hits the shield, I suck in a sharp breath. The water swallows me whole, a brief underwater world rushing past, and I know the big creature is right behind it. A terrifying force smashes into the shield. My arms cannot hold against a fraction of it, and the impact drives the shield back into my chest and skids my whole body more than a meter backward. The breath punches out of me, my organs ring, my mind whites out for a second like I have been hit by a car, and I cough hard and choke on a mouthful of water as I instinctively gasp. If the standing water had not already receded, that breath would have drowned me. No time for the pain. The moment I recover a little, I clamp down on the wooden shield and stab out past its edge with the fishbone knife, and the blade strikes the giant creature with the clean ring of a hard thing hitting a harder one. It is over. That sound tells me everything. The fishbone knife cannot touch this thing. Its head is solid as rock. For now, the shield is still between us, and the slick mucus underneath means the creature only shoves me backward instead of tearing through, so it cannot reach me yet. Then it seems to realize battering the shield is useless, and starts spinning its whole body instead, and a huge grinding roar fills the cave, like a washing machine drum cranked up tenfold. Its head must carry sharp, hard ridges, because as it spins, those ridges chew into the shield and the wood begins to tear. My stomach drops. I am a lamb waiting on the knife, and the second the shield gives out, I am dead. I message Gang Haido for another wooden shield, and he sends one over fast. Setting the fishbone knife aside, I throw the new shield up too. Both hands committed now, because all I can do is grind it out. The creature cannot spin forever, and I can keep asking Gang Haido for shields. Even so, I doubt I will live, because holding the shields up takes strength I do not have, and mine will never outlast this thing's. A dozen shields go to splinters, and I am wrung dry, no strength left to lift another. Let it come then. With death this close, I feel almost no fear. Maybe because I chose all of this myself. Maybe because somewhere in the time it took to burn through a dozen shields I already made my peace. The last shield shatters, and at last I see the creature whole. Its length is impossible to judge, but its body fills 80% of the tunnel, shaped overall like an earthworm, skin the same gray as the rock, its head sheathed in carapace studded with sharp triangular cones of bone. Those cones are what spun through more than a dozen of my shields. The carapace splits down the middle into several petals like a flower opening, and behind them sits the hidden mouth part, crowded with sharp, slender teeth. Can you not hurry the hell up? Waiting on death is its own torment, and the fear I thought I had made peace with surges right back up through me. Then, just as the creature gathers to lunge, a colossal roar floods the whole cave, and the rock shudders like an earthquake. The evolved Leviathan bellowing that the little bugs are so annoying, blocking the way and not letting its little one pass, telling them to get lost. The giant worm, mid-pounce, freezes as if someone hit pause, that hideous mouth retracting instantly, scared stiff. I am in no shape myself, my vision dark, my head reeling, the sound waves of the Leviathan's voice so violent inside this stone box that passing straight through my body they nearly kill me. But the Leviathan cries out only once, and however wretched I feel, I hold on and stay conscious. When I recover enough to look up, the giant worm's huge body is trembling, frozen in place like it has met a natural predator and dares not move. So the Leviathan's roar terrified it. Emboldened, I aim the headlamp at it to get a proper look at the whole thing, but the light seems to set it off, and the instant I turn to adjust the beam, it whips its body backward and vanishes into the dark. Alone in the cave again, watching how fast the thing that nearly killed me turned tail and bolted, I cannot help finding it a little funny. Then again, it makes sense. The evolved Leviathan is not even 10 days old and already pushing 40 meters, so a worm that is a giant to me is, to the Leviathan, just a bug. After hearing that roar, it would have been stranger if the thing had stayed. The death crisis passed. I let out a heavy breath and slumped back against the mucus-slick wall, no longer caring how disgusting it is, only wanting to rest. Once my heartbeat finally slows, I use the system to ask Gang Haido for a bottle of water and a piece of bread, and it strikes me what a clean little logistics system this is, that as long as you have a contact, you can pull supplies even when you are nowhere near your own Leviathan. The food brings some of my strength back, and I pick up a fresh wooden shield and crawl on. I move with less caution now. Judging by the size of this tunnel, the worm dug it, and the worm has been scared off, which means the most dangerous thing in this cave no longer threatens me. 30-some meters on, I hit a fork, and to keep from getting lost, I follow the right-hand rule and take the right branch, so that on the way out, I can simply keep left and retrace my path. 30 meters into the right fork, the space opens wide enough that I can stand. An oval chamber roughly 3 meters high and 5 across. I sweep the edges with the headlamp, then work toward the middle, and there in the standing water at the center sits a square box. My heart lifts. After all that pain and near dying, I have a reward, and I lift it out and open it. The system tells me I have obtained 20 units of glass, and then nothing more. That is it? I dig through the box with some disdain, and sure enough, 20 panes of glass and not a thing else. Glass is a rare material, granted, since nobody has pulled any until now, but I have no blueprint that calls for glass, and after fighting for my life to get here, I was hoping for something real. A blueprint, not raw stock. Materials alone feel like a cheat. Forget it. There is still a left fork back at that junction, and it should have a supply box too. I check the chamber over, find nothing else, and head back. At the junction, I take the left fork, crawl about 50 meters with several rests, and hit another fork. Another one. I grumble under my breath, take the right side again out of habit, crawl 30-some meters, and come into another oval chamber just like the first, a supply box waiting dead center. By now I know the drill. I lift it and open it, and the system tells me I have obtained 5 iron ingots. Iron ingots. I am genuinely stunned, because I had iron pegged as a far-off dream, convinced it had to be smelted from iron ore and that the thin oxygen in the stomach wall space made smelting impossible. And here I have pulled finished ingots straight out of a box. Better still, I already hold an iron dagger blueprint that wants exactly 1 iron ingot. I snap the box shut and clutch it in both hands like a thief afraid of dropping his haul. I search the chamber, find nothing more, and start back. But now I am carrying 3 supply boxes through a tunnel barely wide enough for one, which is hopeless. So I pull the glass and the iron ingots out and consolidate everything into the box I brought in, then ship the 2 empty boxes off to Gang Haedo through the system. On his end, Gang Haedo holds the 2 empty supply boxes I just sent, completely lost. He has no idea what Brother Mun is playing at. I do not have a second to spare for Gang Haedo's confusion right now. This finally feels like real treasure hunting, so I double back and take the other fork. This one runs on forever, nearly 200 meters that grind every last drop of treasure hunting joy out of me until it is just torture, and at the end I drag myself into another open chamber. This one is different, larger, the water inside it clear enough that the headlamp shows me bare rock on the bottom. I work the edges first the way I have learned to, find nothing, then move toward the center. This time there is a wrinkle. At the back of the chamber, another tunnel opens, a way to keep going deeper. I set that aside for the moment and check the middle for a box, and I find one, except it is not sitting in the water like the others. It rests on a rock platform, and the platform around it is inlaid with gold edging. A gold-edged supply box. No need to wonder. Whatever is inside has to be extraordinary. I clasp my hands together, bow to the empty air, beg for a good blueprint, set my hands on the gold-edged box, and slowly open it. The system rings off 3 notifications back to back, telling me I have obtained a small aquarium blueprint, an iron broadsword blueprint, and a fishbone armor blueprint. 3 blueprints. The triple chime sets me grinning, and I pull all 3 out and use them on the spot, watching them dissolve into blue light and feed into the system, then open the blueprint interface to read their requirements. The small aquarium wants 3 iron ingots and 1 wood. The fishbone armor wants several large fish bones, 100 units of golden silk seaweed fiber, 50 units of shield fish fat, and 100 units of silk. The first 2 are no trouble. I have the materials and can craft them the second I am home, and the iron broadsword especially is the strongest weapon I could possibly hold right now. Most people out there do not own a single piece of defense, and even I am wearing armor cut from spiked krill shells and swinging a knife made of fishbone. Neither one anywhere near iron for hardness. Once I forge that iron broadsword, my combat power among the survivors will stand alone, unmatched. The last blueprint is the cruel one. Apart from golden silk seaweed, I have never even seen the materials it lists. Large fish bones I can stomach, since there is no size given, so the next time I drop a fish I think of as large, I can simply try the blueprint and learn the threshold by trial. But that depends on gathering the rest. Golden silk seaweed I at least know, though whether I can cultivate it is still an open question. And even if I do, the armor needs 100 units of the fiber, and by cultivation alone there is no telling how long that would take. Shield fish fat and silk I have no clue about at all. And yet I do not give up on the fishbone armor just because the materials are scarce. If anything, it lights a fire under me. For one stupid simple reason, the armor looks too cool to pass up. The spiked armor goes on piece by piece and looks like junk, the helmet sprouting 3 spikes off the top like antennas, where the fishbone armor is a single full-body set. Seamless, streamlined to the human form. The whole thing built of bone so it reads like the exoskeleton armor out of a science fiction film. Even from the crude little drawing in the illustration book, it looks incredible, and I want to make it and wear it immediately. Beyond looks, the fishbone armor's defense badly outclasses the spiked armor too, since bone is simply tougher than spiked krill shell. And a hunch nags at me that the vague phrasing of large fish bones is meaningful, that any suitable large fish bone might serve as material. The creatures of this world are strange and refuse to fit common sense, so somewhere out there could be a fish whose bones run harder than steel, and if my guess holds, then a fish like that could armor me in bone tougher than steel. The more I picture it, the more it grips me, until the thought of the rarity of the material snaps the fantasy clean off. Stop daydreaming. There is still work to do, and the cave is not finished. I shake it off, fold the items from the ordinary box into the gold-edged one without a second thought, ship the empty box to Gang Hado, sweep the chamber one more time, and head into the tunnel at the back. The water in this stretch stays clear, which gets me hoping there is another gold-edged box ahead, and the hope speeds me up. This time it is not 200 meters but 50, and I crawl into another chamber. I search it fast and, to my surprise, find no supply box. What I find instead, underwater at the center, is a staghorn coral, blood red all through, a thin haze of red mist hanging around it in the light. I have no idea what it is. After a moment's hesitation, I decide to tap it with a finger to see whether it unlocks an entry in the biological illustrations. Anywhere else I would never risk touching an unknown thing, but here, by everything I have seen, these chambers are where treasures sit, and with no supply box in this one and only the coral present, the coral must be the treasure. I reach out, tap the blood red coral once, jerk my finger back, confirm it is unharmed, and open the illustration book. It updated, and not with one entry but two. The first is the Gel vortex worm, 10 centimeters, 200 grams, an algae eater, a soft-bodied creature with strong regenerative ability, whose body can be made into hemostatic gel. That has to be the flat, soft creature I saw crawling the ceiling earlier, the one secreting mucus. It makes hemostatic gel, so I have to catch a few and bring them back. The second is the blood boil coral worm, 3 millimeters, 5/100ths of a gram, a blood eater, a tiny creature that lives in colonies on the corpses of its ancestors, whose coral can be made into blood boil powder. These must be the things living on the coral itself. But blood boil powder for what? The entry will not say. Just the rough sketch and then leaves me to work it out alone, which is genuinely maddening. I never know what to make of the illustration book, the way it hands me a vague outline and lets me figure out the rest at my own peril. Whatever it is, the blood boil coral comes back with me, except getting it back is its own problem. The part that matters most is the polyps, and polyps are living things that cannot survive long out of water. So if I just seal the coral in a supply box, the polyps may die over time. I think it over and land on an idea I do not love. I ask Gang Hado for 10 stone and 10 sand, open the blueprint interface, click the small aquarium blueprint, add the 10 glass I pulled earlier and craft it on the spot. The small aquarium comes out the same size as the seaweed planting box, 1 meter on every side. It's frame stone, each of its 4 faces set with a clear pane of glass so the inside shows through plainly. Its floor lined with sand. I fill it with clear seawater and private message it over to Gang Hado. Gang Hado asks what the small aquarium is for. He is thoroughly baffled by me today. 1 minute a wooden shield, then food, then a string of empty supply boxes, and now an aquarium, and he has decided I am acting very strange. Hang on to it for now, I tell him. I will send a coral along shortly, and the moment it arrives, put it straight into the aquarium, no delay. Then I scoop up the blood boil coral and ship it to him through the system. He messages back that the coral is in the aquarium, and after a beat asks if something has happened on my end. Something has, I tell him, but now is not the time. I will explain when I am back. He accepts it and lets it go. I have no intention of keeping the treasure cave from Gang Hado. Having chosen to trust him, I treat him as one of my own, and he may well stumble into a treasure cave himself someday, so telling him when I get home lets him prepare in advance. The blood boil coral is collected. Whether sending it through the system harms the polyps, I cannot say, but without this method I had no way to carry it out at all. The treasure of this chamber secured, I crawl on, because there is yet another tunnel behind it. This one is different from all the rest. 10 meters in, I hit 5 forks at once, and deeper still the forks multiply into a tangled web, and the standing water turns muddy and vile, like crawling through a pit of mud. Where is the next chamber? And why are there so many forks, I grumble, plastered head to toe in mud until I am a mudman myself. I crawl back and forth through that chaos for a long time, and finally admit it. I am lost. Right hand rule, screw your right hand rule. I stare at the ring of identical forks with my head spinning, every branch the same, the headlamp too dim to even tell me which one I came out of. Gritting my teeth, I pick one at random and score a mark on the wall with the fishbone knife, so that if I circle back to this spot, I will know to skip this path and try another. Then I crawl, through mud and water, for I have no idea how long, until I feel wind on my face from up ahead. Wind. The exit is ahead. I light up and put on speed, and 10 some meters later I crawl out of the cave entirely, hollering like a madman that I am out, because hunting for a way out in that endless black tunnel had pushed me to genuine despair, the dark stretching on like it had no end. I am out, I can finally rest. And then I look up, and the sky is full of stars, and I stop dead. Where am I? Am I still inside the evolved Leviathan's mouth? A gust of sea wind hits me, salt and damp, and it lands all at once. I have crawled out through a second mouth, the Leviathan's other opening. I do not climb straight back in, because this is the first time I have ever truly touched the outside world. The sea breeze blows, the waves surge, the tide slaps again and again at the rock under me, and out past it the ocean runs flat to the horizon, with no end in sight. It is night, but the sea is not dark, and the reason is simple. There are 10 moons in the sky. 9 of them are pale blue, all the same size, scattered across the dark in an irregular pattern. And the 10th is deep blue and enormous, swallowing nearly half the sky, so close it looks like I could reach out and touch it. Then the Leviathan's voice cuts into my head, anxious now, asking how its little one got outside and telling me to come back quickly. Clearly, to the evolved Leviathan I am far too fragile, and the outside world far too dangerous. I obey at once and crawl back in, but a little way along I hit 2 more forks and stall out, hopelessly unable to find the way home. What is wrong, little one? The Leviathan asks. There is still something on the right that has not been taken. My lost face flips to surprise. The Leviathan's thoughts are coming thick and frequent now, frequent enough that I can simply move by them, so I crawl right as its thought directs. From then on, every time I reach a fork and stop, the Leviathan sends a puzzled thought, and I crawl the way it points. And after 4 or 5 forks I come out into another chamber. This one is full of mud, long strips of it bent and folded into a heap, and a bad feeling creeps over me. Why does this look so much like earthworm droppings? I pick up a lump to examine it, and the system tells me I have obtained 1 unit of dungeon rock worm feces. I fling it away on reflex, but there is no smell to the stuff at all. And ignoring what it is really just mud. I get my stomach under control and start searching, because by the Leviathan's thoughts this is where the last treasure waits. I search the mud-choked chamber a long while and find nothing but mud. Could the feces themselves be the treasure here? The more I think on it, the more it fits. Because it is feces, which means it works as fertilizer, and maybe this dungeon rockworm feces pushes crop growth even harder than my low-grade fertilizer does. I stop finding the mud disgusting and get to work, scooping lumps into the gold-edged box by hand at first, then using the wooden shield as a shovel when hand-loading proves too slow. The 100-slot box fills fast, and even full it holds maybe 1/10 of the feces in this chamber. This will not do. All of it has to come with me, so I message Gang Hido again, telling him I am about to send a pile of mud and to please hold it for a while until I finish here, then send it back. He has no reason to refuse, though my run of strange behavior is making him more and more curious what I have gotten into. I store the 90-odd portions in the box into the system interface and ship them to him, then keep the cycle going, filling the box, sending it off, filling it again, until the feces along the chamber's edges are all gone, and only the tallest pile remains, dead center, almost dug out. I take a break, sit on the ground, look up at the little mountain of feces, and grin, because this cave run has been richly worth it. 3 blueprints in one go. Rare iron ingots that are murderously hard to get, and 2 creatures with special effects on top. Once I finish the pile, I can go home and rest properly. Today has wrung me dry. Rested, I go back to digging, undercutting the soft mud mountain from below, so it slumps lower and lower until its peak comes into view, and there at the top something catches the headlamp and sparkles, like an object sitting on it. Another treasure. I dig faster until the whole mountain collapses to a low spread of mud, and finally, I see what was glinting on top. It is a strange little plant, half a meter tall, its trunk a length of rock no thicker than my pinky. 3 branches rise from the rock trunk, hung with leaves of crystal, flat and shaped like long cones, like the bamboo leaves back on Earth, and the leaves are dusted with fine crystal thorns that glitter where the light strikes. At the forks of the 3 branches, 3 smaller bare branches reach out, each one holding an egg-sized stone at its tip, the surface rough and pitted and altogether ordinary looking. I do not know what the plant is, so I reach out to touch it, and the instant my hand meets the stone at the branch's end, the stone drops off. I snap a backhand out and catch it, and the system tells me I have obtained 1 rock fruit. The stone is the plant's fruit? I had eyed the 3 lumpy stones on its branches and guessed they might be fruit, but they looked so exactly like stones that I could hardly believe it. If it is fruit, it should be edible, I think, and I open my mouth to taste it, then hesitate, because this whole place is dungeon rockworm feces, and the fruit is bound to have some stuck to it. I ask Gang Hado for a bottle of mineral water and wash it clean. The feces no longer disgust me, but I still cannot eat them. Washed off, I put the rock fruit in my mouth and bite down hard, and the thing does not give in the slightest, nearly cracking a molar. I hiss at the pain, looking at the shallow tooth dent I left in its surface, and gripe that this can hardly be a fruit. It is far too hard. Can it not be eaten at all? My head fills with questions, because I know almost nothing about the plant. After thinking it through, I decide the fruit is probably edible but wrapped in a protective shell, like a nut. So I carry it to the chamber wall and tap it gently against the rock. Nothing. I add a little force. Still nothing. And keep adding more. And finally the shell cracks, and through the split I glimpse crystalline flesh inside. Surprised and pleased, I peel the stone shell away to reveal the clear flesh within. Round, about the size of a ping pong ball. A thick layer of translucent flesh wrapped around a white core. The whole thing like a lychee, except that a lychee's flesh is soft. And this is hard. I put the flesh in my mouth and bite gently, and this time a piece comes away easily. It is crisp, like a crisp apple, but very sweet. And the core at the center carries a rich, fruity aroma, sweet and delicious. I expected the core to be hard, but it is only a touch firmer than the flesh around it, crunchy like a lotus seed. The flesh is small to begin with, and I finish it in 2 bites, and the system tells me I have gained 1 strength, 1 constitution, and 1 speed. 3 attributes at once. My eyes light up and I grin. Each row is only a single point, but I am thrilled, because the whole treasure run already paid out big, and these points are pure bonus. I wonder whether the rock fruit can raise attributes again on a second eating, and I pick another to test it, though I am not hopeful, since nothing in this world so far has stacked points on repeat. I bite into the second one, and the system tells me again that I have gained 1 strength, 1 constitution, and 1 speed. The same chime, a second time. I freeze. It actually stacks. Shocked, I grab for the last rock fruit to keep the streak going, then catch myself, because this plant is a treasure, and the rock fruit doubles as a seed. By the look of where it grew, its growth condition is dungeon rockworm feces, and I have already hauled all the feces back so I can simply plant it for myself later. I pocket the last fruit and dig the plant out of the heap. Its roots are crystal too, so I dig with great care, and luckily it is rooted in soft mud that gives easily, so I lift it free without breaking the crystal root system. Then I dig out the last of the dungeon rockworm feces, and with that the treasure cave run is finished. For the trip home I tie the gold-edged box to my back with cloth strips, then pull off the spiked helmet and plant the rock crystal tree inside it, since the 3 upright spikes on the helmet snapped off during the fight with the dungeon rockworm, and it now makes a perfect little planter. Box on my back, helmet in one hand, I thread fork after fork exactly as the Leviathan's thoughts direct, and at last climb out the entrance I came in by. I look up out of habit and see only black. Confirm I am back inside the evolved Leviathan's mouth, and feel my whole body unclench. Back in a safe place, I pack all my armor and weapons into the supply box, slip easily through the eosphageal diaphragm, and return to the stomach wall space. Looking at it under its faint lights, it feels like a lifetime has passed, the cave behind me genuinely crushing, and I am only grateful to be home. Then the Leviathan thinks that its little one is finally back, and it is time to sleep. It is so sleepy, and the whole stomach wall space begins to shudder as it sets off to find somewhere to rest. I hear it, and a faint smile crosses my worn-out face, because I am exhausted too, the cave having truly drained me. It is not time to sleep yet though. I find a spot for the rock crystal tree, move the iron ingots and glass from the gold-edged box into the storage cabinet. Then message Gang Heido for everything I parked with him today. The blood-boiled coral and the small aquarium, and a pile of dungeon rockworm feces. When he sends it all back, he also passes along a spiked helmet blueprint, so I craft myself a fresh spiked helmet. He asks if my business is finished. Done, I tell him. I left the stomach wall space today, and he cannot make sense of it, asking back whether I really left the stomach wall space. So I tell him about the treasure cave, holding back only the iron broadsword and fishbone armor blueprints, and the matter of the Leviathan's thoughts. Treasure cave, giant worms, he repeats, shaken to his core. Just imagining a giant creature in a black, narrow, dripping cave with no way out is enough to suffocate him. And he asks whether I am hurt. Nothing serious, just scratches, I tell him. Lucky the evolved Leviathan stepped in, or it would have gone badly. Even recalling the dozen-odd shields I burned holding off the dungeon rockworm puts a cold sweat on my back. If you ever hit a treasure cave, I tell him, be sure to message me before you go exploring. I can help. He thanks me but balks, asking whether cave exploring is not simply too dangerous, whether the risk is even necessary, because hearing my account alone scared him, and he cannot imagine doing it himself. How can it not be necessary? I answer. This is a survival world. It runs on grabbing resources and blueprints, and the treasure cave hands out rare ones, so the moment you flinch from it, you fall a step behind everyone. Right now, survivors never cross paths, I tell him, but what about later, and if open conflict ever comes and you have fallen behind? I do not need to spell out how that ends. Fine, he says at last. But when the time comes, Brother Mun has to help me. Of course, I tell him. I warn him to keep the treasure cave to himself, and end the conversation. After that, I craft a second small aquarium from 10 stone, 10 glass, and 10 sand, because on the way out of the cave, I did not forget the Gel Vortex worms, having grabbed 10 of them from the standing water and carried them back tucked in my clothes. I settle those 10 into the new aquarium. But 2 aquariums at a square meter each leave no room on the wooden platform, and the wooden foundation is hard to widen, so since I cannot build out, I build up. I raised 2 more wooden foundations on stilts above the platforms where I sleep. 4 logs holding each one up with empty space beneath, so I keep my old sleeping spot but lose the headroom above it. The 2 aquariums go on the upper level, and I sleep in the gap underneath. Why is it that the faster I develop, the smaller my living space gets? I gripe, hunched into the sliver of bed I have left. Before sleep, I glance at the private messages stacked in the system. Tens of thousands of them, most demanding to know why I suddenly stopped selling wooden foundations. I ignore them all. I was out of the stomach wall space, so of course I could not craft, and barring surprises, I will sell again tomorrow, and the whole question dissolves. One message, though, offers to trade for a second algae oxygen generator, and the blueprint on the table is the very chopsticks blueprint I saw earlier on the World Exchange channel. I message back at once and trade the chopsticks blueprint home, because eating that simple hot pot without chopsticks had been bothering me. The chopsticks blueprint wants only 1 wood, so I craft them, and after a day this brutal I reward myself with a can of fruit preserves, taking a long pull of the syrup first to let the sweetness wash the fatigue off, then using the slim new chopsticks to lift the fruit out and eat it in comfort. Chopsticks make everything easy. Good juice. Day 10. I sit up off the wooden platform the moment I wake and crack my head straight into the board of the foundation I built overhead. I hiss and rub the sore spot, remembering too late what I put up last night. This one entirely my own doing, and crawl out from the gap between the 2 foundations. The instant my arms take my weight on the platform, they scream, soar through, and even the muscles across my shoulders sting faintly. In the treasure cave yesterday, I crawled the whole way on my arms, then matched endurance with a dungeon rockworm, and when my life was on the line, the adrenaline drove my muscles past their limit, which is almost certainly when I strained the tendons. Please, no anchorhead worms today, I mutter as I crawl out. My arms have nothing in them, and I need a real day of rest. If an anchorhead worm does come, I will fight through the pain, but it will only damage the tendons further and drag the healing out. That is odd, though. What about the 2 constitution I gained yesterday? Why is there no effect at all? I open my body attributes panel, and it tells me my intelligence holds at 10, my strength is 10.5, my constitution is 12, my speed is 14, and it rates me a healthy person who surpasses ordinary people. My constitution is 12 now, past the human baseline, so why is this injury still healing so slowly? I expected more out of 12 points. I was expecting too much. Constitution does speed physical recovery, but at 12 points the boost over before is only slight, nowhere near enough to mend a strain in a night's sleep. Then again, without those 12 points of Constitution, I might not even have managed to sit up off the platform this morning, so it is doing something. I am only grumbling, really, because the panel never spells out what each increase actually does, and I am running entirely on guesswork that I cannot even confirm. Then I turn my eyes to strength and stall on the 10.5. Earlier I figured out that exercise raises strength and confirmed it, gaining half a point, but that was while I was still under the human ceiling of 10. Now I sit at 10.5, past a normal person, and I suspect push-ups will not push it any higher. Forget it. I will keep doing them anyway, at least to recover the half point I am down. I am still feeling my way on the exercise question, and guesswork alone will not cut it, so I will simply keep testing until I work out a real method for raising strength. Attributes checked. I go around inspecting things, starting with the blood boil coral I brought back. Because it traveled through the system, I was a little worried the coral worms had been harmed, but when I shine the headlamp carefully over the coral in the aquarium, they are all still alive, which is a relief. The trouble is their food is blood, and where am I supposed to get blood? I cannot exactly open a vein for them. Maybe the evolved Leviathan's blood. I think in it is the obvious fit, the Leviathan being so large that bleeding a little would mean almost nothing to it. But I give the idea up, at least for now, because I have thought of another source. Killing anchorhead worms. Going forward, if I meet an anchorhead worm, I can kill it and bleed it for the blood boil coral worms. And if I do not meet one, I can post a request on the World Exchange channel, since the blood of a single anchorhead worm should be plenty. I still remember the blood spraying when I killed that first one. The bleeding was enormous. After the coral, I checked the Gel Vortex worms in the other aquarium. There is very little water in it, and I had no way to get seawater last night, so I cup a few handfuls out of the blood boil coral tank and pour them in. Since from what I saw in the cave, the Gel Vortex worms do not strictly need to live in water, only a little moisture in their surroundings. All 10 check out fine, crawling slowly across the glass and laying down their mucus trails. The illustration book is plain enough about them, that their bodies make hemostatic gel, and that their regenerative ability is very strong, so I decide to test how strong. I take one out, slice it cleanly in half across the middle with the fishbone knife, and drop both halves back into the aquarium. Now I just wait on the result. Rather than sit there wasting time, I go to look at the golden silk fruit I have been turning over in my head. The moment I reach the seaweed planting box, I spot it. A tiny seaweed barely 3 centimeters tall growing up among the gravel underwater. Entirely golden yellow, shimmering gold in the light. It sprouted. The excitement nearly knocks me over, and for a second I cannot trust it, afraid I am seeing things. So I look again, and once I am certain it is a truly fully golden seaweed seedling, I am overjoyed. The reaction is no exaggeration. Golden silk seaweed produces golden silk fruit. Golden silk fruit raises the eater's strength by a full 5 points. And on top of that, the golden silk seaweed fiber is exactly what the fishbone armor needs. So its importance to me is obvious. And seeing it sprout at last had to hit me hard. From the fact that Jin Hoon once traded me golden silk fruit, I can infer she pulled at least 2, which means 1 golden silk seaweed yields at least 2 fruits. It is possible her luck was monstrous, and she simply ran into 2 golden silk seaweeds at once. But the odds of that are tiny, and I doubt it. I even have a bolder guess, that golden silk seaweed bears 3 fruits at a time, reasoning from my own habit, that whenever I find something that raises attributes I eat a second one to confirm it does not stack before I sell it. Jin Hyun is probably the same, eating 2 golden silk fruits confirming strength does not stack, and trading the third to me. I look at the delicate little seedling with shining eyes, and the thought that I could mass-produce golden silk fruit, a thing this rare that grants a boost this large, lights me up all over again. Once I have settled down, I go to check the rock crystal leaf tree I carried back yesterday. The rock crystal leaf tree is still planted in the broken spiked helmet, because there is genuinely no spare room on the wooden platform either, since the dungeon rockworm feces is soft mud and would never hold up to the seawater washing through. But the rock crystal leaf tree is far too important to leave like this. It's rock fruit able to raise attributes on repeat, and 3 different attributes at that. Right, the watermelon ripens today. Once I pick it, the space it frees up goes to the rock crystal leaf tree. Everything runs on priorities, and the rock crystal leaf tree outweighs a crop like the watermelon by a wide margin. Already I am itching to get the rock crystal leaf tree fruiting again fast, to learn just how many times the rock fruit will stack attributes. Eager, I carry the spiked helmet with the rock crystal leaf tree in it over to the crop planting area. At a glance I see, in one of the small planting boxes, a huge oval watermelon bigger than a basketball, faint stripes on its skin, plump and round, resting quietly among vines and leaves that have already begun to wilt. I step up excited and pat it gently, and it trembles a little and gives off a crisp thudding sound, plainly ripe. I hold off picking it though, because watching the vines and leaves wilt, I figure the melon is only truly ready once they have withered completely. I swallow. From that thud under my palm I can tell this is a good melon, thin-skinned and thick-fleshed. Tamping down the urge to eat it, I look at the sweet potatoes beside it. Sweet potatoes grow underground with only vines and leaves showing, and these vines have gone dark green and clearly old, while the once flat soil below now bulges slightly, which says the sweet potatoes have grown large too. Crops checked, and it is nearly time for the evolved Leviathan's feeding stage, so I set the rock crystal leaf trees somewhere safe and crawl back into the sleeping area. The cramped space does not feel cramped now, only secure. With the wooden foundation overhead and the algae oxygen generator out front, I am like a man tucked into a tiny house, where the dangers outside can barely touch me. Safe or not, I still gear up, and I open the blueprint interface and scroll to the iron broadsword. Since I have a better weapon now and the materials to match, the fishbone knife goes into temporary retirement for the sake of a little more safety. I click craft, and 3 iron ingots and 1 piece of wood dissolve into blue light and fuse in front of me into a meter-long iron broadsword. The iron broadsword has a 70-centimeter blade and a 30-centimeter handle, made to be held in both hands, the blade wider at the front and narrower toward the back, wider on top and narrower below, with a slight curve running between blade and tip that suits slashing. It is a bit heavy, I think, hefting it one-handed, around 5 kilograms, and for the me of right now I can manage only simple one-handed swings. With a heavy strain on my wrist, to really use it I would have to grip it two-handed, but I have never handled a broadsword before, and swinging it with both hands feels awkward. Looks like I need to practice. I take it in both hands and try a few swings, and my arms feel uncoordinated. No way around it. I was an ordinary man, the only blade I ever used was a kitchen knife, so a two-handed broadsword is bound to feel strange, and only steady practice will fix that. The sound of seawater surging comes from the eosphageal diaphragm. I focus at once, tucking behind the algae oxygen generator, listening to the movement in the water. I do not want an anchorhead worm today, not with the strained tendons, where simple swings are fine but real force would be bad for the injury. After careful listening and a check by mirror confirmed there are no anchorhead worms in the water, I open the blueprint interface and craft 21 algae oxygen generators. Last night, trading for the chopsticks blueprint, I gave away the generators I was using, so I am replacing them, and the remaining 20 stay listed on the World Trade Channel for the survivors to grab. After a while, whether it is my wish coming true or only luck, I clear today's feeding stage safely. Other survivors are not so lucky. The death count climbs the way I expected it would, past 500,000 people today. Looking at a number that vast, there is nothing I can do but keep selling wooden foundations to give the survivors a little more defense. Gang Hato runs into an anchorhead worm attack too, but with the method I taught him, hiding behind the algae oxygen generator, he is never dragged into the water the way I was. He waits safe on the wooden platform for the seawater to recede, and without the water the anchorhead worm's flexibility collapses. Then, in the heavy spiked armor I gave him, and with the fishbone blade in hand, he holds still until the anchorhead worm clamps onto his body and hacks down hard on its soft flesh, killing it clean. Hearing this, I have Gang Heido send the anchorhead worm's corpse over and pour its blood into the aquarium holding the blood boil coral. The blood stains the clear seawater red, and the coral worms go wild, waving their tiny tentacles without pause, drinking the blood out of the water. After feeding the blood boil coral worms, I drop a portion of leftover seaweed from the feeding stage into the gel vortex worm tank for them to eat. After feeding everything, I post a buy order for gold ore on the World Trade Channel, since gold ore really does make golden silk seaweed grow and I want more of it. Then I start moving the seaweed, and because of the arm injury I cannot put much force into it today, so the pace is slower, almost 2 hours. 1 extra hour though makes no difference to the number of supply boxes I get. Alright, time to eat watermelon. While moving the seaweed, I see that every watermelon vine and leaf has withered, which proves the melon is fully ripe, so once the seaweed is done, I climb up onto the wooden platform and pick the big watermelon off the dead vine. The iron broadsword I just crafted was perfect for cutting the watermelon,